the enormous monster bird roared menacingly. The four-member B-rank squad Crimson Lotus Fang took on the task of destroying this monster. Nahhat, the arrogant member of the squad, merely smiled at the monster's fury. Nahhat asked Zeke, the main character with a shield, not to interfere with him today. Irene remained silent when she heard the request. Hannah, the team's sorceress, loudly addressed Nahhat, informing him that the monsters were already nearby. The swordsman took note of this. The squad rushed into battle. Nahhat gave orders. Hannah and Irene were to cover the rear, while Zeke was to take up his position. The squad members did as their leader commanded. The swordsman delivered a slashing blow to one of the bird monsters. Irene, the archer, fired her arrows and praised Nahhat for being in excellent form today. The swordsman proudly declared that it was nothing. During the battle, Nahhat shouted over the noise of the fighting that these creatures had many vulnerable spots. Hannah supported him, assessing the location as excellent for farming. The swordsman was in the heat of battle, cutting through the monster's flesh with his weapon and spilling their blood. The team leader noticed what was happening off to the side. Zeke was taking the blows of the bird monsters, defending himself with his shield. Nahhat was not happy with Zeke's actions. One of the bird monsters standing behind him opened its beak, preparing to attack Zeke from behind with a fireball. The shield-bearer noticed the attack coming at him out of the corner of his eye. With confidence in his eyes, he turned his shield, preparing to take the blow. The bird monster released a fireball from its mouth. Nahhat was unhappy with how Zeke had behaved in this situation. The swordsman cut the monster down, cursing Zeke and calling him a damned scarecrow. Nahhat's face was angry. The shield-bearer noticed this. He himself was tired. The squad returned to the guild in the city of Estor. The people at the guild praised Nahhat for his excellent form. The leader of the squad gladly accepted the compliments, continuing to boast that it was nothing for his squad. Someone invited Hannah and Irene to join their table, but the girls refused. Those watching laughed at the situation. The girl who was working on the documents praised the main character for his work. He responded modestly, saying he hadn't done much. Nahhat was clearly dissatisfied with Zeke. Angry and tipsy, standing with a wooden mug of alcohol, the leader of the Crimson Lotus Fang squad declared that from that moment on, Zeke was no longer a member of their team. Zeke didn't know what to say to that. He asked about the reasons for this decision. Nahhat got angry. Everything seemed obvious to him, but he explained that their squad specialized in attack. No monsters could withstand their squad for more than 10 minutes. The members of their team had the greatest offensive power, with the exception of Zeke. Nahhat accused the shield-bearer of cowardice for always defending himself as a warrior and never attacking, even when attacked himself. The squad leader turned to the girls to confirm his words. Hannah agreed with Nahhat, adding that Zeke was quite strong and should be more aggressive. Irene supported the sorceress's words, saying that having strength is meaningless if you don't use it. The swordsman turned to Zeke again, saying that he was dragging the team down. The main character objected. He wasn't just standing still, he was fulfilling his role in the team. The leader of the group did not understand the objection. After all, Zeke was not a scarecrow, so his role was not to be beaten up. Nahhat told Zeke to his face that he was not up to the level of the other team members and was therefore not needed. The shield-bearer got up from the table and decided to leave the squad himself. The swordsman did not regret his words. He considered Zeke a waste of money for accommodation and said goodbye to his former comrade, calling him a scarecrow. The girls were upset by what had happened, but said nothing. Zeke thanked his former team for everything as he left. Zeke left the guild. Someone in the room commented that Nahhat had drunk too much. The leader of the squad dismissed these words. Today is a holiday, so let him rest. The main character went out into the fresh air, looking up at the starry sky. Zeke began to reminisce. Their squad used to be different. When they first formed their squad, they compensated for each other's weaknesses and were good teammates. But due to the squad's newfound popularity, Nahhat had changed. He decided that the Crimson Lotus Fang was a squad with great firepower, and because of this, he focused on offense. Thus, Nahhat became someone who looked down on others with indifference. Zeke talked aloud about his plans. He entered a room where a girl working with documents noticed him. She asked what the shield-bearer was doing there alone. Zeke told her that he had been expelled from the squad, so he had come to complete the procedure. The girl was shocked to hear this news. She asked what the main character was going to do next, because no team would accept a guy who had been expelled earlier. Zeke was thinking about giving up his adventurous lifestyle. The girl found this sad. Shitovic added that he had already thought about leaving, as he wanted to find a stable job for himself. If that was all, the girl could help him with that. Zeke asked if that was true, and the girl confirmed it, saying that they were looking for someone with experience due to a shortage of staff, and that the shield-bearer was just right for the job. The job turned out to be a guard position in the royal capital of Astarotos. The girl wrote a letter of recommendation for the main character. Zeke arrived in the royal capital. He spoke to the guards at the entrance about the purpose of his visit. The guards checked the man's passport and letter of recommendation. Two guards were discussing something among themselves. Zig mentally noted that they were checking quite carefully. The shield bearer inquired about the situation in the city, which turned out to be dire. Resources were depleted due to the incessant attacks of monsters, so they were glad to see someone applying for the job. The guards asked Zig if he was a B-rank adventurer and a member of the Crimson Lotus Fang. The main character confirmed this information, adding that it was in the past. The guards exchanged glances. Zig turned out to be the very person from the rumors. The shield-bearer did not understand what they were talking about, but the guards did not explain. They gave permission to enter the capital and explained the location of the headquarters. The protagonist was puzzled, but out of politeness, he thanked the guards. It turned out that the guards had already heard that Zeke had been expelled from the squad, and therefore doubted whether they could rely on him. Bolton looked at Zeke's resume. The head of headquarters immediately warned the shield-bearer that, unlike adventurers, they could not afford to run away from danger. The pay was low, and they were one step away from death every day. This job had the worst conditions, but Zeke was ready for it. The answer was given without hesitation, and Bolton offered to conduct a test. The chief decided to start with defense and forbade the main character from attacking. Zig learns about the rumors the guards were talking about, his expulsion, and his nickname, the Scarecrow. The knights considered Zig to be weak in appearance. Bolton continued to explain the rules of the test. He showed the main character a ball that he would have to defend, representing the townspeople. 3 knights who believed their commander was overestimating the main character would attack Zig. They thought the task would be easy for them. The chief of staff immediately said that they did not take just anyone, because an unprepared person would die immediately. Bolton immediately added that the guards must defend the townspeople and would take Zeke if he was ready for it. The main character had to prove his usefulness. 3 knights from the guard were clearly intent on defeating Zeke. The shield bearers got ready, and the knights took up attacking positions. Bolton announced the start of the test. Zig began to think about the conditions of his task. He was not allowed to attack, but there was a limit to fighting all the knights at once. After analyzing the situation, the shield-bearer decided to wear down his opponents along with defending himself. He decided to do what he always did. The first guard still thought arrogantly of Zig. He confidently went on the attack, but the shield-bearer dodged and successfully counterattacked his opponent. Another knight thought he had caught the defender off guard. Zeke, however, stuck to his plan of eliminating the attackers one by one. The main character was determined. Zig continued to take attacks. He was confident in his plan. The defender pinned the guard to the ground with the tip of his sword. Bolton noticed that the main character blocked the blow with his shield and immediately neutralized the next attack. Another guard cursed, unhappy that their side was losing, and rushed into the attack. He aimed his sword at Zig, not considering the adventurer a worthy opponent. The guard struck, but the shield-bearer parried the blow, hitting the attacker's shield. The chief of staff watched the battle, assessing Zeke's actions. He remained calm in the face of several opponents. Bolton concluded that the main character's actions were primitive but accurate. The third knight with the spear was puzzled as to how Zig could be only a B-rank adventurer. He was angry at the situation. The knight lunged with his spear, but Zig dodged. The spear flew past his ear. If the shield-bearer had not dodged in time, he would have been pierced through, but the main character manages to repeat his dangerous parry perfectly every time. There was a loud thud. The 2 guards were surprised by the outcome of the battle. The third knight's spear had been knocked out of his hands. The guards were discouraged by the fact that Zeke had so easily disarmed the attacker. They were unable to get past the defender or reach the ball. The chief of staff found the situation interesting and ordered the other guards to attack. Many other knights stepped forward. Zig turned at the sound behind him. The knights rushed to attack from behind Zig. Bolton reminded him that if the ball was touched, the former adventurer would lose. The 3 defeated guards commented on the turn of events, saying how ruthless their boss was and deciding that now Zig would not pass the test. Bolton explained his decision by saying that no matter how exhausted the shield-bearer was, the enemies would not wait, and the job of a guard was to defend the city. The attackers were too far away from the defender. The chief of staff was sure that Zig would lose the battle, but the guy didn't agree. He decided to use a technique called iron target. The guard's weapons almost touched the ball, but Zig, with fighting determination in his eyes, was ready to use his technique. Something strange began to happen to the attacking guards. Their bodies moved on their own. Against their will, they switched to attacking the main character's shield. All the knights froze in bewilderment at what had happened. Zig repelled the attackers with his shield. The guards still did not understand what had happened. Bolton suspected that the main character had used a skill, so the shield-bearer focused all attacks on himself. The chief of staff concluded that Zeke was more interesting than he had thought. He decided to personally test the abilities of the former adventurer. The next stage of testing was a sparring match between Zeke and Bolton. They would fight until one of them gave up or was no longer able to fight. The commander hinted that the sparring would be deadly. The guards discussed what had happened, trying to make sense of it. One of them chanted, wishing victory for the leader and revenge for them. Bolton was a rank A adventurer. His strength was on par with that of the commander of the knights. Zeke was focused on the upcoming battle. The leader gave the order to begin the sparring match. Bolton's attack was swift. Zeke also noticed that the chief of staff was heavy. The shield-bearer's feet dug into the ground. The guy was able to repel the attack, but Bolton almost broke through his defense. The chief of staff, whom Zeke privately called Uncle, turned out to be strong. The shield-bearer was focused and understood something about the next strike. Bolton had already decided that his next strike would defeat Zeke, but the main character was able to block the attack. He also noticed something. The head opened up for an attack, and the shield-bearer immediately aimed his sword at him. However, the old man was able to parry the blow aimed at him. This surprised Zeke. Bolton summed up, the shield-bearer could fight him on equal terms, and even praised the guy for it. The guards who witnessed the battle began to doubt that the defender had really been expelled from the squad. The chief of staff admitted that Zeke had already passed the test, but he liked this battle, which revived his fighting spirit, so he wanted to continue sparring. Bolton noted that the shield-bearer's blocks and defensive movements were excellent. He asked if Zeke had ever received 1,000 blows. The chief prepared to attack and asked the main character to block it. He began to use the 1,000 strike. Zeke was tense and focused on what was about to happen. The guy thought to himself that Bolton's swords sparkled like petals in the air. This skill blocked all paths of retreat. It was a whirlwind of blades. The whirlwind was aimed at the main character. Behind him, the ball was still untouched. The hero's eyes filled with determination. He raised his shield and was confident in his abilities. Witnesses to the battle, including Bolton, were amazed that the shield-bearer decided to take on the 1,000 strike and block it. The main character was convinced that he could block all the blades. Someone shouted at Zeke, asking him what he was doing. The guards did not understand what was happening and were not sure that the shield-bearer would survive. It seemed that the chief had overreached himself. Bolton was also amazed. But Zeke didn't have a single scratch, even after so many blows. The shield-bearer looked at the ball. It was intact and unharmed. The chief of staff was shocked. Bolton assumed that Zeke had blocked the shot only to protect the ball. His assumption turned out to be correct. The chief of staff admitted that he had underestimated Zeke. Bolton announced that the former adventurer had passed the test. The guards discussed among themselves that if their shield-bearer had been kicked off the team, how strong the other members must be. A wooden beer mug was slammed down on the table. Bolton said he was completely defeated. The chief of staff was not sure that he himself could have withstood so many blows and not received a single wound. He called Zeke amazing. Bolton asked about the training that had helped achieve such results. The shield-bearer had always been confident in his defense. The chief of staff also called Zeke brave for withstanding such an attack. The shield-bearer seemed exhausted to the chief of staff, so he asked him about it. Zeke thought that everyone in the tavern seemed exhausted. The commander explained that it was because of the constant attacks by demons on the kingdom. It was all because of the light sphere, a treasure that sealed the demon king. The shield-bearer thought about how the lady from the guild had recommended him for this crazy job. Bolton declared that from today, thanks to the protection of the main character, everything could change. He ordered Zeke to protect this city as one of them. The chief of staff was eager to work with Zeke. The latter was a little confused. They shook hands. The shield-bearer asked Bolton about the guy sitting next to him. The stranger was stunned that he had only just been noticed. The chief of staff had forgotten to introduce him. This was Commander Zeke. The stranger's name was Lambda. Starting tomorrow, he would be training Zeke in his duties. Shchitovic asked him to take care of him. The new commander asked about the rumors of the Claw of the Crimson Lotus. Lambda was still troubled by the reason why Zeke had been expelled. He replied that he had been expelled because his teammates felt he lacked combat power. The commander was surprised by this reason. Zeke did not want the questioning on this topic to continue. Bolton looked at Lambda reproachfully, causing him to panic. The commander apologized and expressed his support for Zeke for his unfair expulsion. Bolton called the adventurer's former comrades fools. The chief of staff explained that the shield-bearer was used by the vanguard during battle, so the others could attack without worry. Zeke's eyes lit up. The adventurer was the team's tank with exceptional skills and endurance. The chief of staff said that the Crimson Lotus Fang squad had made a mistake and that it was good that the shield-bearer had left them. Bolton asked if Zeke wanted to return to the squad, because his former comrades were surely waiting for his return. The shield-bearer behaved modestly, saying that he was not as good as his uncle thought. There was a suggestion to stop discussing the Crimson Lotus Fang, because from now on Zig was one of the knights. Bolton would not forgive him if he died first. Lambda laughed awkwardly. Nahhat did not understand what was happening with the monsters. They had definitely become stronger, and were recovering after the squad's attacks. Hannah could no longer see the creature's weak spots, and Irene had run out of arrows. The bird monster prepared to release a fireball. The sorceress summoned a wave of thorns. Hannah suggested that this was because of Zeke's departure. The squad leader didn't understand her. Then the sorceress added that thanks to the shield-bearer, they could safely attack the monsters without fear. Irene supported the sorceress, saying that she had seen Zeke's efforts. He was actually protecting them. Hannah shouted at Nahhat that she didn't understand why he had done that. It was a stupid decision. The leader of the group loudly objected, calling Zeke a useless scarecrow. He was sure they could manage without him. The girls asked him not to shout so loudly because of the monsters. Many glowing eyes appeared in the darkness of the cave. Irene concluded that they were in big trouble. Nahhat suggested combining their attacks and counterattacking. They had no other choice, so that's what the leader decided to do. In the guild, people were discussing the latest failure of the Crimson Lotus Fang squad. Their team's reputation was falling. They also discussed Nahhat's poor decision to expel Zeke. The team leader was about to leave. The girls tried to stop him, but he was determined to go. The swordsman was angry that Zeke, that fool, was no longer a member of their squad, but for some reason he had to endure humiliation because of him. Meanwhile, the shield-bearer was sharing a drink with Bolton. The next day, Zeke and Lambda stood guard at the city gates. The shield-bearer's thoughts that not many people came here were confirmed. The commander explained that this was because the city was a notoriously dangerous area. Lambda suggested that it must have been difficult for Zeke to get to the city. Zeke confirmed this. He didn't have money for a coachman, no one would give him a ride, and he had to fight monsters along the way. The commander asked if Zeke had come here on his own. Zeke confirmed that he had walked here. The shield-bearer noticed a carriage approaching the dangerous zone. Lambda ordered Zeke to go with him to check it out. The commander explained to the newcomer how to check the permit. For safety reasons, he suggested that they also inspect the goods thoroughly. After looking at the cargo, Lambda concluded that there was nothing suspicious in the carriage. However, Zeke noticed something. The commander gave his permission to enter the city, but the guard, apologizing for the inconvenience, did not allow the two people from the carriage to proceed. Lambda was confused. The pass was genuine. Zeke agreed with him. The guard smelled blood, which they had carefully tried to wipe away. Zeke accused the two men of murdering the merchants to silence them. The two criminals calmly and silently looked at the main character. One of them smiled maliciously and asked rhetorically if that meant Zeke could smell blood. The same criminal was delighted with this turn of events because it meant that he could kill both guards and hide their bodies in the carriage. Lambda was terrified. The commander, clearly afraid, ran for reinforcements and asked the former B-rank adventurer to hold out until help arrived. Zeke blocked the dagger aimed at him with his sword. The first bandit sneered at the situation. The boss had abandoned the rookie. He contemptuously called Zeke a poor thing. However, the shield-bearer himself was not concerned. He could handle the attacker on his own. The bandit did not take his word seriously, but he was annoyed. It was obvious that Zeke had been abandoned. The criminal shouted that the newcomer would die by his hands before his commander could return with help. Lambda brought reinforcements, only to be greatly surprised to see that both bandits had been defeated. Bolton praised Zeke for his good work and ordered Lambda to take the intruders into custody. The chief of staff added that the criminals must have accomplices and threatened the first attacker not to hide information from the guards. The attacker stuck out his tongue. A mark was visible on it. The criminal declared that he would rather kill himself than betray his partners. Lambda was horrified. He recognized the explosive magic circle on the detainee's tongue. The chief realized that the criminal wanted to take them with him. The magic circle was activated, and the intruder shouted that he would see everyone in hell, but to everyone's surprise, no explosion occurred. The criminal did not understand why nothing had worked. It turned out that the trouble had been averted thanks to Zeke, who had cast a protective spell. The chief ordered Lambda to approach them. Bolton reprimanded Lambda, saying that calling for help was great, but you couldn't just abandon a rookie to deal with the creatures on his own. The chief apologized for his actions. The chief of staff said that Lambda should do everything possible, otherwise the newcomer would surpass him. The guard did not like these words. It annoyed Lambda. He turned to Zeke and asked if it was funny to watch him being reprimanded. The shield bearer disagreed, saying that calling for backup was the right decision. Zeke's words only angered the chief even more. Lambda asked if he was looking down on him with his kindness. The shield bearer thought to himself that Lambda was a coward after all. A new day dawned. The chief wished Zeke good morning, peeking out from behind the city gates. He asked if the newcomer had slept well, and then was horrified to see the defeated monsters. It turned out that the monsters had tried to attack the city during the night, but the shield bearer had defeated them. Lambda was clearly unhappy that Zeke was doing his job well. The chief began to reproach Zeke for not calling for help, saying that he could not look down on other members of the squad and behave like a non-team player. Lambda decided to drop the subject, saying that in any case they had to clean up the mess, and that despite his daytime shift, Zeke would carry out today's tasks. The chief was again dissatisfied with something, making an indignant face. According to Lambda, the newcomer looked fine, even though he had been working non-stop since yesterday morning. The chief was worried that Zeke might faint and asked him if he hated this job. With a smile on his face, Zeke replied that another week was fine because he was already used to it. Lambda was clearly not impressed with the shield bearer's answer. He praised the defender for his endurance and talked about how wonderful it was to be young. Inside, however, the boss was annoyed and complained to himself about Zeke's boundless endurance. The shield bearer noticed that no one in the dining hall was eating. Zeke brought the bread to his mouth and looked away. The knights faced difficult tasks every day, which affected them. As could be seen, most of the food went to the upper class. The guards could do nothing and constantly fought with all their might, even at the cost of their lives. The main character found the atmosphere in the room gloomy and decided to go outside. Outside, children were playing with paper lanterns. Zeke sat by the fountain. The atmosphere on the street relaxed him. Someone called out to the shield bearer by name. It turned out to be a girl who had heard rumors about Zeke and wanted to meet him. She asked if he had fought Captain Bolton one-on-one. The main character was puzzled by the encounter with the stranger. The girl continued that if it was true, then Zeke was strong, because no member of the team would dare to fight the captain. The shield bearer asked who the girl was and mentally scolded himself, thinking that he shouldn't stare at her so frivolously. The stranger apologized and introduced herself as Cyra Tiana. She was Zeke's future partner. Shtidovic asked if Cyra was sunbathing now, but she didn't understand the question. Zeke clarified whether the girl's outfit was official. She confirmed that it made it easy for her to move around. The main character was worried about protecting the girl, but Cyra assured him that she would not be harmed by enemies. Zeke found this hard to believe. The guy was still worried. It was his mistake, and he was to blame. Sarah thought that the shield bearer looked older than her, so he didn't have to address her formally. She asked if that was okay with Zeke, and he said yes. Someone's cry distracted the partners from their conversation. A child's paper lantern, caught by the wind, flew up and away. Cyra turned around and jumped off the ground. The girl caught the lantern in midair. She returned the toy to the children, and they thanked her. Zeke thought to himself that he still couldn't believe that the girl appeared in public looking like that. Zeke praised the girl for her agility. Cyra replied that this was indeed the case because her clothes allowed her to quickly come to the aid of others. Shtidovic asked the girl about her reasons for joining the defense forces. Cyra did not understand the question. It seems she did not understand the difference between being surrounded by soldiers and being alone with herself. For the girl, the most important reasons were to help those around her, defending the city and protecting people around the world. That's why she joined the defense forces. Zeke found this cute. She didn't understand the reason for his words. The shield bearer explained that he was impressed by her reasons. Cyra felt awkward. She hadn't accomplished anything yet. She had only just begun her journey. The girl asked if Lambda was Zeke's mentor. Receiving an affirmative answer, Cyra warned the shield bearer that the senior knight might be unfriendly to newcomers. It turned out that because of the captain's low opinion of Lambda, he was hostile towards newcomers. Zeke took the warning into account, adding to himself, "It's nice that there are still people like Cyra around." Lambda asked Zeke to stand guard for him in the morning. He made the same request in the afternoon. At night, the mentor again asked the shield bearer to stay on guard. The main character finally understood what Cyra meant by Lambda's hostility towards newcomers. Zeke was so used to it that he didn't even notice. Bolton looked out from behind the gate and asked about Zeke's work. The newcomer replied that he could handle any job. The captain smiled and said that the shield bearer constantly impressed him. The chief of staff said that soon Zeke would be able to catch criminals. The main character asked if there were any criminals here. The captain said that before Zeke arrived, there were many bandits in the city. Some of the crimes were due to a lack of resources and people's carelessness. Because of all this, they would have to levy a different kind of tax in the future. Shieldbearer found the situation tiresome. Bolton instructed Zeke to report to him immediately if he found himself in an emergency situation, and also asked where Lambda was. He had gone out for a walk. Zeke's mentor asked the crew for permission to check their cargo. Lambda thanked the people for their cooperation. Shieldmaker noted to himself that it was rare to see his assigned mentor at work. Zeke said aloud that Lambda had quickly completed the job. Lambda began to boast, calling himself gifted. However, the shield-bearer noticed that the travelers did not have permits. He asked for confirmation from other cities they had visited. The mentor was furious that Zeke had noticed. Lambda assured the novice that everything was fine because these people had passed through here many times before, so there would be no problems. The shield-bearer wanted to object, but the knight insisted that everything was fine. The mentor stated that he was responsible for everything, so he believed that looking for mistakes in his methods was not the best idea for a novice. Zeke thought to himself that Lambda had previously refused to take responsibility. The mentor reminded the novice that it was almost time for his night shift. The main character was unhappy that Lambda would not be going on duty with him today. The mentor began to defend himself, saying that he had done everything possible to familiarize Zeke with his work. There was nothing unusual about that. Lambda asked Zeke to check one spot. It turned out to be an alley, the darkness of which was accentuated by a shield. The mentor said it was normal for a rookie to be afraid. Lambda suggested that Zeke was probably afraid. The main character noticed some light in that place. The shield-bearer was attacked with a dagger. Zeke managed to fight back, and thought to himself that perhaps the captain was talking about these bandits. The main character was wounded in the back. He was surprised by such an unexpected blow. Only he could have carried out such an attack. Zeke asked what he really wanted. The one who stabbed him in the back turned out to be Lambda. He apologized and said that Zeke had to die there. The shield-bearer looked at the bandits and suggested that they were only able to enter the city thanks to Lambda. Lambda confirmed Zeke's theory. Lambda himself turned out to be a bandit. The traitor knight let the bandits into the city in exchange for a share of the stolen goods. Zeke asked his former mentor if he understood what he was doing. The answer was yes. The townspeople complained about the robberies and then wandered around the crime scenes, which was convenient for Lambda. The newcomer, however, became a huge nuisance to them. An angry Zeke realized how his former mentor was pressuring the newcomers. Lambda was unpleasantly shocked that the shield-bearer could move after receiving a large cut right across his back. The main character called the traitorous knight a dependent and weak person who could not do anything useful. It turned out that Zeke tolerated Lambda only because of his status, but now he knew about the betrayal, which changed the circumstances. The shield-bearer was obliged to protect this city. He warned the traitor to prepare himself. The enemy would show no mercy. Lambda considered such words arrogant, coming from someone who had been expelled from the team. He had to kill Zeke to shut him up forever. The traitor ordered the knights to kill the newcomer. He was confident of the bandits' victory because they were killers, experts in night combat. One of the killers chuckled and said that it was time for Zeke to die. He galloped from wall to wall, but the shield-bearer's keen eye spotted the attacker and was able to strike first. The bandit's legs were useless. Another assassin approached the main character from behind and raised a spiked bat above him, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. But Zeke successfully blocked this attack as well, grabbing the weapon with his hand. The shield-bearer said seriously that this would not be enough to kill him. The second killer's arm was broken. He had already started screaming in pain when Zeke knocked him out so he wouldn't wake everyone around. The third bandit clicked his tongue. He didn't believe that Zeke was a novice and thought that Lambda had simply deceived them. The bandit started to run away from the shield-bearer, but the main character threw a knife into the back of the fleeing man. Lambda, who had been watching everything, demanded that the bandit not run away. Zeke turned to the traitor, saying that he should have done it himself instead of relying on the bandits. The former mentor was terrified. He knelt before Zeke and began to justify himself, pretending to be a victim who had been threatened, and that it was the criminal's plan to lure the newcomer here and attack him. Lambda continued, kneeling, begging Zeke to believe him. If there was anything he could do for the newcomer, he should say so. It could be anything. Then Zeke asked the traitor to surrender and confess his crimes. This request infuriated Lambda. In a rage, he decided that he would kill the main character himself. The shield-bearer prepared to strike with his fist. He punched the traitor hard in the face. Lambda fell to the ground. Zeke said that a man like him had no right to wield a sword. The traitor lay unconscious. The shield-bearer declared that Lambda would go to prison, where he would reflect on his actions. Bolton praised Zeke for a job well done. With the help of the main character, the knights can catch all the bandits. Cyra was impressed by Zeke and the fact that he had achieved such outstanding results so quickly. It wasn't difficult for Shieldbearer. Bolton couldn't believe that Lambda had been pulling the strings all this time. Looking at the main character's achievements, the captain decided that he deserved a promotion to division commander. The girl thought Zeke was cool. He was promoted to commander after only 1 month on the job. Bolton smiled and said it was a coincidence that he had a vacancy for this position and thought the main character would agree. Zeke was touched by these words and the promotion. The knights began to protest. It usually took a newcomer 3 years to be promoted to division commander, and such a leap up the career ladder was too much and a violation of the rules. The guards only now noticed Cyra and wondered what she was doing there. The chief of staff appointed Zeke as the commander of the 5th Division. Hearing this, the knights calmed down, changing their reaction to one of sympathy, saying that it would be a wonderful time even if it did not last long. Zeke concluded that they looked down on the 5th Division. Cyra announced that from today, the shield-bearer would be the commander of her division. It turned out that the girl was also a member of the 5th Division. She smiled happily and suggested that they defend the city together. Zeke agreed and was also in high spirits. The new commander asked about the whereabouts of the other members of the division. It turned out that they had taken the day off and were relaxing somewhere. Although they were first-class defense troops, they were really stubborn and indulged their desires. Zeke wondered what kind of weirdos the members of the 5th Division were. Bolton said that they may have been stubborn, but everything would have been different if the shield-bearer had been there. He was counting on Zeke. The main character replied that he would try, but added to himself that it would be a very difficult mission. Shield-bearer turned to Cyra and asked about the whereabouts of the other guards. The girl replied that Spinosa was probably drinking at the wine bar. Zeke was puzzled by this answer, because it meant that a member of the division was drinking at a wine bar first thing in the morning. Cyra explained that Spinosa usually came to the wine bar in the evening and drank until morning. She wasn't worried about being fired because of the shortage of strong warriors in the city, and ordinary ones too. The girl thought that another guard should be at the wine bar. And so it was. Spinosa was sitting asleep at the table. The bar was a mess. Zeke wondered to himself what had happened here. Cyra told the shield-bearer that they would see each other soon. The dissatisfied girl raised her head. It was Spinosa. The second guard was drinking from a large wooden mug. She had a feeling that Cyra was here. She was right. The first guard greeted Spinosa, wishing her good morning. Spinosa sighed and pulled her hand away. The first guard protested against the actions of the second. Spinosa teased Cyra, fondling her breasts, saying that their softness meant that the girl was indeed Cyra. When asked about her actions, Spinosa replied that she was checking whether it was a dream or not. She thought it was real. Cyra demanded that her colleague not do that again. Zeke turned to the second guard and asked if she was Spinosa. In response, the guilty girl asked who the guy was. The shield-bearer introduced himself, giving his name and new position. Spinosa asked what had brought the division commander to her. Zeke explained that, as their superior, he would be giving them assignments, and as long as they were being paid, they, the members of the division, were obliged to work in return. Spinosa refused to obey a weakling like Shchitovic. Then Zeke realized that he had to prove his superior strength. He set a condition that if he won, the second guard would work every day. Spinosa agreed and considered Zeke's confidence in victory to be arrogance. The second guard said that now they would see if the shield-bearer was capable of commanding her. Spinosa suggested an arm wrestling contest. She called on Zeke to take part and decide their fate. The shield-bearer said it would be easy. Then the second guard suggested that a battle would be the best option. The main character was worried that the girl's arms would hurt. When Zeke asked about Spinosa's strength, Cyra replied that the second guard was indeed strong. The swing of her huge mace quickly solved all problems. Shchitovic thought aloud that it was true. The city lacked strength, but it also lacked the right attitude toward it. He announced that Cyra would be their judge. Zeke and Spinosa joined hands for arm wrestling. Cyra gave the command to start the competition. The second guard confidently declared that she would finish everything in the blink of an eye. However, she was then greatly surprised. The shield-bearer calmly asked if this was Spinosa's limit or if there was another problem. In response, the guard dared to say that this was only 20% of her strength. Cyra was nervous. Spinosa considered Zeke a worthy opponent. The second guard decided to press on. She began to win the contest. She used 50% of her strength and told Zeke to be careful, otherwise she would break his arm. Spinosa was worried because she had already used 60% of her strength, and the guy hadn't even flinched. The bold guard praised Zeke because he had forced her to use so much strength. The commander thanked her for the compliment. Spinosa cheerfully declared that victory would be hers, and that would be the end of it. Calm Zeke asked, "Then what about this?" He evened out the position of their hands. The bold guard was surprised by this turn of events. She didn't understand how Zeke was still holding on. The shield-bearer looked calm, so Spinosa asked him if he was really so confident of victory. Zeke replied in the negative. It was just part of his strength. Zig asked if that meant it was now his turn to strike. Spinosa was angry at these words, considering the shield-bearer to be overly confident. Zig began to win, bringing his opponent's hand closer to the table. The bold guard was stunned, because until then she had always won, but now she didn't. Spinosa became curious about what kind of monster this guy was. Spinosa's hand was sweating, while Zig's palm remained calm. The second guard tensed up. His grip was as firm as a rock, and if he continued in the same vein, she would lose. The shield-bearer declared that the outcome was a foregone conclusion. Spinosa's hand fell heavily on the barrel, sending splinters flying. Cyra announced the winner. It was Zeke. The bold guard was shocked and breathing heavily after the fight. Shieldbearer asked if Spinosa lost because she was drunk. She honestly admitted that she had no chance against him. He was stronger than anyone she had ever fought. Zig reminded her that now the second guard would have to work every day, as she had promised, and threw her mace to her. Spinosa demanded that the shield-bearer not throw her weapon so carelessly, and it took her a moment to realize that Zig had picked up the mace as if it were a toothpick. The insolent guard swore and shouted that she was officially defeated. It was concluded that this girl was too loud. Spinosa turned to Zig. She said she would never forget this and would soon demand a rematch, and asked if the commander of the 5th Division would agree to it. Zig replied that she could challenge him whenever she wanted. Spinosa asked her commander if she could go home and sleep, otherwise she would be sleepy. Zig replied that she would start work tomorrow. Sitting on the roof, an unknown woman watched the trio. Shitovic asked Cyra about the other guard, but the girl did not know where she was because of her unpredictability. Someone suggested throwing a party in honor of the new commander. Cyra noted that it was nice to see someone get Spinosa to work. Zig turned out to be an intriguing personality. Sarah explained that there was one other guard left who was skilled with a bow. Out of the corner of his eye, Zig noticed a white cat with black spots. He asked if the last guard was an archer. The girl answered in the affirmative. Fam could accurately determine the direction of the wind and adjust her shot accordingly. Zig asked how often the archer followed someone. Cyra did not understand the meaning of the question. The stranger drew her bow. The arrow flew toward Zig. He caught it with ease. Cyra was alarmed by the unexpected appearance of the arrow and asked if everything was all right with Zig. He assured her that it was. He asked the stranger if she was Fam. A hooded figure appeared before them. The stranger confirmed the main character's assumption. She was pleased to meet Commander Zeke. Cyra exclaimed at the sight of the third guard. Fam said that she wasn't exactly hiding her presence. But despite this, she was still curious about how she had been discovered. She asked if Zeke had an all-seeing eye or something like that. The shield-bearer admitted that he was able to find Fam thanks to it and that it helped him. The archer did not understand who he was talking about. Zig pointed to the white cat with black spots. Fam found it amusing. She thought she had told him to be more discreet. Shield-bearer defended the cat. He had indeed done a good job, even breathing quietly. However, in the end, he still failed. The cat left. The archer honestly said she couldn't believe that a newbie had been appointed commander. Zig asked the girl if she would start her duties tomorrow, but she refused. She didn't want to waste her precious time and life on some boring person. Fam asked what she would get in return. Zig remained silent. The archer took his silence as a lack of answer and said she would wait until he found one. She would continue to watch the commander from the shadows. The archer left, saying she would see them later. Spinosa found Fam irritating. Zig thought to himself that the archer was not so different from the insolent guard. The shield-bearer was unhappy that everyone needed to check him. Spinosa knocked someone out and lamented that Spinosa was used to sleeping soundly at this time and no longer drank so much. Zig asked her to wait until lunchtime. The insolent guard asked if it wouldn't be easier to grab all the suspects and just beat them up. The commander refused. That way, they risked arresting an innocent person. Sarah turned to Spinosa and said that it was great to work with her. The second guard was glad to hear this. She decided not to hold back and grabbed Cyra's breast. The first guard began to get upset. Spinosa turned to Zeke and asked if he would like to touch them too. The shield-bearer concluded that the bold guard's actions constituted harassment. The insolent guard did not take Zygo's words seriously and continued to harass Cyra. The commander threatened that if Spinosa did not stop, he would intervene. Cyra turned to Zig for help. Spinosa began to tease him too, saying that he was harmless and asking what he would do. Zig used the ion target skill. The defiant guard's hands, against her will and to her shock, came off Cyra. To her horror, and still against her will, Spinosa grabbed the commander's chest. Stunned, she quickly pulled away from him. Zig explained that this was her punishment. To himself, the shield-bearer admitted that he had planned to grab her arms, but had miscalculated the power of the skill. Despite the unpleasant situation, Spinosa concluded that Zeke's chest was also quite pleasant to the touch. Cyra began to thank the commander for his help. Zeke caught the arrow that was flying towards the first guard's head. He turned to Fam, asking if she thought she was overdoing it. The archer laughed it off and justified what had happened as a joke, but Zig was serious. Cyra could have died from that shot. He asked if Fam was willing to become a murderer for the sake of a joke. Fam explained that it was because she wanted attention, so that the object of her interest would always think about her. She honestly warned that she would sometimes do this. Zig asked if anyone had told the archer not to do that. The answer was, no, no one dared to say such a thing to her. The commander asked Fam if it would be better for them to work together, to which the girl replied in the negative. She was not very good at communicating with other people. To himself, Zig thought about the archer's stubbornness. Standing on the roof, Fam said goodbye to Commander Zig. Cyra and Spinosa commented on the situation. The latter suggested fighting Fam one-on-one, while Zig himself hoped that the archer would stop shooting her comrades with her bow. Fam continued to shoot at Zig, distracting the squad during lunch or work. She shot arrows at them at the most inopportune moments, and this continued until nightfall. Spinosa was incredibly happy that she could finally have a drink. Zig concluded that they had worked hard today and asked if they were tired. Cyra assured him that everything was fine. The commander told Spinosa not to drink too much, and he would check on her tomorrow. The cheeky guard replied with a quick, of course, of course. Zig and Cyra told them to get some rest, and that they would see them tomorrow. The girl also wished their commander a good night's rest. The shield-bearer went into his room, lay down on the bed, closed his eyes, and began to snore. Fam looked down at him from above. Zig surprised her. He caught all her arrows. She lay on the beams under the ceiling like a cat. Zig noticed her, and, as he thought, she had already invaded his room. The shield-bearer spoke aloud about Fam, saying that she had been patient and persistent. He noted that she was not only secretive and cautious, but also very accurate. The archer asked if Zig would mind if she asked a question. Shieldmaker gave his approval. Fam shared her observations that Zig had incredible defense and didn't need to catch all those arrows. They wouldn't even leave a scratch on him, but he caught them anyway for some reason. Zig explained that it was all because of Fam's pride. She herself said that all these arrows were for fun. It was also partly due to his instinct for self-preservation. In addition, the defender thought that he would miss their duel if he simply ignored her arrows, so he caught them all. Fam now understood the situation. She asked if that meant she would receive something valuable in return for her daily work. The archer began to lie down in the same bed where Zig was now lying. She said that the shield-bearer was an interesting person, and that she would watch him until she understood him. Noticing them climbing into his bed, Zig asked what Fam was doing. The archer replied that she was showing her sincerity. As Zig knew, an archer should not be so close to her target. However, the shield-bearer wondered if Fam was too close. It turned out that the archer was not good at judging the distance between people, so she may have moved too close. She promised that she would try to keep a proper distance. Zig asked if Fam would go to work tomorrow, and she replied in the affirmative. She was looking forward to it. All the members of the 5th Division were gathered. Fam mentally noted that Zig was warm. She fell asleep next to him. The knights were shocked. It was the first time they had seen all the members of the 5th Division together. They had never obeyed the orders of others before. The guards were puzzled as to how Zeke had managed to gather them. Spinosa was feeling unwell. She had a headache and asked for some water. Zig asked if she had been drinking for the past 2 days. The insolent guard began to make excuses and said she would be careful next time. The knights were very afraid of Spinosa because they assumed she could unleash her fury on them. It turned out that most of the commanders of the 5th Squad had been beaten by her. Someone pulled a dagger from behind their back and struck a blow. It was Fam. Zig calmly blocked her blow. The archer explained that it was just tactile contact, because since the commander had seen Spinosa's abilities, he should also see her skills. The shield-bearer did not like the potential lethality of these contacts, but Fam assured him that it was only for him. Zig smiled and joked that the archer's words sounded like she was warning him of imminent death. The knights were frightened, and so was Fam. One of them asked if it was dangerous for them to stay there. Another calmly noted that Zig hadn't even blinked at all the antics of the 5th Division. Cyra was pleased to see everyone so animated when they got together again. Bolton felt sorry because he had to deliver bad news. The reconnaissance squad reported that the Legion of Sorrow of the Undead was very close to their city and could attack that very night. All the knights in the room were stunned by the news. The guards were terrified because last time they had had time to prepare, but even that had not been enough, which meant that this time they were definitely doomed. Zig asked about the Legion of Sorrow. The chief of staff explained that they had fought them a year ago. They were hunting for the Sphere of Light. Bolton said that no matter how hard they tried, casualties were inevitable, and, unfortunately, the fallen Allied soldiers had become part of the Undead army. The situation sounded difficult for Zeke. The guards exclaimed that there was no way they could stop them. They also asked if the knights would send them reinforcements. The chief of staff was preparing his answer. He said that the knights had been tasked with protecting the royal and other noble families. To their chagrin, the guards had no choice but to become a wall between the monsters and the city. Bolton concluded that the most dangerous task would be guarding the front gate. The guards screamed in horror. The task seemed impossible and suicidal to them. Someone's speech silenced the panicking soldiers. Zeke decided to take on this task himself with the 5th Division Squad. A dark figure flying in the sky signaled the onset of night. The time for the attack had come. The demon in the black hood had waited a long time for the Demon King to be freed from the clutches of the ball of light. He looked at the city from the air. The demon said that very soon they would destroy everyone and capture the sphere. Then humanity would meet its destined end, and the demon in the black hood would become the right hand of the Demon King. He couldn't wait for that moment. The demon ordered the soldiers of dead flesh to rise up and besiege the city. He commanded the undead army to crush all of Astaroth. They had to restore the rule of the Demon King. The sorcerer summons a demonic army, calling it the Legion of Sorrows, to reduce Astaroth to ashes. In the royal zone within the city's inner walls, Knight Captain Greor prepares his fighters for battle. The main lich who gathered his army of undead was once a benevolent sorcerer. Bolton had asked the 4-man soldiers if they were protecting the gate considering it small, was displeased, but calmed down when he realized that this was only the first outer wall. The head guard stands at the gate and is the first to notice the approach of the Legion of Sorrows and announce that the moment has come. The warriors discuss that their strength only lasts at night, and that despite their small numbers, they will be able to win. Bolton was counting on Zeke, but worried for him that he should also be careful. During the defense of the wall, 4 of the 5th squad are very different, that the soldiers are stunned by what they see. The girl says that she hardly believes her eyes. She watched as the guy took all the blows and made the opponents more vulnerable. The girl realized what his strength was, that many people underestimated the guy. The swordswoman realizes that without Saiga's help, she would not have been able to cope. Since she is equipped for powerful and fast strikes, the Legion of Sorrows specializes in offensive power. He alone controls the whole situation. The swordswoman came to understand that the Sig is a shield protecting them and decided to become his sharp blade. The girl wondered how his skill worked, because he takes all the damage. The archer was stunned to realize that he was using the force to protect others. As she prepared to shoot, she said to herself that only she was allowed to throw arrows at him. The archer wants to get to know Zeke better. The soldiers watch the fight with enthusiasm and tell each other that they would only get in the way and that Zeke is cool. Pham and Bolton discussed that the guy is reliable. Bolton sat satisfied that he trusted Zeke. He also noticed that the guy has a special ability, and that even if he recently joined the squad, he built discipline. Zeke destroyed all the enemies. The fighters are happy with their work, and that they have established teamwork. The guy is happy that his teammates trusted him, and this adds to his confidence. He's glad he found some good allies. The 4 of them shout that they will defend the city until their last breath. They say that even if they destroy a city, the lives of its inhabitants are more important. Their first task is to protect the Queen and the Ball of Light. A soldier reports that the 5th squad is holding back the undead, that they will not be able to enter the city. The commander-in-chief replies that the main gate will not be able to hold them back for long, and still the undead will fall into the city. Hearing this, the Queen is very surprised that 4 people are fighting against an entire legion, and this is impossible, she thinks. The sorcerer is perplexed by the fact that despite the fact that there are only 4 people protecting the gate, his legion is thinning and cannot understand why this is happening. The sorcerer is unhappy with the fact that 4 people are crushing his legion and suddenly notices the guy. He worries that his soldiers will die. If they end up in the river, they will become useless. Ponders why his immortal soldiers are forcibly attracted to the guy, and if he kills the girls, the defensive power will be reduced. He watches the guy that no matter how many punches he takes, he is still strong, and sees that the strength is in his defense, and decides to get rid of him. The wizard goes on the offensive, arguing that he must get to the ball and rule the world. He says it was only because of this guy that he failed. Blames people for looking down on him, and the guy does the same. Claims that it's time for him to show his strength, and that he won't rest until he gets to the ball. Commands his legion to gather into one body. The evil spirits unite in one body, and through it the sorcerer tells them to accept their death. Huge evil spirits are going to kill the 4. It hits with a powerful force. The white-haired guy looks through binoculars and sees a giant undead, instructs all the knights to get ready and the mages to strengthen their defense. The soldiers are frightened by the undead. Teammates are trying to find Sieg. The undead tries to hit him with its huge fist, but Sig holds his fist and doesn't let go. The girls are happy that he was able to hold back such an incredible blow. The sorcerer is shocked by the fact that the guy was nothing, and realizes that he will become an obstacle for the Demon King, tells him not to be happy that he delayed the attack. A strong battle begins. The wizard sends a strong attack. Sig tells his teammates to just duck down, and the girls admire his power. There is a strong battle going on. Bolton shouts to the soldiers to go on the defensive too, commands them to fire a cannon. He does not believe that Sig can defeat the monster. Sieg tells the sorcerer that he will not be able to win with brute force and unpredictable attacks. At one point, the guy defeats the evil spirits. Bolton, the soldiers, the girls, and the archer all celebrate the victory. The sorcerer is perplexed that Sieg was able to single-handedly defeat his soldier, recalls his failures, how the king told him that he constantly fails him and he will hate humanity even more. The evil wizard is still wondering how the guy defeated him and how he should resurrect the Demon King. He dreams that his strength will increase many times, and he will become perfect. The sorcerer thinks that he should have been a perfect sorcerer, become the Demon King, but the young guy Zig became an obstacle to him. The evil wizard becomes angry with Sig, the evil spirits fall to pieces, and the girls' joyful screams are heard. Everyone cheers that they are still alive. The guard is happy. The soldiers are stunned by the power of Sig and ask for forgiveness for treating him badly. Bolton comes to praise the four, and especially Sieg. He doesn't hide that he is overwhelmed by his strength. The guy modestly says that everything worked well, but Amelia says only thanks to him they won. Sig tells her that he is flattering, but Amelia claims that he is a reliable shield, and thanks to him they won. The commander looks at this and laughs. The archer says that Sig does not know how to receive compliments. Everyone is surprised by the arrival of Captain Greor. They think that he wanted to apologize for leaving them alone at the outer gate. He asks them where the monster went and will not apologize. Bolton gets angry and says that he wanted to use it as a human shield, but Greor says that he has to protect the palace, the royal family, the nobles, and the Ball of Light. Bolton asks him again if the other people are not residents of the capital. The captain answers all this is done to protect the inner walls. Bolton shouts for him to look at the remains of the undead and the monster. The captain gets angry and shouts that there are no remnants. The magician tells them to make no noise. Amelia wanted to say that it's all thanks to Sieg. Greor asks his name, and Sig answers him. The captain asks what kind of weapon he used, and the guy replies that his shield and others also fought. The captain looks incredulous. Leaving Greor says that he remembered his name and will look after him. The commander says that he should not pay attention. The soldiers shout that he should not return. The captain says he has come to confirm the elimination of the undead. A squad of guards, soldiers, and the commander are all celebrating their victory and having fun. Spinosa drank all the time. People happy that they were still alive gave away all the alcohol for free. Zeke told Cyra that he noticed that she shed tears when they were thanked. The guy tells her that only she followed when the others were afraid to even move. She was surprised that he noticed. The black-haired man was surprised that Cyra was crying and realized that she was very emotional. The girl said that no one had ever praised her before, and she couldn't resist the sudden praise. Their conversation under the table was overheard by Fam. Sig, seeing her, was taken aback. She said that she was shy and liked to hide. Fam asked him if he always puts his friends above himself, and he tickled her by saying that shy people don't sit between other people's legs. Zeke noticed that Cyra was crying again. The archer said that he didn't look like a former adventurer, but when he heard that, he was surprised that she was informed. The guy stroked her praise that her archery was amazing. Fam liked it, and she tells him to stroke her when he compliments her. Fam said that getting compliments from someone you like is a blessing. Meanwhile, it was time for Spinosa's revenge, and she called out to Sig with all her voice. Sig saw 2 glasses and asked if she wanted to compete with the highest drinker. She of course answered in the affirmative and said that she was going to beat him today. Spinosa asked Fam and Cyra if they would like to participate in the competition, and they declined, but other people sitting in the bar wanted to compete. Other people couldn't drink the booze, started throwing up, told Sig to stop, that he couldn't drink it, that his liver was finished, but Sig was just surprised and kept drinking. Spinosa was pleased. Spinosa called the master of the bar to bring more drinks. Sig noticed that it was all red. The barrels of wine were still opening. Cyra hugged Sig, saying that he was trying very hard. She snuggled up to him, calling him Ziggy. Noticed that she was drunk, shook her to come to her senses. blamed Pham for not keeping track of Cyra. The archer said that she mixed up the glasses, and she began to fall asleep on the spot. Zeke gasped that she also mixed up the glasses. Spinosa asked him if he could keep drinking, and Zeke said yes. She noticed that it was just the two of them. Spinosa still gave in to him. Zeke told her that it was fun to drink together. She thought that she could outplay him in drinking alcohol, but she couldn't. And Zeke was sitting alone in a wine bar full of drunk people lying around, wondering what to do with him. At this time, the Crimson Lotus Fang was facing difficulties. They were failing mission after mission. Everyone was laughing at them. Nahhat did not want to accept newcomers, hiding behind the fact that he did not need weaklings. Nahhat accused the girl that she was sorry for her magic. The magician accused him that he was not in the front line and that he was a bad leader. The black-haired girl supported her friend, saying that if the rear guard is in a difficult situation, then the vanguard is to blame for this. Nahhat was angry when he heard this. He remembered how he had managed to deal with monsters before. Someone in front of him protected him. He remembered Zeke. In the bar, everyone was talking about Zeke and his exploits, and Nahhat was very surprised. Nahhat was angry that everyone was talking about Zeke, tried to stop their conversation, but of course people didn't listen to him. They told him if he didn't like it, so he didn't listen. He was so angry that he even got into a fight with them. He didn't even want to hear them zig. A crowd of men beat Nahhat. Girls wanted to intercede, shouted to stop. Nahhat lay exhausted. The girls pitied him. The guys from Fang were angry that other people from the guild were looking at them with arrogance. Nahhat stumbled away. Nahhat, in the guild registration, asked for an A-rank mission. The girls made a noise that they were in rank and that they would fail the mission. The receptionist told him they were eligible for D-rank missions. He was outraged by the fact that the mission is 2 ranks lower. The registry replied that they could not gather the proper number of people in the team, and the completed missions leave much to be desired. The guy took and grabbed Misia, who was at the reception, despite the contradictions of the girls that they could not cope. Seeing this, people mocked them. He was bursting with hatred for Sig, telling himself that he couldn't accept it, that he had risen, that he had given them rank D. Spinosa was half asleep, and Zeke said in frustration that he had asked her many times not to be late. She made excuses by saying that she had drunk a lot yesterday, and he asked her not to drink anymore. She was upset. Zeke informed everyone that they would be working on the transportation and security of the prison today, and said that he had left Pham and Cyra to prepare everything for the transfer. The guy saw Cyra in handcuffs and was shocked. Zeke was solicitously asking if she was all right, looking for the key. Bolton and Spinosa discussed that this is the work of Gazelle. He asked where Pham was, and was told that she had chased the Gazelle down. He blamed himself for leaving them alone. Bolton reasoned that if the Gazelle wants to go out, it will be a problem for her, since the exit is only at the top and at the bottom there is only a dead end. At this time, the prisoners staged an escape. Lambda let everyone out. Seeing Fumsig worried if she was all right, the archer rejoiced at his arrival, saying that this guy had released all the prisoners. Bolton is not surprised to hear the news. Zeke said that they can't let any prisoners leave the prison and they need more people, and told Spinosa to bring people, but the girl did not agree to this. Cyra threw the hammer to Zeke, shouting that he could still use it. Spinosa still went after the people. The guy told her not to be late anymore. The prisoners were waiting for them to fight. Zeg told Lambda that he never calmed down. He said that because of him he was in prison and it was over. Everyone rushed to the attack. The guy defended himself. With the words, "Well, let's start," Bolton made his powerful 1,000 sword strike. Zeke said in a furious voice that they would return them to prison one by one. There was a huge battle. The girls watched in amazement as they coped in the blink of an eye. The guy finally praised the hammer. The remaining prisoners wanted to go to prison themselves, fearing that they would be killed. There was a click of heels. A girl appeared in all her glory and said that she should not be hurt. Cyra told Zeke not to look in the eyes. She has a special skill. The Gazelle attacked, saying it would put a hole in their head. Bolton said it was hiding its skill. Zeke said it was his body. She continued to attack. Suddenly, Cyra stepped between the guys and the Gazelle, saying that she wouldn't fall for it a second time. Zeke was taken aback. The archer came up with a dagger from behind the Gazelle, said that she would not talk to her. She raised her hands, asking what she was capable of. Pham told her not to move. Suddenly, Spinosa appeared out of nowhere, leaving her senseless with a crushing blow. Everyone was relieved, and Bolton praised her. The leader of the guards ordered that the prisoners be taken back to prison, told Remuda that he would continue to serve his sentence, and Gazelle, as the head of the Misfits, to be taken to the execution chamber. Bolton told Zeke that they had infiltrated here a year ago using an undead attack, and the city was badly damaged by its factions. They turned one part of the city into a base and committed lawlessness. Human trafficking, murder, robbery, they did terrible things. It wasn't enough for them to steal gold, they created chaos, and their main goal was the ball of light. So the knights took up the task, and they prevented them from stealing the ball of light. Because of this, he had a bad relationship with the knights. Greor accused them that they did not do enough with their task, that because of this, a struggle was started inside the second walls. Bolton shouted to him that so many people had died fighting the undead, and if they wanted to, they could stand on the front lines, and they would use them as human shields. At that time, there were very few people, so he started to pick up people, and only then tried to do something with the bandits. At the same time, the Ice Queen did not like one of the bandits, and she destroyed half of the group. Sig asked him if it was Hale. He said yes, and warned her that she was as complex as Greor and that he should be careful when he met her. Bolton apologized to Sig that he had to clean up after him, but they had to rid the city of the tumor, and even so, half the bandits were left and asked him to help. People gathered for the execution of the Gazelle, someone asked for the return of her husband, someone asked for the return of the child, someone said that she was a monster. Gazelle sat smiling and saying that there were a lot of spectators. Sig said that she was talkative for the one who was about to be executed. She replied that they would like her to cry and beg for mercy. She laughed at Sig to make his face easier, said that today her subordinates would come here to greet her. The crowd screamed disapprovingly, saying they were completely at her mercy. I asked him if he really thought he'd stop them, to which the guy replied that this is his job. She gave a command to her men to attack. The battle began. Sig said if they destroy all of them, then the Gazelle bandits will be destroyed forever. There was a powerful battle going on. Spinosa shouted that he would crush everyone. Cyra shouted to Sig to leave the rest to them. Fam told her commander to stay on the guillotine. The Gazelle bandits were destroyed. Gazelle at this time fled, shocked that her bandits were destroyed in the blink of an eye, and thought the main thing that she was alive, realized that this is the 5th squad that hit the undead army. She thought that she would find new subordinates. At this time, Zeke caught up with her, saying that she thought she understood the consequences of her actions. She shouted that she did not want to die. Zeke caught her. Zeke told her that she would die even if she cried and begged for mercy, that there was no other way for her. She screamed at him to stop. Bolton praised Sig for catching all the bandits without casualties and injuries. Without him, they would not have been able to do anything. People shouted their thanks that they were more reliable than the knights. People shouted that the Guard of Astaroth would continue to be trusted. Bolton said this made their activities known throughout the royal capital. Bolton had told him that there were unpleasant rumors about him, but that was far in the past, that he was able to protect everyone present. Sig remembered Nahhat and the others. Cyra and Sig were walking down the street. She liked the weather today. He said that he was sleepy from the fact that nothing was happening. She objected that it was good. He agreed. Spinosa was thirsty. Cyra said that they could rest then. She was so happy at this message. Sig said that he was worried about them. The girl said that he spoils them too much. Zig told how he became a commander. While working, Fam liked to stalker Zig, sometimes left one Cyra. He certainly guessed this. Sarah said that Zig is kind, but when he starts swearing it gets scary, he replied that you need to be strict when you need it. Otherwise, people become lazy. The girl asks the guy how the patrol is progressing, and asks him to answer honestly. He asks again that you cannot work all the time, and you need to rest. She agrees that she is a slacker. The guy is perplexed. Sarah praised him for working for the peaceful life of the citizens of this city. He asked her if she wanted to be a commander, and she said yes, and that she would try. She asked Zeke if she had made it, but Zeke was even starting to get angry at her overt compassion, and for his kindness creates lazy people around him. Sig saw Spinosa walking drunk on patrol and was very angry. People said that she lost all her money in the casino. She hit Fam thinking that it was she who turned her in. Cyra and Sig watched them fight and reasoned that they didn't get along with each other and there would be no one to patrol at this rate. The knight swore at the boy that he dared to interfere with the march of the Order of Knights. The girl on her knees tearfully begged for forgiveness. He started beating him. Sig intervened and stopped him. The knight was furious at being treated like this, and Sig told him that he was a guard. Sig said that the protection of the city is his job, that he cannot close his eyes to the situation of residents who are in danger. The knight is outraged that the guard threw a challenge. The guy is not afraid of his words. He replies that it was he who broke the calm. The knight charges. Eleanor, the deputy commander of the knights, stopped their fight. Eleanor began to ask the knight what she most hated. He replied that the rooms were not cleaned. She said that most of all she hates people who do not know how to control their emotions. The boy excuses Sig for helping him when the knight kicks him because his ball bounces in the direction of the knights. The deputy asked the guard to explain the situation. He immediately explained. The knight began to remind that they went against the Order of Knights, that they should be punished. Eleanor confirmed. He was very happy about it. She raised her sword at him, which made him very scared. The deputy began to ask again what she most hated. In response, it was said that people who do not control their emotions, she denies. He argues only that she confirmed his words. She replied that she hated fools who forgot their chivalrous pride. Eleanor gave the task to punish him. He was annoyed. She said that knights should have a noble heart. If anyone forgets about it and behaves arrogantly, then they should stop. She sat down next to the boy and began to talk, apologized for not controlling him. The girl said that he had already received first aid. Zeke saw this and thought she was different from the knights. She wanted to make sure that they weren't the fifth squad that everyone was talking about, said that she had heard about the undead, and that she personally wanted to see their abilities. Fam asked if she wanted to fight. The girl said that it would be like an apology scene for the boy. Zeke thought that the royal guards liked to check, asked if she was sure. She was annoyed and asked if he was afraid of losing or didn't like performances. He said that he was worried about her and accepted the challenge. At this point, she thought he was good. The knights discussed that the ice princess was too tough for the captain of the guards, and she became the vice captain of the knights at a young age. She thanked Zeke for his time and went on the attack. Zeke thought that this would allow him to see her movements, as the vice captain had the most accurate swordsmanship of anyone he had ever fought. She started asking again what she hated the most. Zeke asked if they could finish up already. She lost her balance but hit with an icy flash. His hands were starting to freeze, and he understood why she was called the Ice Princess. The knights were surprised that she smiled and enjoyed fighting him. She said she was surprised by Zike's reaction. He said it was dangerous. The boy was shocked to see the ice flows. Spinosa is surprised. Fam asked if she was a night mage. Zeke praised her, saying that her swordsmanship and magic skills, she had mastered these two completely different areas at an excellent level. She said it was easy with a little effort. Eleanor said that she would attack with all her strength, that she had not met anyone for a long time to fight with full strength. Zeke was confused that she was following him. She surrounded him with a wall of ice, and he was annoyed, telling himself that his main goal was to stop him from escaping. She was preparing to strike, shouting that it was all over. Zeke was thinking that he couldn't escape, and there was no shield either, but her ice blade in the wall shattered, and she couldn't believe her eyes as she realized that his defense was stronger than her attack. From the girls were heard words of admiration for Eleanor and Zeke. Spinosa wanted to fight too. Zeke said that the deputy was also happy with a strong opponent. She said that she had never lost so much. The guards discussed that the arrogant knights had become quiet. One asked if the princess had made such a decree. The other replied that it might be because Zeke had fought her. Suddenly the princess comes in. Everyone is stunned by her arrival and the fact that she's in a dress, asks where Zeke is. Everyone points at him. Inside, he muttered traitors. She said that she had fallen under his spell. Everyone wondered what she would say next. She asked him if he wanted to marry her. Fang Crimson Lotus fought the monster with all his might and was defeated. Unexpectedly, he rushed to protect someone, discouraging the girls. For the former Nahhat, this was something unthinkable. That was the only thing he was serious about. He didn't care about anything. After Zeke left, the Scarlet Lotus Fangs did nothing but fail missions, while others said in mockery that their entire team was based on him. Nahhat thought that if they failed the mission, they would finally lose confidence in themselves, and they would be kicked out of the guild. The name of the team hangs in the balance. This is the last chance to prove their strength. The magician hit the monster with magic. It didn't work, she thought. If I hit it with all my strength, it might work, but she didn't have time to restore mana. She realized that they would be destroyed at this rate, instructed Irene to cover her when she used the transfer spell. Irene nodded and said what would be done. Nahhat did not want them to hide and fail the test. The girls explained that there was no other way. He did not give in to persuasion. The girls said that they were not going to die because of his stupidity. He said not to use the spell, that it was an order. The magician said that the Scarlet Lotus Fangs ceased to exist as Zeke left. Haruna told him that anyone who doesn't think about the safety of the team can't be a leader. He was angry at them for failing the mission. The girls explained that because of his selfishness, they wanted to leave the team. The girls left him with the words that the Scarlet Lotus team was no longer there and that he was left alone. Irene finally said that he was terrible. Nahhat sat saddened that the team had broken up and was now alone. Haruna was angry with him and said that she hoped he was happy now, that he should have thought earlier. Irene came up behind her and tugged on her coat and said, maybe he'll understand now that he's all alone, what a fool he was. Haruna was crying because Scarlet Lotus Fang was gone. Cyra was overjoyed that Eleanor had confessed her love for Zeke, and lashed out at him saying, why didn't he tell her earlier? The girls noticed that she was cheerful in the morning and asked why this happened. She replied that she loves to listen to love stories and she can't wait to listen in the morning. Fam reappeared between Zeke's legs, and Zeke told her to stop coming out of strange places. only to be told that she always followed him like a shadow. Cyra couldn't wait to find out what had happened and what he'd said to her, and Zeke was sweating with embarrassment. Eleanor said she was wondering if he would marry her. Zeke, sweating with embarrassment, asked why. The princess answered because she fell in love with him, asked if she knew what she loved most, and he said no, thinking that he knew the things she hated. She said that more than anything else in the world, she loves men stronger than her. After losing, he does not get out of her head. The guards were shocked that the princess had fallen in love. When she thinks about him, her chest tightens and she's not herself. So she decided to ask a subordinate for advice. Tells him not to worry, she hid his name. She realized that she fell in love with him. They say that this is how love manifests itself. She was asking for his answer. He replied that her bluntness was frightening and that he wanted to focus on defending the city. Eleanor said that he was right. You can't approach this matter lightly, and she will wait as long as it takes. Zeke said it was a rejection. She said that she would follow him no matter what, that pride would not interfere with her love. Zeke asked where her knight pride was. She said that she was thinking of transferring to the guards. Zeke came up to her and shouted that she herself knew what the relationship between knights and guards was, but she thought that the two of them could be a bridge of truce for them. Eleanor left saying that he was right. They should change this city and she would stay in the knights. The guards were furious that she had fallen in love with Zeke. Cyra was surprised that he wasn't going to date anyone. Fam said that it made her feel better. Zeke said that she had nothing to do with it. Fam was asked how far her surveillance would go, and she said if he started dating someone, she wasn't ready to face their mercy. Zeke asked them if they were dating someone. Fam said that she was shy, and romantic twists and turns were not for her. Cyra said that she likes to listen to love stories, but she has nothing to tell herself. The guy said that there were only loners gathered here. Cyra wanted to object that Spinosa didn't say anything. You can hear her spitting. She threw up in the mess hall, which made the soldiers angry. Squad 5 bond increased by 0.1. Nahhat was walking through the forest, and he could hear someone giggling. The harpies were standing in front of him, giggling. The harpies attacked him, and he squirmed as best he could. He fought off the harpy, shouting that it was still good, why everything turned out like this. Everything started to fall apart after Zeke was kicked out. He asked if Zeke was guilty of insulting him with words. If he was guilty, he remembered how he was given a blade. The fact that Zeke kept talking made him angry. He fell down and told the harpies that he was going to die and that they should laugh. Nahhat was lying in a haggard state, noticed that someone came up, asked who it was. Black Darkness replied that he was his ally. Blood poured into the mouth. The darkness said to drink blood. The darkness said that it would give Nahhat the power to take revenge on all those who humiliated him, looked down on him, laughed at him, despised him. Nahhat only lacked strength. He thought that he would prove his strength to Sig, the guild. He remembered the people had said that Sig was holding off his enemies alone, but Nahhat didn't take their words seriously. Sig asked what they were talking about. Nahhat called him ballast. Darkness and hatred swallowed him up. Haruna and Irene returned to the reception desk and apologized to the girl for taking the task and not being able to complete it. The girl reassured them that the main thing was that they were unharmed. In the end, Nahhat would understand. Haruna begged that the Scarlet Lotus Fang should not be punished and that Nahhat valued the Fang very much. They were shocked to see something. A storm appeared from somewhere and everything was blown to smithereens. The monster coming up said what a great feeling. Haruna told Eren that it was time for them to leave, and this was not an opponent that could be defeated without mana. Eren was afraid for Haruna. She shouted to the monster to let her go. That monster was Nahhat. Cyra was surprised that the monsters were still not visible. Usually they should have appeared 2 hours ago. Sig also thought that today everything is different. Fam had a premonition of something. Spinosa said that the monsters were bored with the city. Sig saw someone and was surprised. Cyra also noticed someone. He said that her imagination was also running wild. Sig recognized Haruna and Eren, ran up to them and began to ask what had happened to them. Haruna was glad that she met him and told Esther there. Seeing Nahhat grab Haruna, Eren took aim with her bow. He told her as best she could. She threatened him not to touch Haruna, at which point Haruna hit him. Help arrived to the girls. The guys told the girls that they would detain Nahhat and that they should leave as soon as possible. The girls tried to pick up Haruna. She said that it was her fault. Nahhat turned the guys into dust with the words that no one asked for small fry and called out to Haruna and Eren. The monster turned Nahhat, called the girls back to the team, said that they now have the power, that no one can laugh at them now, that they can restore the Scarlet Lotus Fang. The receptionist told Haruna and Eren to go to Zeke. He can definitely protect them. She can barely move them out of town, but she's worried about them. Nahhat approached Fermi, saying that no one allowed her to get in between them and burned her. The girls shouted that he would not stop and ran away. Nahhat wondered where they had gone. Nahhat sat laughing and thinking that they had run to Sig. He wanted to burn everyone to ashes. Zeke incredulously clarified that Nahhat, who turned into a demon, killed Esther, and Haruna said that it was her fault and the fang of the Scarlet Lotus was no more, so Esther and everyone who was there, Haruna was silent. She then said that Nahhat was proud of Fawn, but Zeke tried to calm her down by saying that it wasn't her fault and there must be another reason why Nahhat turned demon. Zeke pointed out that Nahhat was too attached to the group, but Haruna shouted that she was sure that not only they were his target but also Zeke, so he should leave as soon as possible. Zeke protested that he was the guardian of this place, so he wasn't going to run. Then he interrupted Haruna, saying that they shouldn't worry, they should also stay in the city, he would protect them. Besides, there are a lot of monsters in the area, they are not used to fighting. Haruna, dumbfounded, asked how it was already like this. They did something terrible to Zeke. The guy asked her what she was still worried about. He can't say he's already forgotten, but they were trying to protect their team, weren't they? And he hasn't forgotten what they taught him. Zeke noticed that Haruna couldn't get close to anyone when she joined the group, so she called out to him. Zeke was the last one to join the Scarlet Lotus Fang. They were celebrating his entry then, and Haruna asked not to be shy, because Zeke was the main star. The girl nodded, remembering that such a thing once happened. Zeke recalled that Aaron always noticed when Zeke was fighting with Nahhat and then scolded him, saying that Zeke also cared about the group, but they didn't have to share the same views. Zeke would ask her later if she put in a good word for him in front of Nahhat, and the girl would just wave it off and say it was nothing. At first, they respected each other, went together to the same goal, fame and wealth, but the more they got, the worse the relationship in the group became. Zeke thought that if he wasn't there, they would be able to laugh again like before. It was also his fault for not trying to make things better with Nahhat. If Nahhat came to them, he wanted to stop him, but he would need help. Haruna abruptly apologized loudly, and Zeke thought it was too much to ask. But Haruna explained that she wanted to apologize for everything, and for getting Zeke kicked out in the end. She didn't expect to forgive them, but she wanted to apologize. Aaron also said it was their fault. But Zeke replied that he forgave them, then explained that everyone makes mistakes sometimes and he is no exception, and he is happy to be able to talk to them like this again. Haruna noticed that he is still the same kind person. His subordinates didn't say anything. Aaron then revealed that Haruna brought up the topic that day because she saw him looking at job search ads. Haruna then said that it might be better for Zeke to change jobs than to always stay with Fang. Haruna covered her friend's mouth and lamented that she promised not to tell him, but Aaron protested that now was not the right time. Zeke realized that Haruna had seen everything, then sighed and said that they should have talked to each other more. Haruna agreed. Then Zeke pointed out that they were probably very tired, so they should rest well for now. Captain Bolton clarified about the old friend after listening to the whole story, and remarked that if so, then nothing can be done, the nights will be as usual. Zeke nodded, because Greor will definitely throw all the work on them. Zeke was thinking that it would take a lot of fighting power to defend Astaroth, which meant that someone strong would be needed if he tried to call someone else, and in the meantime, someone was telling someone not to rush like that, because there was no need for that. While the kitten was drinking, Eleanor stroked it and asked it to drink slowly, but then Zeke, who found it, frightened her. She asked confused why he was here, and did he really see everything? Zeke asked her what she was talking about, really about that cute expression on her face, like a completely different person. Eleanor blushed even more and screamed. But Zeke assured her that there was nothing to be shy about, because her expression of motherly love was charming, which made her blush again, but she stammered that she did not fall for this flattery. Then repeating the word, charming, in your head. Eleanor noticed that it seemed Zeke was looking for her, and he nodded, saying that he had a request for her and a request as a deputy. She asked again, and said that indeed, she has some power in the order, even if not all the knights, but she can collect a certain number. But then she interrupted Zeke by explaining that this is provided that the task is from her. None of the knights will respond to the guardian's request. Besides, her status in the order may be compromised, and knowing this, Zeke decided to ask for her help. The guy grabbed her by the shoulders and nodded, because he believes in her, because only she can do this. Eleanor blushed, knowing that she can't say no when Zeke is so direct. After giving up, Eleanor agreed, but said that if she was kicked out of the Knights, then Zeke would have to take responsibility, but Zeke promised that he wouldn't let that happen. Eleanor was confused, and then noticed that even if this happens, she doesn't mind. Spinosa asked if Eleanor was too easily led. Fam said that you need to see this face. It's hard to believe that this is the Ice Queen, but Cyra shushed them indignantly. Zeke clenched his fist, glad that now that Nahhat was coming, they would have something to meet him with. Zeke didn't think it would turn out like this. Then 2 days of waiting and preparation went by. Zeke was looking up at the sky when the wall announced that the demon invasion had begun, and the order came for everyone to take up their positions, and Eleanor and the knights were there as well. Zeke was coming through the open gate with his battle girls and other guards. Spinosa asked if they were sure they wanted to be on the front line, but one of them said that they had seen them in battle and asked them to let them fight with them because they had long dreamed of doing so, and Spinosa told them to try not to lose their limbs. Haruna noticed that there were a lot of demons, and Aaron wondered where Nahhat had gathered them. Zeke asked them to stay out of the van, but Haruna pointed out that they were to blame for what happened, and in case of danger, they would cover themselves with a shield. Spinosa screamed in anticipation of the fun from the heart and offered to finish them all. Fam said that this time the title of MVP will go to her, and then Zeke will pat her as a reward. Cyra also promised to try. Captain Bolton approached Zeke and remarked that fighting against former comrades was not easy, but Zeke assured him that he was ready and looked at the swarm of demons. Nahhat saw Zeke and burst out laughing, saying that he should have done it right away. Now he would finally finish Zeke off. Remembering the words about destroying the orb of light, Nahhat thought that he had no idea what kind of orb it was, but let them do what they wanted. Then Nahhat saw Haruna and Aaron and grimaced at the fact that they actually ran to cry to Zeke. Nahhat gave the order to keep the demons busy with Astaroth, and that they can have a good time with the humans, and they can do what they want with Orb too. Nahhat then turned to Zeke, saying that he seemed to be a guard of Omar, so let him try to protect someone, because they were going to kill every single one of them. One of the ex-daemons remarked that there was nothing they could do against them, because humans were all equally stupid. Then there was a cry to get the Orb of Light, and an order to head to the city. Nahhat Bloodlust chuckled. The boys got ready, and Aaron noticed that Nahhat had even grown wings, while Captain Bolton ordered Zeke to be supported as best he could. One of the demons ordered to ignore the soldiers, because if they get the orb, then their victory. But then suddenly, all the demons were drawn to Zeke and how they did not resist. In the end, they flew to him without understanding anything, and Nahhat looked closer. Commander Bolton ordered fire, and everyone started fighting, and the guards shouted that they could no longer sit on the sidelines and also rushed to the attack. Fam was only surprised at how quickly their mood changed. Nahhat noticed that Zeke had new friends and tried to annoy him by saying that he was enjoying life, then called him a fucking scarecrow, but Zeke didn't pay attention. Cyra asked him if he was okay. He nodded. Spinosa asked him to be patient a little longer. They would try to finish them off in one wave. Another nod. Fam said that thanks to Zeke, he could safely play the game, get the demon between the eyes. Zeke left a cover for her. The guards fought fiercely and shouted that none of their men would pass through Astaroth. Nahhat was informed that the attempt to enter from the west had failed. There was an ambush waiting. The second squad was also destroyed. The city was unprotected from all sides. At this rate, their army would be destroyed. And meanwhile, the demon whispered to Hutta that they were just a bunch of garbage, and would he really let a bunch of garbage win? Nahhat yelled, asking who taught these assholes to fight in the first place. He ordered to forget about Zeke and destroy the rearguard. But one of the demons said that this is impossible. Zeke will control their minds. Even if they try to attack others, it's as if they are attracted to the shield man, and the attacks also keep flying straight at Zeke, which surprised Nahhat. Nahhat wondered when this happened. At some point, their teamwork became much better. Then the Scarlet Lotus Fang developed a lot. Apparently, when Zeke joined them, the enemy always focused on him, and they were free to attack. At one point, Nahhat was able to finish off a werewolf alone, and the adventurers who saw them fight praised their work. But they always noticed only Zeke. The recognition that Nahhat so longed for was only Zeke. The demons started shouting too much that it was useless. They would just die in vain at this rate, and one suggested that Nahhat try to fight them himself. Nahhat remembered how Haruna shouted that they didn't want to die because of his stupidity. There was only one Nahhat left in the Lotus Fang, and, in general, the Fang had ceased to exist even with Zeke's departure, which infuriated Nahhat, because again, these looks, he just burned those demons. Spinosa noticed in surprise that Nahhat had destroyed his wares, and the enraged Nahhat shouted Zeke's name, and the guy suggested that Nahhat decide this one-on-one, only Nahhat and Zeke, they will not involve others, so no one can stop them. Nahhat angrily remarked that even this was being said by such a weakling. How arrogant. Zeke was clearly underestimating him, and he was wiping the very existence of Zeke off the face of the earth, but Zeke only demanded to stop talking and attack. Nahhat called Zeke an oaf who couldn't hold a candle to Nahhat. Zeke was already dead. Haruna and Aaron called everyone's name. After yelling for Zeke to die, Nahhat threw a punch that was so powerful that Zeke was thrown back, and the guards couldn't believe their eyes in shock. Zeke noticed that this was probably the power of darkness, but he told the others not to panic, just not to attack first, and mentally he summed up that Nahhat was no longer human. Nahhat said that such a piece of shit didn't deserve to live, and started slapping the shield down. Then Nahhat said that he would rip off Zeke's arms first and then get to his legs. Zeke noted that this was the first time he had ever fought like this. Nahhat freaked out, asking how long Zeke was going to hide behind his shield, which is why Zeke was always a weakling and a fucking scum. Then Nahhat ripped off the shield and broke Zeke's sword, saying that such a blunt blade would never hurt him. Nahhat started hitting Zeke, saying that he was sick of Zeke, but Zeke endured blow after blow while Nahhat called him names and bludgeoned him, and inside he wondered why Zeke kept getting up every time. Zeke gave him a look of disdain and asked if that was all Nahhat was capable of. Nahhat yelled at Zeke not to make him angry and asked what the hell Zeke was doing. Then the demon lunged at Zeke again, asking him to die. But then Zeke's hand met Nahhat's, and something cracked. Nahhat's arm was thrown back and shattered, startling the demon, and the guard let out a gasp of shock as he said that Zeke had broken the dark magic. Nahhat grabbed his hand and asked how dare Zeke, and Zeke asked if Nahhat remembered how much fun they had when they first started their adventurer careers. Does Nahhat remember the times when Haruna smiled at them, and Irene was always asking how they were doing in the team? Does Nahhat remember those times? Nahhat told Zeke to shut up, and Zeke said that if he hadn't left, it would never have come to this. He was sorry that everything had turned out this way, but Nahhat had to stop. Zeke asked what this power had given him. Nahhat roared that he'd already told Zeke to shut up and used some force to strike, and Zeke took the blow. But the blow didn't really hurt Zeke, and Nahhat yelled that Zeke, the eternal scarecrow, was looking down on him. But now, Nahhat was stronger than Zeke. Meanwhile, the body continued to crumble, and realizing that it wouldn't last long, Zeke yelled that Nahhat wanted to die, otherwise he said that he would force Zeke to recognize Nahhat's strength. Then, in an attempt to attack, Nahhat shouted that Zeke was not needed by the Scarlet Lotus Fang, but Zeke blocked Nahhat's blow, saying that the demon's attacks did not affect him. Nahhat was angry, thinking that he couldn't really beat Zeke even with the power of darkness. Then he said that he would never believe this nonsense. Everyone in that town said that Lotus only succeeded because of Zeke. They talked as if there was no one else in the group besides Zeke. But Zeke said that wasn't true, that Fang was successful because of Nahhat and the girls, and that they were the ones who risked their lives to fight monsters face to face. Zeke only wanted to protect them, so he always increased his defense, and that's also why he learned the skill Aggression, which lures enemies' attacks to him. Nahhat remembered what it was like, and Zeke said that it was because of them that he became stronger. However, Nahhat yelled that Zeke always looked down on him. It was because of Zeke that he became like this, so he can't compare Nahhat to himself. However, Zeke retorted that they were equal. Nahhat asked them to stop looking at him like that, and Zeke said Nahhat had fallen into darkness, but they were still comrades. Nothing had changed. Demons yelled that this was what he hated most about Zeke from the very beginning. Zeke always decided everything for others, never listened to what others said. No matter how much Nahhat tried, Zeke never heard him. That's why Nahhat hated it all. Nahhat was well aware of this, that it was only thanks to Zeke that they could fight at full strength. But Zeke was a thorn in the side, only he was noticed. Nahhat was afraid to admit that there was nothing else but Fang, so he always contradicted Zeke. Falling to his knees, Nahhat apologized for everything with his head bowed low. Zeke nodded, saying that he forgives. Nahhat also said that he always hated this in him. Zeke nodded, and Nahhat asked to convey his apologies to Haruna and Aaron. He began to crumble. Then the demon noticed that it was a pity that Esther could not be returned. Zeke agreed, and Haruna rushed to Nahhat. There was a crack all over, and Nahhat smiled, thinking that he was glad Zeke was able to stop him, and then just started falling. Zeke rushed towards him, but too late, Nahhat crumbled into darkness and scattered in the wind. Haruna started to cry. Aaron stood on the side, grieving. Eleanor watched like everyone else. Zeke remembered Nahhat's words that he would show them how to be real adventurers. Haruna closed her eyes, and Zeke put a comforting hand on her shoulder. After a while, gargoyle scouts attacked the city, and Zeke explained that their main problem is protection. Heavy and chopping blows practically do not work on them, so he ordered to use weapons that can penetrate them in one blow, and the guards did this, and one was pierced by an arrow. Fam giggled as she said that her arrows couldn't escape, then told the gargoyles who noticed her not to be so angry. Then, after saying that Fam wasn't used to such intense attention, she smashed another gargoyle when it was over. Zeke remarked that there were more monsters than people as usual, and that the ball of light seemed to attract them a lot more than they expected. The Guardian explained that it was a heaven-shaking thing. Zeke then turned his attention to Fam and complimented her, saying that it was thanks to her that they had dealt with the gargoyles in no time. Fam remarked that Zeke had kept an eye on her even in such a mess, and Zeke explained that he had made a significant contribution, so he decided to praise her. Fam pointed out that Zeke seemed to know her weaknesses very well, so she didn't need any whips. She was only happy with the praise. Give her more carrots and she would try harder. But Zeke stroked her and said that he was impressed with her abilities. Then Captain Bolton ran up to the guys saying that he came right away when he heard about the monster attack, but it seems that everything is already over. Then the captain asked where the others were and if anyone was injured. Zeke reported that Cyra and Spinosa were on the rounds, and they were enough for 2 monsters. Bolton grumbled that, in other words, the 2 of them were slacking off again, but Pham pointed out that this was an unfounded accusation, which surprised Zeke since it was the first time she'd stood up for the girls. Pham also said that you can't say that a couple is slacking off, because only Spinosa was slacking off, and that's why she went to the round for the company, and Zeke corrected himself that Pham only stood up for Cyra. Zeke decided to look for the girls, since it's time for the changing of the guard, and Spinosa is also reading about it. Bolton nodded, and Zeke met Aaron and Haruna in the meantime. Aaron asked about Zeke walking around the city, and then noticed that the role of guard A suits Zeke, and Haruna confirmed her friend's words, adding that he looks cool. Zeke then asked how Haruna's arm was. The healing magic still didn't work. Haruna said something like that. It looks like some kind of curse, but it doesn't hurt, and that's fine. Then Zeke noticed the flowers and asked if they were for Nahhat A. Haruna nodded, explaining that she wanted to lay them with Aaron. Zeke remembered Nahhat A's words that it was still worth having at least some kind of funeral. Haruna really thought that knowing Nahhat, he would only snort, but Zeke assured that Nahhat would be happy to. Zeke asked what the girls were going to do next. Haruna said that she would stay under Bolton's guidance. After helping with the barrier installation, he invited her to join them and said that she was very good at magic, and Aaron was thinking of joining the guard. Besides, Zeke would protect her if anything happened. But Pham noticed that it was unlikely that Aaron would join them, since they didn't have a shortage of personnel. Aaron remembered that it seemed that Pham was one of Zeke's squad, a talented archer, and then asked if Pham was afraid that Aaron would take her place, and Pham flinched. Aaron noticed that they were also similar. Perhaps Pham was afraid that Aaron would take Zeke away from her, but she said that he didn't understand what Aaron was talking about because Pham is the mascot of the 5th squad. She is irreplaceable. Aaron noticed that Pham seemed very attached to Zeke, and Zeke asked if Pham really considered herself a talisman. Then they got ready to leave, and Haruna thanked Zeke for protecting Nahhat. Pham snorted angrily that they were getting attached. Zeke said that she shouldn't be so jealous, but Pham noticed that he had hurt Zeke with his behavior. Once they were accepted, a normal person would have hated them. But Zeke said that it only mattered what was happening now. He was glad that they could finally move on, and Pham said that Zeke was always too kind. Pham pointed out that it might catch Zeke off guard one day, and it might be fatal for him, but Zeke reassured her that as long as he remained strong and stayed on the ground, it didn't matter. Pham smiled and then said that Zeke was still an interesting guy, he clarified, and she said that there seems to be something going on. Spinosa climbed up on the table and shouted with a mug of ale that she was treating everyone, and Cyra hung on her leg. Pham noticed that it was a jackpot. Everything was as they thought. Cyra desperately begged Spinosa to go back to work. Then Spinosa and Cyra noticed Zeke, and Zeke asked if he noticed that Spinosa was in a good mood, and she said that she had won money from someone. That's why she's really in a good mood, because it's just wonderful. Zeke was surprised, because this is the first time he's heard Spinosa say this, and she said that after drinking, the mood will be even better. Pham remarked that she was sure that Spinosa had a lot of debts on other bars, whether she had paid them off. But Spinosa waved them off, saying that she would win more money. Pham asked if it was just her imagination, or if he was seeing a person who was gradually destroying himself. Zeke asked Spinosa if she knew she was in the service, and Spinosa said life was fun, and Zeke retorted that Cyra wasn't having any fun. Pham noticed that there was an attack by demons at the main gate. Did Spinosa not hear the bells? Spinosa noticed that they were small. She would not be sitting here with a drink if it was a strong demon. Zeke angrily remarked that it doesn't matter if the demon is strong or weak, the guard should always be ready. Spinosa sighed, and Zeke remarked that she didn't come only because she didn't want to. The girl promised to be more careful next time, and she would return the money to Baru when she won. Cyra started to apologize for not being able to do anything about Spinosa. When there was a crash and noise outside the window, the guys all turned around. Spinosa even sobered up. Then Zeke went outside and saw the general panic. People were running away from someone. The man with the bulging eyes and foaming mouth didn't look like a drunk. Cyra and Zeke noticed Nahhat's golden eyes. One of the men asked in a panic what was wrong with that, and Zeke asked to explain. He said that they were his drinking buddies. They were drinking, and now he had changed. Spinosa said that she didn't care if he was a drunk or not, but it was time to deal with him. Pham nodded in agreement. Spinosa volunteered to take care of this and promised to give Tom the best service. Zeke only doubtfully asked if she was in a state, and asked to be careful. She reassured him, because everything is under control, and staggered towards the bully, who immediately struck. Spinosa raised her hand and blocked the blow of the bully, who tried to push through, but it was useless. Then the girl grinned and noticed that somehow it was weak and now it was her turn and she swung. Offering to taste her fist, Spinosa punched the bully right in the solar plexus, which bent him in half. Then he was sent into the wall and knocked out, and Spinosa happily turned to Zeke and asked how he was. She also gave the big guy a hard time. Zeke praised her and she was happy. Later, the scientist announced that he had found out why the big guy was enraged. Demon blood was found in his system, then explained that he had checked the body of the guy they stunned and traces of demon blood were found in his blood. The scientist also added that when a person's body gets the blood of a demon, he falls into insanity. The demon's blood is poisonous to people. Zeke concluded that someone had mixed the demon's blood into the goon's drink. Cyra asked who would have done it, and Zeke asked, remembering Nahhat's case, if it was possible for a person to keep their identity and if there were any such examples. The scientist replied that if a person kept his identity, then he himself wanted to become a demon. Such people have horns, golden eyes, and a sign engraved on their body. In addition, some people have antibodies against the blood of demons. This is possible when a person's body initially flows demonic blood. Cyra summed up that, in other words, it is a half-human, half-demon. The scientist nodded. The scientist noted that this is an incredibly rare case. This is only possible when a person who has antibodies and a demon fall in love with each other. Cyra immediately dreamily noticed that interracial love is beautiful. The scientist explained that, in fact, this is not so romantic. People and demons are opposite species. If they have a child, then both people and demons will hate them, and the man knows a case when such parents were torn apart by demons, and the child was killed by people. The scientist noticed that they can be demons or people, but not together. It's hard for such children to survive, probably. Cyra remarked that it wasn't the children's fault, and Spinosa said that she didn't care if they were half-breeds or not, but they obviously could get along with them. The man said that this is a long story. He will ask the investigation team to study the route of their journey and let the guys continue to protect the city. On the return of the 5th squad, Captain Bolton said that they were drinking again and skipping work. They should have stopped coming. Spinosa asked what this meant and whether they were finally fired, and Cyra was afraid that they really decided to fire them. Pham pointed out that this was expected. Given Spinosa's attitude to work, maybe Bolton was planning to get rid of them troublemakers. Cyra was even more scared, and Zeke asked Pham not to support it. Cyra suddenly asked to wait. She started making excuses about Spinosa not being very punctual, drinking during the service, but she was very good. Zeke thought that he had never heard such an unconvincing person before. Bolton said that just words alone would not change their attitude to work. But then Cyra screamed even louder that she and Pham would still be able to find a new job. But she didn't think Spinosa, a sociopath in every way, would be able to find a job, so she asked Bolton to reconsider her decision, and Spinosa asked if Cyra really thought that of her. Bolton asked Cyra to calm down and explain that losing veterans, even with such terrible behavior, would be a blow to the guard. No one is going to dismiss them. Cyra was puzzled to ask why then. Bolton smiled and said that it wasn't all bad. Thanks to the 5th squad, they had taken down the demon and the undead army. The royals had given them a reputation as heroes. Then Bolton said that he would like to award the 5th Division a medal, something like that, so the guys should go to Astaroth Castle, which stunned the guys. Bolton pointed out that they would be received by royalty, so they should try not to lose face. Zeke nodded, but remarked that he had been an ordinary adventurer all his life who knew nothing about etiquette. Bolton assured him that he was sure that everything would work out and they would be respected even more, but if Zeke wanted, Cyra could help him. She was a pro at it. Zeke looked at her in surprise. Pham asked if Cyra was from some high-class family, but she said she knew from the books. Zeke remarked that she was diligent, and then said they needed to do something about the alcoholic stink of Spinosa. Bolton supported him. Zeke pointed out that they said it was unusual for the guard. Cyra nodded. She didn't think they could get it either. Spinosa pointed out that it was better for her to drink free beer than all this. Zeke pointed out that there was too much of a degree difference between them, and Pham pointed out that also in education. Pham also noticed that they were being closely watched. It felt like they weren't really trusted. Cyra noticed that the castle was guarded not only by the light force, but also by the priestess of light. It was very safe here. Spinosa suddenly asked who the priestess of light was. All three of them stared at her, and Cyra asked if Spinosa didn't even know who she was guarding in this city. Pham said they didn't look like guards. Spinosa asked what she thought. Zeke said they really didn't look like guards, and Pham said that everyone in the city didn't look like guards, so they think. Cyra asked if Spinosa knew that there was a demon lord sealed in the sphere of light, and Cyra nodded. In order to restrain such a strong creature, you need something of equal strength. Originally, the sphere of light was able to restrain the demon lord on its own, but as the years passed, the sphere gradually weakened, and if nothing happened, then the demon lord would break out. That's why the Priestess of Light is irreplaceable. It is believed that the Priestess of Light sealed it inside her body. After going through harsh and painful training, she replenishes the reserves of sacred power so that the seal that restrains the Demon Lord is not resolved. Spinosa asked that if the Priestess of Light was killed, Cyra replied that then the power of the seal would weaken and the Demon Lord would be resurrected, but there were also advantages. The only existing Priestess of Light is the Lady Astaroth. Spinosa asked what the advantages were, and Zeke said that as long as the priestess was safe, even if the sphere of light was stolen, the demon lords would not be able to resurrect her. Spinosa also asked if they could have more priestesses, but Cyra replied that she had heard that none of the princess's family, other than herself, had shown any ability for the light. Fam pointed out that this was why the priestess was more important than the orb. Zeke concluded that they couldn't afford to lose humanity's only trump card, and as they entered the throne room and bowed, the royal personage spoke to them, praising them. Cyra noticed that Spinosa did not bow and made a remark, and the king remarked that he had heard that the other day the boys performed well in the battle against the demon horde. Thanks to them, this royal city is safe and sound, and the king is grateful to them. Zeke said that he was very happy with their kind words, and just when he thought that so far everything was uneventful, when the guards noticed that there was a smell of alcohol, and another noticed that it was from them, Zeke cursed inwardly. In the open air, everything was whiter or less normal, but here the smell could not be masked. Zeke tried to wash off Spinosa with a large amount of water, but it did not help. Greor asked if they had come to the ceremony drunk. If so, it was an insult to his majesty. Cyra immediately began to explain that they were just dealing with a riot, so they were forced to drink and called out to Spinosa. Zeke realized with horror that Spinosa was already sleepy. Fam muttered that if they were going to be fired, they should only fire Spinosa. She didn't want to expose me, but Zeke noticed that she was hiding behind his back, and Fam said that she didn't particularly like to show up in public places like this. Greor yelled that it was rude to hide behind the king's back. Zeke tried to explain that she didn't mean to be rude to the king, she was just a little unsociable. The king stopped Greor because they were here for such a beautiful occasion, so they will forget about being rude. It's not a big deal that they don't know how to behave. The king remarked that they lived in different worlds, and Greor chuckled and said they were lucky. Zeke thought that he had some misgivings, but if only he spoke, maybe everything would be fine. Then Spinosa put her hands on the floor and said that something was wrong with her, she would rather sit down. Cyra noticed that Spinosa's face turned blue, and Zeke did not have time to ask anything as Spinosa's eye vomited profusely. Those around them, who were angry, who were dumbfounded, who awkwardly kept silent, and who cashed up, the guys also realized that to throw up in the presence of the king, this is already too much and they are finished. Greor had said that he couldn't stand their repeated rudeness anymore, so they were done for on behalf of the king, and Zeke thought with annoyance that they had already gone beyond being slightly rude, especially in front of the royal family. They came here to receive a medal, but it seems that they will only receive a punishment. But at this moment, the order to put away their swords and stand aside rang out in the hall. Greor turned to Lady Sonia, trying to argue, but she said that they had not offended her in any way, so Greor should leave them alone, and besides, Greor had gone too far and was doing too much for himself. Cyra quietly noticed that Spinosa was saved by a priestess of light. Zeke noticed that this lady was carrying the Demon King's seal alone. Fam noticed that she was quite kind. Greor bowed and apologized, then ordered the weapons to be put away. The Priestess of Light then addressed the 5th Division soldiers, saying that they deserved to be praised for their valor in the last battle, also for not making a fuss over the situation they just found themselves in, and so she decided. From now on, they will leave the city guard and serve it as the king's guards. Greor was surprised, and the Priestess of Light continued that politeness is meaningless. In the face of such overwhelming power, just such power is necessary to protect humanity. Greor objected again, saying that the privates had never become king's guards before, and Sonia asked him if he thought she should go against the rules of the world, because she didn't care. Then she said that she had heard Greor and the guard simply spit on the feet of these people in the last battle, when the 4 of them went up against an entire undead army. Then she interrupted Greor by saying that she didn't need his excuses. Sonia noticed that they need to attract as many strong and capable people as possible. She believes that this is a rational decision. If Greor has objections, then she listens, but she will do everything in her own way, and Greor had no choice but to admit that she was right. But then Zeke ventured a retort, saying that with all due respect, he couldn't agree, and Greor was furious, and Sonia asked why. Zeke explained that he, as the slan of the city guard, wants to protect the residents of the city, as well as her. If he becomes the royal guards, he will not be able to do this. Sonia noticed that he was wrong. The lives of the city residents can be replaced, but hers cannot. Her life is as valuable as the lives of all of humanity, and Zeke knows whose life is the priority, but Zeke says that he respects Sonia immensely, but she is wrong. Greor already growled, and Zeke continued without hesitation that all lives are equally valuable. The lives of Her Majesty, or the lives of the people of the city, he values them equally. Sonia asked if this is the general opinion of the 5th Squad, and all nodded with a smile. Then she said that you can forget about medals. Greor giggled and shouted that they were trying their luck. They dared to address such rude words to the lady. The guard could not forgive such a thing. Then he ordered the guys to be tied up, and shouted that now he was going to execute them. Sonia herself believed their fate. Sonia, perplexed, asked why Greor tied them up and ordered them to be untied. But Greor asked why. Didn't she want to take them while the army was still there? But she asked, what did she say? Zoya ordered them to be untied, and Sonia apologized. Sonia asked if the boys knew what the role of the Priestess of Light was. Zeke said that it was only rumored. She asked if they knew that she was leaving Astaroth for prayer. Zeke shook his head, and she answered because it was kept secret. During the full moon of the month of the goddess, the Priestess of Light goes to the sacred spring to purify her body. This source is far from the capital, and monsters always suddenly appear on the way, and this cannot be avoided. Sonia remarked that her guard wouldn't be able to do this. The guys could stay in the guard corps, but she wanted them to accompany her to the spring, then asked how they liked this compromise. Zeke asked in surprise why she was so supportive of them after their rudeness. Sonia smiled. Sonia replied that, to be honest, she just liked them. She has nothing against Zeke's holy faith that he will save all the townspeople. Sonia was convinced of his strength in the last battle, plus she likes strong and loyal people. Sonia then asked the names of the boys, and Zeke introduced them all, noting that each of them had their own oddities, but as a guard, they were good. Sonia promised to remember their names and then asked if they were ready to accompany her. Zeke replied that even if he had to travel all over the world to protect the people of this city, he would accept her offer with honor. Suddenly, Greor shouted that it was unheard of for a sacred journey to be taken by ordinary guards. Wasn't the guard good enough for that? Sonia snapped that traditions and customs were a relic of the past. It was necessary to protect her, not traditions. There was no need to resist this. Then Sonia asked if Greor dared to resist her. Greor dropped to one knee, saying that he wouldn't dare, and she asked him what the problem was, but Greor glared at Zeke, and Zeke realized that even though it was all right, Greor was holding a grudge against Zeke. Spinosa did not hesitate to tick Greor a fake, and ridiculed him for not being able to enjoy their execution, so he also got a hat from Sonia, which completely infuriated Greor. While Zeke asked her to be quiet because they still had the guards to accompany the Priestess of Light, Cyra apologized to calm Spinosa later. Greor brandished his sword. He was restrained. Zeke remarked that it was incredible, and Cyra could not believe that they would accompany the princess herself. It's so honorable. 5 days later, Zeke and the 5th Division were waiting at the gate with Eleanor, and Eleanor noticed that they had no margin for error, so the presence of the 5th Division is a little reassuring. Zeke wouldn't say that when he looked at the rest of the guard. Eleanor said they were just following a herd instinct, but later she taught them to do it. Zeke said he was sure she would succeed. Eleanor thought that Zeke was paying her a compliment, and she didn't know what to do, because it was so nice. They were going out together for the first time, and even with a sleepover, whether the mission could be considered their honeymoon. Zeke shook his head, and then Greor called him. The arrogant soldier said that he didn't have any hope in them. He didn't care if they died along the way, but they must remember that they must never put Lord Sonia in danger. Greor hopes that the 5th Division will simply keep up with them and not delay the princess, and most importantly, they must remember, this mission is the envy of the entire human race. Then Greor began to voice their plan. First of all, they can be attacked by demons. For them to kill the Priestess of Light, a matter of life. There are 2 routes to the Holy Spring, one through the Corral Plain, where they can be easily attacked by monsters, and the other through the Valley of Pity, which the Demon King once completely burned out, leaving the ground so thick with miasma and hot air that even demons don't go there. Greor said that naturally the demons would think that they would take a safer route through the Corral Plain, so Eleanor's party would go there. While they were distracting the demons, they would take a small number of people to break through the Valley of Pity, with Sonia riding in the second carriage and Greor in the first to confuse the demons more. Then Greor snapped arrogantly that Zeke shouldn't be conceited. It wasn't because they were so good. Zeke just thought that he just wanted to complete the mission already. Eleanor said they'd go first, and Zeke told them to be careful, and she nodded and said the same thing, and then remarked that it sounded like they were already married. Then Eleanor told Zeke that when she returns, she wants to marry Zeke. He told her not to say such terrible words. Otherwise, he has a feeling that after these words, his chances of survival have sharply decreased. So after saying goodbye, Eleanor left. When they reached the Valley of Pity, Spinosa began to complain that she was terribly hot and that this place was not suitable for the human body. Then Spinosa complained that she wanted wine, but Fam noticed that if she drank it, she would be paralyzed from dehydration, so Cyra asked if Fam herself was hot. Spinosa noted that Fam did not sweat a drop. Zeke explained that this is not strange, because Fam all this time regulated the body temperature through the tongue. Spinosa noticed that she is just like a dog. Cyra advised the others and the princess to drink plenty of water, but she said she didn't need it. Sonia is not so flimsy to complain about such conditions. Spinosa noticed that she could sit well, and Fam immediately made a remark. Does she really want to stay without a salary? Fam thinks that Spinosa's self-preservation instinct is completely destroyed. She can't even buy wine. Spinosa chuckled and said that she lived the way she wanted and said what she wanted, but when Zeke said that she would leave without a salary, she immediately bowed from the floor and apologized to Sonia. Suddenly, there was a cry that the monsters were attacking. Spinosa was stunned, and then indignant that they did not agree so. Calling Greor a grumbler, Greor was stunned, looking at the edges of the crevice where the demons were standing. Zeke noted that it looked like an ambush. They were preparing for their arrival. It looked like the demons knew exactly where they were going to pass. The distraction failed. Their squad was formed to accompany, not fight. Spinosa saw a boulder at one of the demons, and Cyra shouted that they could not dodge. Greor was asked what his instructions were, and he was terrified and did not even know what to order. But then Viashawa's princess called everyone to calm down. She noticed that they were here to protect her, and now they should only think about it. Spinosa noticed that it was easy for her to talk. She replied that she was not asking for the impossible. Spinosa grinned and familiarly stated that she liked the princess and said that everything would be fine now. Zeke noticed that the boulder was about to be thrown, and Spinosa nodded and pushed it off the ground, then away from the raised shield and swung the hammer, while the demon threw the boulder. But Spinosa smashed a boulder with one blow and stunned the guards, and then shouted with delight, asking if they had seen. Cyra immediately warned her that the next one was coming after him, but she didn't have time, so Fam said that Spinosa was not paying attention, and then an arrow flew close to Spinosa and smashed a boulder. Fam explained that everything has weak points. If you find them, even a boulder can be easily crushed. Fam is on the ground and flying at the same time. It's a pity for those who can't do that. Spinosa asked if Fam thinks she's a fool. Greor was stunned by the fact that the boulder was broken by an arrow, and Spinosa, saying that he would not lose, began to drag the boulder along with Fam. Cyra noticed that the fragments were flying at them, and Zeke asked to leave it to him. He would protect the princess. Zeke used an iron shield, and the shards started flying past the carriage. Cyra was trying to calm the frightened horse that was caught by the shard, just like Cyra when she realized something. Shards don't do damage, but it's probably thanks to Zeke, because the iron shield is a space created around it, inside which I absorb all the damage I receive. Thanks to the fact that the girls broke the stones, he can protect the entire cart, meanwhile closing it. Greor was perplexed by the fact that the cart was unharmed and did not believe in it. But then Cyra noticed that a boulder was flying at two knights, and without hesitation, she protected them, then asked if they were okay, and they nodded and thanked them, and then asked why she saved them. They were rude to them. Cyra smiled softly and said that there are not people who cannot be saved. Besides, they are all protecting the princess together. The knights were confused. One did not understand what kind of warm feeling it is. Is she a goddess? And the second felt his dirty soul being cleansed. The demons, realizing that nothing had worked out, immediately ran away. Fam assumed that it looked like they had run out of shells. Zeke summed up that now they could do nothing more to them. The princess praised the fifth squad, saying that it was the first time she had seen them act in real combat, and it was skillful. Zeke thanked and praised her composure in such situations, and when he was afraid that he had blurted out too much, the princess giggled. Sonia laughed and said that as a priestess of light, there was no need to worry, and Zeke was as expected, an outstanding person. Death for her is not something far away. She's always around, so even situations like this can't unsettle her. Zeke noticed that just for a moment, he thought she'd revealed her true self to him. She didn't seem overly bold. Sonia looked like the god of death was following her around every day. Was the priestess, such a young girl, already ready for her death? Spinosa meanwhile lamented that it was very hot and asked if they could not safely go on the corral plain. Fam angrily asked if Spinosa didn't have to talk about what everyone knew, or if she had a hobby of pissing people off, and Spinosa yelled that it was all because of Greor's filthy plan. Then she yelled loudly, asking who had promised them an easy walk through the Valley of Pity, but such a liar should be put in prison so that he would not go and not put on airs. He only sked irritably. Zeke asked why talk about what has already passed. You need to think better about what they will do next. At this moment, the demon grinned and threw off his feather, which reached the ground and caused a strong explosion. Spinosa shouted that it couldn't be, they were attacking again. Zeke realized that they might be pushed off the cliff and ordered everyone to hold on to the cart. The cart was knocked off a cliff, and while Greor was screaming, Zeke held Sonia close and apologized, saying that he would have to be patient for a while. She nodded and said that she was relying on him, and Zeke used an iron shield. When the carriage went down, Zeke let out a sigh and said it was a bit of a blow, then asked if the girls were all right, and then he asked the princess, and she nodded too. Then Zeke said that he was glad that she was fine. The princess blushed, and Zeke asked if she was sick, and that face turned red. The girl immediately put her hands on her face, shouting that she said she was fine so he could leave behind. Cyra said Zeke had covered for them all and asked if he was okay, and he nodded and she brushed him off, and Fam was glad he was with them because she didn't even have time to react. Zeke asked where Greor and the others were, and Cyra said they only threw rocks at the princess's cart, so the others were probably fine. Zeke assumed that meant the demons knew which carriage the princess might be in, but Fam was suspicious that they knew too much about them and someone was probably leaking everything. Zeke said they couldn't find Greor here, they'd better go to the spring, while Spinosa put the cart on its wheels, and Cyra said she thought they knew it, and she calmed the horse down. Zeke concluded that they needed to deal with this nuisance first. Spinosa noted that there was no time to rest for the Priestess of Light's guards, and they were already surrounded by monsters. Analyzing, Zeke realized that they had nowhere to retreat to. With the Blood Wolf, Grey Ogre, and Death Spider fighting in their path, they were a pretty strong group of monsters. It will be difficult to protect the princess with 4 of them. Zeke volunteered to be responsible for defense, and the girls should focus on the attack. Spinosa promised to clean up everything, and Zeke got ready, and the ogre growled swinging. But Zeke beat him to it and said that it was Slow who immediately destroyed the ogre, while the spider shot out a web. The spider caught Zeke by the arm, but Zeke grabbed the web and pulled it towards him and impaled the spider on the sword, while the wolves rushed at him and he noticed that they were as agile as ever. One of them bit him on the arm. Zeke grinned and asked how the wolf's hand was. If it tasted good, Zeke would take the wolf's head in return. At this point, Cyra attacked the wolf by chopping off his head and asked if Zeke was hurt. Zeke reassured that he was strong, then said that we should reduce their number and break through them. After a while, Spinosa noticed that it was no use, how many do not kill, and there are more and more of them. Fam said that everything is at the pace. Zeke noticed that fighting in the Valley of Pity was very exhausting, so he ordered everyone to get on the wagon. They would break through them. Cyra shouted for everyone to sit down. Zeke shouted for everyone to come here and get on the cart. Spider growled in disbelief. The cart immediately sped off. Ogres and harpies also watched in disbelief, but they couldn't get away from the monsters. Zeke knew that the iron shield absorbed all the damage in the area, but it wouldn't last long. The shield almost immediately reached its limit. If they only get to that slope, then the monsters won't be able to pass through due to the Divine Force's territory. So Zeke ordered Cyra to go straight to the slope and not stop no matter what. The princess asked him if he really wanted to die, but Zeke said he didn't, and then he climbed onto the cart. Spinosa immediately understood everything and wanted to stop him, but Zeke used an iron target and jumped off the map. The demons were immediately lured to him, and he said that he would delay them and trust the princess to the girls. Zeke once again repeated that he entrusted the princess to the girls, and the princess called out to him saying that he should come back alive. This is an order, Zeke replied, that then he simply had to come back alive. Zeke promised that he wouldn't miss them, and Spinosa pointed out that it was necessary to pay tribute to his determination, and then promised that they would take the princess to the spring, and finally T.S. keyed in exasperation. In order to protect the princess, his comrades, and the whole world, Zeke will not miss anyone. One of the demons sneered if Zeke thought he could take them all on his own, and then ordered them to kill him, but Zeke believed in his own strength, rushing into battle. After a while, Zeke told them, "Checkmate," and the demon did not believe that it was possible, just one person, but Zeke noticed that the pain they were feeling now proved otherwise. The demon said that he was not told that there was such a monster among the guards. Zeke realized that someone was leaking all the information and asked who it was, but the demon was already dissipating and advised to put his comrades under suspicion. Then Zeke crouched down. The monsters were gone, now the girls were safe. In such aggressive conditions of this valley, even he would have to try to climb up, but then someone called him. Zeke was surprised to see Eleanor and asked what she was doing here. She explained that there were no monsters in the Coral Plain, so they started early. Then they saw the knights trying to stop Zeke's comrades, Cyra shouting that Zeke was in danger, Spinosa hitting one of them in the head, shouting that it was too early for Zeke to die, Eleanor promising to take care of him, so she was here. Eleanor wondered if Zeke was the only one who had killed them all, and then said proudly that she had recognized him for a reason, but Zeke said that Eleanor must have been a little shaken up too. Eleanor then offered Zeke to jump on her horse, and when he thanked her, she almost burst into tears. When Zeke asked what was wrong, she explained that her heart was pounding because such a strong person relies on her. Then she wondered if Zeke was slowly falling in love with her, and she blushed even more. Eleanor imagined Zeke holding on to her all the way, holding on to the reins and not being able to resist. Then she thought that it was so embarrassing, but she didn't mind. But Zeke interrupted her thoughts by saying that it was time to move out. He had something to report and wanted to see his comrades as soon as possible. She nodded, although she mentally thought that she didn't really want to speed up. When they arrived at the camp, Cyra greeted them with joy that Zeke was unharmed. Zeke was also happy and praised the girls for doing a good job, then noticed that he had already been told what the girls had done, but they started complaining about the knights, and Zeke was glad that they all got there safely. The princess also came out to meet him and praised him for doing a good job. Zeke said that he was just doing his job, and besides, he couldn't possibly disobey the princess's orders. The princess smiled and said that she thought highly of him now, and then Greor came and Zeke thought that there would be more complaints, but he fell on one knee in front of Zeke, which stunned him. Greor, on behalf of the Order of Knights, asked permission to express his gratitude to Zeke for protecting the princess in a moment of danger, and if it hadn't been for Zeke, they might have been completely defeated. Zeke was surprised that Greor knelt down and asked him to raise his head because he was doing his job, but Greor only said that they owed him a favor. Zeke had publicly reported that there was a traitor among them, and this had been known since the last battle. One of the knights protested that they knew and trusted each other here for a long time. It can't be that someone was lured to the dark side. Cyra said that the fact remains that the enemy knew their every move, and Spinosa said that the 5 of them suffered the most, which means one of the knights was a traitor. Spinosa began to brazenly poke his fingers in turn at the knights, and they were angry, saying that you can not just poke at random. The second said that any impudence should have a limit. Is it really running into a fight? Sonia noticed that even if there is a traitor among them, it will not change anything, so she advises everyone to rest properly. If they continue to protect her, then this is quite enough. Sonia then announced that the ceremony would start after a short rest. Cyra remarked that the princess must be very tired too, but she didn't show it at all. Zeke remarked that she was holding up well. When they started climbing the hill, Zeke noticed Fam's poverty, and Spinosa laughed that she was already exhausted. What a sickly child, Fam said, not to compare X. Spinosa even had muscles instead of brains. Cyra assumed that Fam must be overworked and needed a drink, so Fam happily accepted the water bag and started drinking greedily. Zeke said that it was only now that she dropped the bag and started to roll over on her side that he caught her right away, and then he said that she was too tired to climb on her back. And then he said that she was light, and since she was the smallest of them, it was no wonder she was so exhausted. Zeke apologized to her for making her so tired, but she asked him to stop because he was embarrassing her. Then Fam noticed that for some reason now she was calm. Zeke smiled, and Spinosa also wanted to hold hands, but Zeke replied that she was able to walk on her own. Cyra scolded Spinosa, saying that Zeke was also tired. Zeke also noted that they were both so stubborn. When they arrived, the princess asked the others to stay outside. There is a holy spring ahead, so one guard is enough. The princess decided that it would be Zeke, and Greor said that she couldn't take just one guard to the ceremony, she should think better of it, but Sonia said that demons couldn't set foot on these holy lands, and if anyone dared to attack her, Zeke could handle them himself. Besides, if there really is a traitor among them, it's too much of a risk to allow outsiders to participate in the ceremony, and Sonia is sure that the one who protected her with his life on the line can't be a traitor, so there's nothing to worry about. Zeke thought that being the captain of the guard, it was probably hard to accept that someone was more trustworthy, and Greor was really annoyed, and Sonia decided to get started, so Zeke asked Cyra to keep an eye on Fam. Arriving at the spring, Zeke was looking around in surprise, looking at the beauty of the area, the statue with wings, when the princess came up to him. Sonia began to take off her outer garments until she could only see Zeke in her chemise. Fooling around, Sonia asked how Zeke got her name. Zeke said that she was extremely straightforward. Sonia said that it was a body that could withstand harsh training, so there was nothing to be ashamed of. Then she noticed that Zeke was not a bit embarrassed, did not even look away. Zeke replied that it was not appropriate for the royal guard to look away from the princess. She laughed, saying that he was not so simple, did not even hide his depraved nature. Sonia noticed that still, Zeke is good. It would be a big loss to keep him as a guard, and she would so much like him to serve only her. Zeke thanked her for such kind words, and she interrupted him and asked to call her by her first name, which stunned the guy. Sonia asked to call her by her first name. This is allowed only to him and no one else, and then asked him to try. Zeke called her Lady Sonia, and she was indignant that no lady but the guy begged, because other knights will not leave a living place on him. She resentfully remarked that he was also called. Then Sonia turned away. It was time for the ceremony to begin. She asked Zeke not to take his eyes off her for a second. Zeke nodded and promised to make sure that no one interfered with the ceremony. Sonia slowly entered the water and stood at the statue and began to pray. She lit up, and Zeke thought that this prayer for the sake of protecting the world was more like a dream. Then Sonia fraternized with Zeke, saying that her body would need some time to accumulate strength, so she offered to dispel the boredom with a conversation. Sonia explained that she was extremely interested in people like Zeke, who was surprised, and she asked why he was willing to risk his life to protect others. Why he decided to protect her or the ball of light. No, all the inhabitants of the city. What motivated him in those moments, great love for all mankind, or he was just doing his job. The guy was confused, and Sonia said that she wanted to know because she was only doing it because she received orders. Sonia, as the one who inherited the blood of the Light Maiden, simply had no other choice. In order to awaken this power, she went through many trials, but she did it only because it was necessary. She doesn't have a single bit of desire to protect people. On the contrary, she rather hates the human race, and sometimes thinks that it would be better if the Demon King rose up and destroyed this world. When the guy asked if this was true, Sonia nodded and said that she couldn't tell anyone about it, of course, only Zeke. The royal family and the nobles are like a pig, thinking only about how to fill their bellies, while the lower classes only know how to blame other people for all their misfortunes and complain about their hard fate. Other countries, knowing that they use their lives as expendable material to maintain the seal that holds the Demon King back, live happily ever after, throwing the full weight of the burden on the priestesses, and in the end, there are no people for Sonia who she would consider worthy of protection. But in her case, it is impossible to give up this role, utter nonsense, to spend her life for those whom she does not consider worthy. But what about Zeke? Does he continue to fight without sparing his life of his own free will? Sonia then asked if this world and the people in it were really worth protecting enough to put their lives on the line. The priestess once again asked Zeke to answer, and Zeke thought about how, as a priestess of light, she always struggled with her conflicting feelings alone. Then the guy explained that he became her guard because he was kicked out of one of the adventurer teams. After that, he served as the guards of the main gate of Astaroth. Zeke also noticed that he only knows how to fight, so working as a security guard is the only thing he can do. At first, he thought that he would work solely for the sake of a salary, but today he realized that he wants to protect people close to him. The princess asked again, and Zeke began to explain that they were colleagues at work, former comrades and residents of this city who took him in when he lost his house. There are people he doesn't understand. There are things that he can't see. Zeke noted that he sometimes wonders if there is a reason to protect people from the point of view of humanity as a whole, because if he misses the enemy, these people will be in danger, and with the capture of the ball of light, the whole world will end, but Zeke will never allow this. Sonia asked if protecting the gate was related to protecting all of humanity. Zeke said it was, of course, but fortunately, Zeke was doing a great job. Sonia smiled and said that protecting humanity, like Zeke's reasoning in general, was interesting. The princess noticed that Zeke had already exceeded her expectations several times, and then asked if she could ask the question, among the people Zeke wants to protect, if she is among them, if she is temporarily abandoned by the forces of the Priestess of Light, he will still protect her, not the priestess, not the princess, but just a girl named Sonia. Zeke replied without hesitation that he would protect her if she wanted to. He would protect her with his life. But the girl was not led at first, and then she was embarrassed and reached out to him. Taking Zeke's hand, Sonia swore that she would protect humanity for the sake of people close to her like Zeke. Meanwhile, a demon with a snake tail was standing in the forest. He said that it was difficult, because the person promised that he would finish the priestess in the Valley of Pity. The person asked for forgiveness, explaining that there were unforeseen circumstances. The demon asked if it was so difficult to kill her outside the castle. Greor explained that it was all because of the princess' new guards. The demon snorted, and then remarked that the priestess didn't trust Greor. Then the demon noticed that, even so, the Night Order commander was very much needed, so the demon still had hopes for Greor. Then the demon said that Greor should end up with this. If there was a difficult situation, the demon would use his trump card, but also that Greor would not dare to betray the demon. Greor assured him that he would always be on the side of the demons, and then, while Sonia was throwing water at Zeke, Greor thought that Zeke was messing up their cards. The next day, after performing the ritual at the Holy Spring, they moved back to the capital. It was difficult to walk, but the road on the coral plain was quite peaceful. Sonia noticed that without them, she probably would have been dead already. Then Sonia remarked that, thanks to Zeke's words, she could continue to perform the duties of a priestess of light. She also promised that for good work they would be presented with state awards. Zeke replied that her words were already a reward for them. The princess smiled again. Cyra noticed that the princess's expression was softer. She used to have a completely different look. Probably now it's more human. Fam asked if the princess was told nice words. Cyra suggested that maybe this is a declaration of love. The princess was confused, and then she screamed, saying, "What are they saying?" Then she threatened that if she heard such a thing again, she would cut off their heads. Cyra was afraid. Fam noticed that the princess was reacting suspiciously. Spinosa asked what was there, because Zeke was with the princess. Zeke replied that everything that was at the holy spring will remain between them. It's a secret. The girls looked at each other. Zeke thought that now that he knew the princess' feelings, he should put even more effort into protecting this city, because only he knew her feelings, and after successfully completing the mission, the 5th squad was given a short weekend off. Zeke reflected that he didn't have any hobbies. Being an adventurer after being a guard, he didn't notice how the weekend went because of training. Other than that, he had nothing else to do. Thinking back to Happy Spinosa, who promised that she would come off for all the days she worked, Zeke thought that maybe he was completely lacking in human things, and it was terrible at such a young age not to have a hobby. Zeke wondered if maybe he was just a boring man, a 25-year-old man with no hobbies or significant other. He should start walking. Zeke decided to change his life. Zeke met Spinosa, and eventually the person sitting in front of him said that if Zeke won it, he would give up all his chips in exchange for enough chips that Uzika would have enough money for. Zeke mentally wondering how it came to be answered that he accepted the challenge. He's got 50,000. Because of Spinosa's love of gambling, they ended up here. They went to the first casino they came across, where a guy named Fezar very cleverly beat her in poker. Spinosa warned Zeke that Fezar can read emotions, so now Zeke will have to return what Spinosa lost, so Zeke decided to bet everything. Fezar looked surprised, then said what he thought. It will be difficult for him to read Zeke's meager emotions, but his eye is not deceived. He can look into the very soul of a person. Zeke has now caught bad cards. Zeke pointed out that Fezar was bluffing, so he wouldn't leave the game. Fezar said that he wanted to applaud Fezar's courage from the bottom of his heart, but he wouldn't give up either. It was all in. Fezar laid out his cards and he got a square. Fezar explained that only 2 combinations are stronger than this, but Zeke can see that he didn't put them together, so Fezar won. He said that it was fun, and Zeke mentally chuckled at the fact that he himself was shocked by his crazy game. Zeke also opened his cards, and Fezar was surprised. The others saw that it was a flush. Fezar will not be able to play anymore, since he bet everything. Spinosa happily shouted that Zeke was good. Fezar shouted that it couldn't be. He was sure that Zeke had a bad hand. How could Zeke stay so calm? Zeke pointed at his head and said that it was because Fezar himself said that he could read emotions, and Zeke still played without filling his head with details in the poker rules, so that's all. Fezar protested that it was completely reckless to play like that, and Zeke said that he had won. Wasn't that the whole point of gambling? Fezar nodded, and then said that he was admitting defeat. Apparently Zeke was the only one who really enjoyed the game. Then Fezar congratulated him on winning and gave him the winnings. Spinosa happily remarked that who knew Zeke was so lucky he should still play. Zeke replied that the newcomers were just lucky. Spinosa offered a drink, and Zeke replied that he wanted to take a walk around the city. Spinosa was glad that until the next paycheck, she was living in peace, for which she thanked Zeke. Zeke asked her not to get into trouble again. Zeke was walking around the city looking around, met Haruna and Aaron, and then Zeke was hit by someone. He looked around and realized that it was a girl and asked if she was hurt. Cyra immediately came up to apologize for not keeping track of the children, but when she recognized Zeke, she froze. Zeke asked about the children. She explained that they were children who study at the church, and the girl who crashed into him asked Cyra if this was her husband. Another child asked if they had kissed before. Cyra explained that Zeke wasn't her husband, and they hadn't kissed. Zeke thought they got along well, and at that moment the nurse came up and said that Miss Cyra often came to them and took care of these children. Cyra was indignant, and the nurse asked what it was like. Zeke. Then the nurse said that Cyra was talking about him with a very happy face, as if to be proud of him. Cyra was indignant again. The nun said that Cyra often makes donations to children, and Zeke whispered a question to the girl about her salary, suggesting that she couldn't even afford anything for herself. However, Cyra replied that living in the barracks, she doesn't worry about anything. Crouching down to hug the little girl, she added that she was willing to give her money so that the poor children would be happy and the smiles wouldn't fall off their faces. Zeke shielded his eyes from the heartwarming scene, thinking Cyra was a goddess who had landed on their land. He handed the bag of money to the nun to collect. The old lady was surprised by the adventurer's action. Smiling, he explained that this money will be more necessary for children for their needs. The children cheered and said goodbye to the hero. Cyra stood among the little ones, and the nun thanked him for his help, slightly bowing her head. When Zeke got home, he lay down on his bed and sighed with regret that he had never found a hobby. The guy noticed Fam's presence and asked her to leave with a smile. The girl happily descended to the guy, jumping from the ceiling. Zeke let her know right away that he'd noticed her following him around before and would have wanted to have a good time with her if she wasn't hiding. Fam admitted that she was shy and afraid of being rejected, which would have caused her to lose the peace of mind, tossing and turning in bed, burying her face in the pillow. Zeke noticed that behind Fem's cold mask was a rather fragile and vulnerable soul. Getting up from the bed, the adventurer patted the girl's head to cheer her up, assuring her that he wouldn't reject the girl. Fam pulled her hood up, hiding her gaze. She was reassured by the guy's supportive gesture and promised to thank him. She added quietly that her words were sometimes not enough. When Zeke returned to the bed, he suggested that she rest, but Fam was afraid of being alone and hid under his bed. He tried to persuade her to lie down next to him, but the girl refused, fearing a sudden attack by enemies. Deciding not to argue with her, he said goodnight and turned off the light. He just hoped that the girl was really comfortable sleeping in this position. A terrible dream in which Nahhat, disguised as a demon, shouted the name of his friends and blamed them for the destruction of the city of Estel. Haruna opened her eyes abruptly, panting in fear and covered in sweat. She rose from the bed, whispering apologies to Nahhat with trembling lips, trying to belittle his ghostly image of forgiving her for her own mistakes. Opening the door carefully, Haruna didn't have time to leave before Irene got up and called out to her, asking if she was going to go to Estel. The girl was taken aback, hastily apologizing for waking her friend in the middle of the night. Irene asked the non-girl not to leave, reminding her that the doctor had forbidden her to do so. Averting her gaze from the awkwardness, Haruna couldn't afford to sit still. The dark-haired girl got up from the bed and walked over to Haruna and took her hand, asking her to take her on this journey. Haruna thanked the girl for her support. They found themselves in a ruined city, where only charred ruins remained. Irene looked around the place thoughtfully and noticed that Haruna's hat might have burned down. Haruna blamed herself and confessed her own guilt to Nahhat. Irene was saddened by her condition, because the girl always thought about others, forgetting about herself. Haruna remembered her former friend as a stubborn boy who did not look around, which is why the girl always took everything into her own hands, and in order to allow herself to exhale, she had to move away. Irene approached the girl, reminding her that they were going to start with a clean face. But Haruna was wondering what happened to Nahhat when he was left alone in the city. As Haruna sat down on a rock decorated with flowers, she thought of her friends Fermi, Kisa, and Wujid, who had also fallen in a tragic situation. It made her sad to think that it had ended like this, leaving them with a heavy load of memories. Irene remained grateful to Fermi for activating the transfer magic to save the girls from danger, remembering that very episode. At this time, Fermi was sitting on a high branch of a huge tree and watched the girls with a smile. Holding onto her hat, she made a cheerful promise that the story wasn't over yet, but was just beginning. Zeke woke up at dawn, sat on the bed, and stretched. Looking under the bed, he expected to see Fam, but all he found was an empty spot. Looking out of the window, he saw that the city was still sleeping in darkness and the sun had not risen. Deciding not to waste any time, Zeke put on his combat gloves and went to train early in the morning to build up his spirits. After he completed the workout, the guy showered and got to work, completing his morning routine. Already in the circle of his companions, he was reading a task sheet when a loud voice caught their attention. Suddenly, the guards appeared, led by Greor. Bolton frowned at the abrupt visit and demanded an explanation. The blonde only briefly replied that a ball of light was stolen last night, which puzzled the adventurers. The girls were surprised by this news. Greor reported that the treasury guard hadn't been in touch this morning. When another guard descended, the ball of light was gone. When they examined the site, they found evidence that pointed to a possible thief. He scowled at Zeke, who was standing across from him, and informed him that the guy would be arrested on suspicion of stealing the ball of light. Cyra tried to approach Greor, but the guard stopped her, blocking her way. She argued vehemently that Zeke couldn't have stolen the artifact. However, Greor coldly told her to shut up, not wanting to listen to her excuses. Spinosa clicked her tongue in exasperation and doubted Gregor's words, saying that the real thief might be hiding among them. She even suspected him. But the guards immediately objected, because the knights did not leave Gregor's side that night. She turned to Zeke, demanding an explanation. The guy calmly replied that he was in the room with Fem, but then he added that Fam was hardly a witness, because the girl might have been asleep and didn't remember anything. The words puzzled her even more, adding to the nagging sense of understatement. Greor remarked on his honesty, but proceeded to comply with the order to arrest Zeke, explaining that he had proof. He showed him the glove that the guy had dropped during the fight with the knights, adding that Zeke's initials were indicated there. Zeke said nothing, knowing he didn't have enough proof. Bolton noted that he could have been framed, but Greor sharply rejected this idea and insisted on arrest, convinced of his involvement in the theft. After putting him in handcuffs, he told the guards to take him away. Cyra rushed to Zeke's side, but Zeke held her back, telling everyone to stay calm, even though he was well aware of the gravity of what was happening. He already knew Gregor's plan. He would do everything possible to carry out the sentence. Noah decided to find the real culprit, proving his innocence. He knew that prison would limit him, but he was looking for a way out of this trap. As he left the building, he turned to his companions and gave them a cheerful smile, as if assuring them that he could handle it. Cyra shouted that they believed him. Zeke's smile softened, appreciating their trust. Zeke opened the heavy door and stepped into the darkened room. Before his eyes appeared terrible instruments of torture, shackles, chains, an iron chair with long nails, and a cabinet with tools. The matron met him with a whip and a predatory smile. She introduced herself as Tiana. It was a pleasure to meet a new victim of torture. Zeke calmly remarked that she was surprisingly polite for a place like this. He admitted that he had imagined it much more rude and cruel. Tiana only chuckled, saying that she grew up in a noble family and should keep her dignity. The knights hurried to warn the prisoner that Tiana had a strange preference for torture and advised him to get ready. Zeke said he didn't want anything to do with that kind of person. Hearing this, Tiana reminded him that he was her prisoner and that he would be with her until he served his sentence. Already blushing slightly, she confessed that she had always wanted to try her tormentors on a muscular body. The knights hurried away, leaving Tiana and Zeke alone, not wanting to see the torture that was coming. Tiana, on the other hand, was upset with the audience, but she didn't waste any time taking off her cloak to prepare for the start of the torture. She lashed out at him with her whip, shouting that no one had ever hidden the truth from her before. Zeke took the pain in silence, not giving in to fear but maintaining a grim calm in the face of his tormentor. Licking her lips, she noted the boy's stamina with a smile and asked if it hurt him from such blows. Tiana knew the human body perfectly, knew how to direct blows to the most sensitive points. She kept hitting him with her whip until he finally confessed and gave up all the information he had. But Zeke continued to endure the torture in silence. Tiana relished the beating, trying to get a shout or a confession out of him. She waited for any reaction, but there was Zeke, unwavering, without a hint of weakness. But the guy kept a calm face despite the endless blows. Zeke thought about his glove, which he'd had in his room the night before, assuming it had been stolen while he was sleeping. He realized that he didn't lock the door of his room because his comrades often visited him. This is what gave the thief a chance to get through at night, so Fam might be the only witness, and Zeke needed to find a way to contact her. The Tiana continued to whip him furiously, demanding that he cry, but Zeke was only thinking of a plan. He knew that Greor wouldn't let Fem meet him, which made it harder for the girl to get to him. Noticing his indifference, Tiana grew angrier and angrier. Her punches were getting fiercer, but the guy didn't react. It only irritated her, because neither pain nor fear could break his spirit. Zeke then asked her to shut up and continue the torture while he thought. These words surprised Tiana, who was even out of breath from exhaustion. Tiana didn't like the tone of the guy's voice and reminded him of her situation. In her anger, she slapped the whip across his face. Hunched over, breathing hard, she grinned and asked if he understood his place. Zeke answered curtly in the affirmative. But with a yawn, he asked her when she was going to finish and if she could let him go to the bathroom. This made her even more confused, as there was a man sitting in front of her, playing with the situation even in torture. Tiana was shocked after hearing such words, surprised that the guy wasn't scared at all. She didn't like the guy's behavior and decided to deal with him on her own. But before he struck, Zeke told her that there were no cuts or scratches on his body from the blows. After examining his body, Tiana was convinced that he was telling the truth. Returning the smile, she coldly stated that she would then engage in the torture of his team, trying to elicit some reaction to her words. When she saw the change in his face, she laughed out loud, telling him what kind of torture his companions were going to face and that he would have to watch from the sidelines. At the same time, Zeke tore off his shackles and launched himself at the matron like lightning. His movement was so fast that Tiana didn't even have time to breathe as she was pinned against the wall. One hand gripped her throat, lifting her off the ground. His voice was grim, letting her do whatever she wanted with him. When they were almost there, Zeke warned her not to touch his squad, or she would face a cruel reckoning. His eyes glittered with anger, and for the first time, fear made Tiana shiver. He released her, and she nodded hastily, confirming that she understood the threat. Zeke turned away, adjusting his arm, and ordered her to call the guards to clean the room. He was going back to his cell. Tiana, on the other hand, sat on the floor in silence, paralyzed with fear, unable to utter a single word. In the cell, he continued his training. The look on Greor's face that had changed when Fam had tried to protect him came back to mind. Zeke realized that the Guardian was hiding something and was plotting a more insidious plan than he first thought. Soon, Fem appeared behind bars. She was surprised to see that Zeke managed to train even here. Her sudden appearance revived him. He realized that the girl had overcome the obstacles. Fam admitted that she killed the guards in no time. But the most important thing was that the demons had started attacking the city, and they didn't have much time left. Zeke gripped the bars and asked about the residents. Fan explained that the knights and guards had stormed into the capital, fighting among themselves. This was taken advantage of by the monsters, starting the destruction. The situation was becoming critical. It looked like they were waiting until Zeke wasn't around to launch an offensive. Fam managed to get through to the guy to give him this information. Zeke also sensed a connection in everything that had happened, not doubting that someone was behind it. Gripping the railing tightly, he decided to get out of the cell to help the city solve the whole mystery. Fam was about to open the lock, but Zeke stopped her. He managed to open the railing to the sides with his own strength, opening a passage for himself. She asked him if he could defeat a dragon with his bare hands. Zeke just grinned and said that she overestimated his strength. After getting his equipment back, he found a glove carved by Haruna herself. She might look like a toy, but she was dear to his heart. Fam was surprised at how much he valued the previous team, reminding her that they were the ones who had banished him. But Zeke just smiled, saying that if he hadn't been alone, he wouldn't have met the current squad. Fam retorted that if he had lived alone, he wouldn't have been sent to prison. The guy chuckled and agreed with her truth. He warned her to be careful. Together, they searched for a way out and encountered crowds of guards, marveling at the guards. Battle followed battle, and the walls of the prison were like a fortress, with every corner covered. Fam looked worried at his condition, because Zeke had fought tirelessly, but he assured her that he was fine. With a single strong blow of his hand, he took down an entire squad, demonstrating incredible stamina. Breaking through the guards, they reached the drawbridge that blocked their escape route. Zeke decided to put it down at all costs, knowing that this was the only chance to get out of here. Fam warned that it might be too much for even him. But Zeke, with all his strength, managed to lower the massive bridge. Planks rattled, chains strained, and the path finally opened up. With a loud crack, the bridge came down, opening the way to freedom. Fam couldn't help but wonder if Zeke was really a human with such powers, but his attention was already drawn to another sight ahead. A ruined city teeming with giant monsters opened up in front of them. The houses were in ruins, the streets were drowned in chaos, and everything was a battlefield. With a blow from her huge hammer, Spinosa defeated the monster so that Cyra could grab the man. He thanked them for their help while the girl held him up so he wouldn't fall. But the fight was much more difficult without Zeke. Spinosa, dodging the attacks, doubted that she and the team would be able to hold out any longer as everyone was already losing strength. Cyra called out to the girl to dodge the attack behind her, but Cyra herself had a huge monster on her back. Spinosa immediately alerted her friend to this while she was defending herself from the attacks. Turning to their enemies, the girls were about to attack the monsters, but they were outstripped by an unexpected blow that left no living place for the demons, but only splashing blood. Zeke and Fam hurried over, holding their weapons and helping the girls. Cyra and Spinosa were delighted to see the boys. He thanked Fam again for helping him escape. Cyra hugged the girl and patted her on the head. Spinosa praised Fam for the work done, adding that they would not have been able to cope without their help. But the situation in the city left much to be desired. The houses were on fire, and the knights lost their sanity. Their altered state was due to the alleged consumption of water mixed with demon blood. Of course, the guards stopped the monsters, but the frantic knights made their way into the castle, thereby creating a great threat to the princess. At the same time, an explosion occurred in one part of the castle, which attracted the attention of the squad. Shortly before Zeke arrived to join his team, a skirmish broke out in the throne room between the guards led by Greor and the princess's guards. Greor stood silently in front of his opponent and the princess, who immediately realized that he was a traitor and held a sword in front of her, preparing to attack. But her words only stunned the guy. He coldly remarked that he didn't see the point in protecting a selfish princess who always did what she wanted. He was amused that such a man possessed the full power of the city's defenses. Bored, the guy added that he was tired of coddling the princess, so he chose the side of the demons, stole the ball of light, and demanded to take her life to take a place among them. When Sonia saw the ball of light, she was surprised that he was the thief. Eleanor noticed that Greor was never proud of his knighthood and decided to betray the princess. He replied irritably that all he cared about was fame and money, and that knightly honor and loyalty were long forgotten. Eleanor knew he wasn't going to back down, and not wanting to waste any time, she asked him if he knew what she hated the most. After preparing her sword, she declared that she hated people like Gregory. At the same time, she jumped to the guards behind the guy and froze them. Greor attacked instantly, but the girl threw up a wall of ice, parried the blow, and launched a counterattack as he drew his blade in vain. Her spear slashed across his face, leaving a noticeable scar. The girl warned him not to judge the book by its cover, and promised that it would be her sword that would take his life. He swung his sword and summoned even more guards, and those who were imprisoned managed to break the ice, which surprised Eleanor. She created an ice barrier, completely blocking the opponent's path to the princess, which caused an explosion outside. Greor whistled and said that their siege would not last long, and his knights would kill them instantly. He added that there were no worthy women left in the kingdom, and the knights' pride had turned to madness, and their last hope was languishing in captivity. An evil grin appeared on his face, and he confidently declared that they had no chance of survival, and advised them to wait for their painful death. The guy exited the kingdom through the hole that was created after the impact, while the knights were left to break the barrier. The frantic knights, snarling, didn't stop breaking the ice barrier to get to the girls. Eleanor asked the princess to stand behind her so that she wouldn't be in any danger. The knights were able to break through the top of the wall and tried to get through it by swinging their swords. This action angered Eleanor, who was fending off the blows. The demons were much stronger than she had anticipated, as no matter how much she used her powers, the knights managed to find their way around. Eleanor grabbed the princess's hand and they ran away, looking for a new exit. Sonia, struck by the madness of the knights, was surprised that Eleanor had kept her wits about her. The girl assured the princess that her spirit could not be broken. All the knights did not lose their dignity and attacked the princess, which Eleanor will never forgive Gregory. Sonia hadn't expected this turn of events from the very beginning. Greor always craved power, so he poked and flattered the princess. She was disappointed that humans were inherently selfish creatures. Even the priestess of light, the symbol of humanity's hope, is betrayed for profit and power. People only care about status. The princess was betrayed by her own subjects, and assassination attempts became commonplace. She was losing the meaning of life, and now, for the first time, she was afraid. If Eleanor wasn't around, she would have died long ago at the hands of these people. The princess was afraid of the current situation. Usually she didn't care if she died or not, but now a feeling of fear came over her. The frantic knights met the fleeing girls from the other side as well. Eleanor immediately attacked the opponents, not giving them a chance to attack the princess. Sonia realized that she wanted to protect the people she loved, and that was why she couldn't afford to die. With a run, she attacked one of the guards, which surprised Eleanor, who repelled the blows and used her ice power. One of the knights grabbed Eleanor's sword, denying her a chance to dodge. The girl screamed at the princess to run, but Sonia, trembling, clung to the enemy, realizing that she was completely defenseless. The knight grabbed the girl's hair and pulled her to the side. She was trembling with fear. She was afraid. She saw his evil eyes through the helmet. Sonia remembered what Zeke had said when he promised to protect her. The knight raised his sword and swung it towards the princess. At that moment, Zeke appeared, deflecting the blow and protecting the princess. Sonia's eyes sparkled as she saw her rescuer. Zeke apologized for the delay and apologized to the princess. He remembered his promise to protect Her Highness, which made her smile with relief. Cyra walked over to Eleanor, who was waiting for the team to arrive. Sonia warmly thanked Eleanor for protecting her to the end. The girl calmly replied that she was only doing her duty, but she wouldn't mind if the princess patted her on the head for the work she had done, averting her gaze in embarrassment. Zeke joked that the girl was fine, since she could afford to say such a thing, and asked about the state of the castle. They were joined by Spinosa and Fam, who took care of the mountain of knights. Spinosa, putting her foot on the fallen enemy, mockingly said that even if she was lazy, she was still strong. Fam asked if she was ashamed to admit to skipping work, but Zeke wondered why Greor had allowed such a large group of knights to enter the castle. Sonia immediately remembered and informed him that he was the thief of the ball's light, to which Spinosa clicked her tongue irritably. The princess then revealed that Greor and his minions had attacked her, and that he was an enemy of humanity. Zeke remembered the princess's words about self-sacrifice and clenched his fist in anger. She added that if the ball of light was far away from the princess, their connection would be cut off, and the ball wouldn't be able to contain the Demon King, making their situation more dangerous. Princess Sonia ordered the 5th squad of guards to return the light of the orb to its place, and added that the fate of humanity rests on their shoulders. Eleanor also relied on Zeke to defeat the traitor. She wanted him to get what he deserved for betraying Her Majesty and violating his knighthood. When they got together, the team announced that they would deal with the traitor and return the light of the ball to the princess. The remaining adventurers cheered them up and took control of the situation in the city while the main squad carried out their errand. The team went to the impenetrable forest, where Greor could revive the Demon King. Zeke was preparing for the upcoming fight. A divided path opened up before them, and a choice had to be made urgently. Fam, catching a faint scent of Greor, reported that he was leading to the right, which surprised Spinosa with her intuition. The smell was barely noticeable, and I could only believe her. Zeke thanked the girl and led the group firmly in the direction indicated, not wasting a second. Their wagon sped faster than before, to prevent the enemy from escaping and stop his atrocities. When they reached the place, they saw a group of opponents. When they got off the wagon, they drew their weapons and found themselves face to face with Greor. He only frowned irritably at the unexpected encounter with Zeke, whom he had only recently taken into custody. Zeke had always thought that Greor was proud of being a knight and kept his honor, but when he saw his betrayal, he realized that he was wrong. But Greor wasn't bothered by the boy's words. He looked down on him, saying that he was only looking for benefits in the upcoming war. Laughing, he asked Zeke what he was doing here and if he was going to get the ball of light back, not forgetting to avenge Princess Sonia. He only asked the traitor if he was sure that the stolen ball of light was still active. Greor hesitated and glanced at the white-robed demon, demanding an answer. The demon holding the sphere responded calmly. The object was still there, which meant that the princess was still alive. The demon sighed in frustration, admitting that Greor had failed at his task again, which only made the former knight angrier at the result. Only the princess could feel the connection to the orb, and Zeke knew he had to get it back before the thread broke completely. Since Princess Sonia is alive, the ball of light will not disappear, so Zeke and his team refused to leave the place and demanded that Greor surrender. Gregor's eyes only darkened, and the veins on his forehead were already bulging. Greor cursed and said that Zeke shouldn't exist. If it wasn't for him, the princess would have been dealt with long ago. The hero was always in the way, ruining his plans, and now the traitor promised that this time Zeke will meet his death. Kneeling down in front of the demon, Greor asked for strength to destroy the enemies. Higito cut open his arm, blood streaming, and asked him if he was willing to give up his human body for the sake of strength, directing the crimson streams towards the boy. Seeing this horrific scene, Zeke realized that Nahhat had also been through this and became alert as he took up a fighting stance. Greor drank the provided demon blood and leaned forward to clear his throat. He could already feel his own blood boiling inside him, thus feeling a surge of strength. Higito explained that the transformation will take time, and he will take care of Zeke and his people. Fireballs flashed in his hands, and several of them shot straight towards the squad. The heroes managed to dodge the first attacks. Zeke saw another balloon coming toward him. He tried to change its trajectory and aimed it at the iron target, intending to deflect it with his shield. But the plan failed. The fireballs broke through the defense and hit him. The rest of the attacks rained down on his comrades, who tried to resist, but their strength quickly left them. Higito smiled and said that in the Lost Forest, miasma hinders movement, and the heroes clearly forgot about it. Zeke realized that it was the miasma that had robbed them of their speed. He asked the girls if everything was all right. Cyra and Spinosa, who were weak, answered in the affirmative, but they were sitting on the ground. He could see that they were exhausted from fighting in the city, and now the miasma had made them vulnerable. Spinosa stood up, leaning on the hammer, and Cyra tried to catch her breath. Higito decided not to delay and gathered a new series of attacks. Zeke managed to protect the girls from the demon's attack by standing in front of them behind a shield. The demon noticed that the boy was still on his feet and his strength wasn't used up. The miasma made it difficult to move, but Zeke reassured his companions that he could manage on his own. The girls smiled with relief. The demon also remembered that Zeke was the adventurer that the princess trusted and was surprised at his resilience. But Zeke asked directly if he had finished his attacks. The demon chuckled and said that this was just the beginning. His main attack is designed specifically for Zeke. Suddenly, Zeke felt a sharp stab in the back and turned around in horror, trying to figure out who could have done this blow. It was Fam. The guy was shocked. Her eyes were blank, her face devoid of emotion. The real demon attack was this one. The girl jumped back instantly, and Zeke fell to his knees in pain. Cyra screamed his name in horror. Fam approached the demon, saying that her knife was poisoned and the effect should soon work after the blow. Cyra and Spinosa looked back in horror at the unexpected traitor, not understanding why the girl did this. The demon Higito patted Fam for her work. Zeke refused to accept the girl's betrayal and suggested that she might have been forced to do so. Fam didn't answer him until Greor's laughter broke out in the background. He laughed at the guy's suggestion, explaining that she had made a big fuss in the Valley of Vengeance, and asked who exactly could have stolen his gloves. He added that Fam had been spying on the squad all along, but Zeke continued to deny what he was hearing, demanding an explanation from the girl herself because she had no reason to get involved with demons. But they were. Greor said that Fam's human blood was mixed with demonic blood, and there was no reason for her to join Zeke's squad. She glanced back at Greor, who was wearing a wicked grin. The guy was shocked by what he heard, remembering the warm moments with the girl. She spied on the squad on Greor's orders and was a secret weapon from the very beginning. He struggled to his feet and walked over to Zeke, who was still on his knees after the blow. Greor laughed when he saw such a scene and asked how he felt after being stabbed in the back by his own comrade. He stomped on the man's wound with his foot, causing him to fall to the ground while continuing to laugh viciously. Greor demanded that the girls watch the guy suffer, while the girls only watched the scene in horror. Fam coldly said that her punch wouldn't kill him right away. Gathering his strength, Zeke grabbed Gregor's leg. The traitor immediately noticed his movement. The young man threw it in the direction of a black pillar, which Greor hit with a crunch on his back. Weak, he said that Fam had struck Zeke to the heart and doubted her loyalty. But the girl sighed and said that not everyone was a traitor just because he had turned his back on the princess. Zeke knew that Fam had never betrayed anyone. In fact, she had turned the knife away when she attacked him, pretending that she had actually delivered the fatal blow so as not to raise questions from Greor. After saying that he would listen to the girl's explanation after the battle, he got to his feet and readied his sword to resume the fight with the demons. Ituito liked the guy's bravery and also prepared his forces. Suddenly, the girls felt a tremor in the ground. Long plants burst out of the ground, surrounding Cyra and Spinosa, trapping them, not allowing them to escape. They grabbed the girls, wrapping them tightly, from which the girls tried to escape with all their might, but the thorns only caused them additional injuries. Fam informed the guy that he would fight her. While Zeke's back was turned, Fam was suddenly at his side, ready to strike again, but he managed to meet her sword with his own blade. Greor yelled at the girls to attack Zeke and show off their demonic powers. The girls stepped back from the deflected attack, and Zeke breathed heavily, trying to regain his strength. A thick fog rose around them, completely obscuring Fam's silhouette. Zeke couldn't see her movements anymore. She threw blows from the mist, and he parried them, catching the blades. He even liked her quick and smooth movements and appreciated her swordsmanship. The girl also recognized his ability to dodge her attacks. But Zeke knew it wasn't going to be easy to beat her. He asked me to stop, but Fam refused. She reminded him that instead of talking, he should save his comrades, who were already being suffocated by the plants. Fam offered Zeke a choice: leave the girls and go on alone. They are only a hindrance, and his powers will allow him to cope on his own and return the ball to light. At that moment, Higito ordered Greor not to move, but he tried to get up, wanting to destroy the ball. Their blades clashed again. The girl tried to break through, but he defended himself. He was even amused by her suggestion. Fam noticed that the guy was losing blood and getting weaker, and reminded him that he was only hurting himself by continuing this fight. She paused, but did not lower her blade, warning him that if he continued, he would die. She had the upper hand, but Zeke called out to her anyway. As he stood there, he noticed that Fam was putting her life on the line right now, not his. She wanted Zeke to kill her. Fam snapped back that her goal was to kill him, but Zeke said with a soft smile that she'd had enough chances to do it, but she'd never made up her mind. She asked him if he remembered how she was accused with him, and he then did not let her speak out so that she would not be suspected. The guy confirmed it. The girl admitted that he always put others before himself, and she used to live in distrust. She was considered a half-breed. People beat her, suspecting her of being a spy, and demons treated her like a slave. Her parents were killed right in front of her. She had lived through betrayals, seen scenes of horror that still tormented her, and she had to do the same, or she wouldn't have survived. Higito raised her as a spy when she was left alone. She was always a pawn to him, so she didn't have any friends and couldn't have any. But Zeke asked directly if they were comrades. She was surprised that even after she'd hit him, he'd said those words. She smiled for the first time, not understanding how he could keep calling her comrade. Zeke refused to accept the fact that the girl was always on the side of the demons because she could have set him up on guard, but she didn't. When he came face to face with the weapon, he realized that she couldn't really kill them because during the time they spent together, she had become attached to the squad. But Fam stopped him, saying that if Higito and Greor betrayed her, it would be her death, because her heart would be destroyed. Even so, she couldn't stay with them. Zeke tried to convince her that everything would be fine, that no one would call her a traitor, but the girl was afraid. She confessed that she had betrayed too many people to trust. She lived in the expectation that one day she, too, would be betrayed. Grabbing her clothes, she said that only the blade in her hands gives her safety and reminds her of the person for whom she is trying to be at least a little better. But Zeke had shouted at her not to believe those who thought she was just a tool, not even calling her by name. He had promised her that he would always be happy to have her around. He realized that she was always running from trust, so he promised her that if she felt bad, he would stay with her and support her. Fam warned that his choice could lead to death, but Zeke said he believed her and wasn't afraid. She smiled and for the first time allowed herself to agree. She took the side of Zeke and his companions, believing the guy's words that they were really friends. Fam moved toward Aguido. The demon looked disappointed at her choice. Her sword couldn't hit the demon, but he regretted her loss and prepared to attack. The girl aimed the blade at his neck. If she can win, everything will finally be over. The demon snapped his fingers. With one click, the girl's heart exploded inside her. Fam was about to fall, but by putting her foot up and changing her position, she was able to swing the knife towards the demon. With a single blow, it sliced open the demon's neck, causing blood to spill from the wound. Iguido's head fell to the ground, but he remained conscious, not understanding how Fam had survived the destruction of her heart. The plants loosened their grip, and the girl scrambled out. Zeke said she was alive because of his promise to share her pain. He reported that the girl had actually pointed her blade at his heart. But the demon didn't understand how the guy was still alive after her deadly blow. It turned out to be nothing compared to the pain that the girl was going through all this time. A smile appeared on the demon's severed head after realizing that it had underestimated the young man. Cyra managed to grab the ball of light, and Spinosa put her foot next to the seated Greor for planning to destroy him for treachery. But Greor just grinned and said that it wasn't over, because he had already gained demonic power. Spinosa grunted in displeasure, about to strike with the axe, but the traitor managed to stop her attack. His transformation into a demon had saved his life, and such attacks from the squad wouldn't be able to destroy him. He hit the girl, causing her to fall to the side, and headed towards Zeke with his sword. Greor swung his sword, shouting that the squad would pay for everything with their lives, and their blood would be given to the demon lord. Zeke managed to protect himself with his shield from Gregor's attack. He noticed that Greor had lost his grip on the sword, and his skills had only gotten worse after the transformation. But Greor readied the next blow, mocking the boy's words. But this time Zeke managed to defend himself. The traitor didn't understand why his powers had become so weak, because he had put all of his energy into those punches, and he didn't understand how Zeke was able to block them. Even if Gregor's powers became superhuman, the hero continued to dodge his blows, which only left the demon in a stupor and incomprehension. Distracted by his thoughts, he didn't have time to dodge before Zeke hit him on the head with his shield. Greor covered his face, surprised that the boy had hit him in the face. Zeke wondered what exactly was wrong with the traitor's face. Surprised by this question, he just started shouting for help and calling for demons. It surprised him that a traitor who had abandoned his own people was now looking for support in other forces, changing too quickly and showing his true colors. Greor chuckled at the boy's comments, blaming the princess for it. He added that the princess should have respected her elders and was able to avoid such a turn of events, as well as transfer the rule to Greor. Zeke picked up on the traitor's train of thought, surprised at his confidence. Greor got to his feet and pointed his sword at the boy again, wishing him dead. Zeke said he should try out Tiara's torture. He should have thought about what he was doing with the prisoners, especially how he framed a princess who sacrificed herself to save the world. Zeke said that he did not deserve forgiveness, but only atonement for his sins. He dedicated one blow to Greor for destroying the city, another blow for ruining the minds of the knights. The next blow was for Princess Sonia, another for her own squad, and the last for daring to bully Fam. That was Gregory's punishment. He tried to stop the boy by choosing his words. Then Zeke delivered the final blow, driving Gregor's head straight into the ground. Stopping, he straightened up and looked at the disfigured traitor. The man's face was beaten to the point of being unrecognizable. Immediately, Zeke coughed, realizing that his strength had run out. Girls ran up to him, trying to grab the guy who was already falling off his feet. They needed to notify the princess of Gregory's imprisonment. Fam's eyes filled with tears, and she began to blame herself for what had happened to the boy as the poison took effect. Zeke smiled at Fam, understanding now what she really was, with feelings hidden deep inside. He was glad that the girl was now free of her emotions, while the girl was crying bitterly and begging him not to die, reminding him of her promise. Zeke couldn't feel his body anymore. The demon Agito remained alive and watched from the side of the squad, admitting defeat and the loss of the ball of light. Greor fell, losing both his dignity and demonic power. But Higito was only satisfied that he had managed to touch the ball of light. He wanted to know how much Zeke had suffered. At this time, Spinosa picked up the hero and tried to put him on the cart, carefully supporting him. Thus, the 5th Squad arrested Greor and returned to the capital, where they received help from the royal family's personal healers, who were able to keep Zeke alive. Everyone advised the guy to rest for a few months after treatment, but after a few days he felt good, which even the doctors were surprised. Eleanor was promoted to captain for her dedication to duty and protecting the princess. The 5th Squad was presented for awards. Handing the order to Zeke, Princess Sonia thanked him for completing the task and returning the ball of light, noting that the world would have died without him. Spinosa, without hesitation, asked if the princess would not deprive them of a reward. They were embarrassed, but Sonia just smiled and promised that they would not be left empty-handed. Noticing Zeke's ruined clothes, she offered to order him a new one. She remained delighted that he risked his life for the ball of light and asked him to come closer to her. Zeke leaned down so that the princess could kiss the top of his head. She blessed him and wished that all danger would pass from him. Seeing this scene, the townspeople cheered, and the girl was embarrassed by their enthusiastic looks and exclamations. Word began to spread that the princess had opened her heart to the guardian, rejoicing at the occasion. Blushing, Sonia explained that it was a sign of gratitude and respect, after which the people calmed down. They were sure that the girl had fallen in love, just didn't want to admit it. The town discussed this topic for a while, but in any case, the princess allowed herself to show her feelings, which only made her people love the princess more. Meanwhile, Eleanor also pictured kissing the top of the guy's head. After the celebration, Zeke was about to go to bed when a knock on the door stopped him. Fam came to see him. He was surprised that the girl had spoken to him. Fam admitted that she just wanted to see the guy and give him something. Fam tried to find the guy's old gloves, but they were unusable, and because of this, she gave him a new pair. Zeke had only said that she shouldn't have spent the money on him, but that was how she wanted to express her gratitude. He realized that Fam now considered him her partner and smiled warmly at that. Fam admitted that it confused her but did not deny it. With a smile, she promised never to betray the squad. The girl added that she had used a knife to carve Zeke's name into his new pair of gloves. Zeke appreciated the way the girl stuck to the details. She says that in every battle, Zeke will wear a gauntlet with her signature on it, tying their bond. He didn't take it in his head, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he thanked her for the gift. The girl grinned and said that he would always remember her from now on. When she yawned, Zeke noticed that she was tired. Sitting on the bed, Fam asked if she could spend the night with him. But Zeke didn't understand the question, because she was already sleeping next to him every night. Fam immediately agreed and realized that she didn't need to ask for permission. She lay down on the edge of the bed, waiting for him to join her. Fam didn't want to sleep under the bed and asked if he would be comfortable sharing the bed. Smiling, she thanked the guy for accepting her and treating her like a comrade despite what had happened. Zeke smiled back at her, assuring her that they would work together now. He was grateful that Fam trusted him now and even risked her life to save him. The girl continued to yawn, and the guy just smiled. She said goodnight and fell asleep. In his mind, he knew that Fam couldn't still confide in others because of the past. He stroked her head, hoping she wouldn't have any more nightmares. It was important for Fam to keep her distance from others so that she wouldn't get hurt herself. But she remembered all the good moments with her friends, their kind words and sincere smiles. The girl relied on them, especially Zeke. His kindness helped her realize that she could trust others. There was an unusual figure standing in the guards' barracks that surprised Zeke with its presence. It was Eleanor. The girl greeted the guy with arrival. Zeke did not forget to congratulate the girl on her promotion. Eleanor admitted that she wanted to achieve the title of captain herself, so she could not afford to be sincerely happy about it. Zeke told the girl that, in all of history, there are few cases when people of Eleanor's age have become captains, adding that she was able to gain the trust of others for her actions, when, as a girl, she was surprised by such support. Confused, the girl suggested that what was said could be a marriage proposal, but the guy immediately refuted her guess. Bolton said they were happy to have Eleanor as captain of the Knights, because, unlike Greor, she would be much easier to operate on. He added that, according to the official version, the guy died in the line of duty, so Eleanor will have to work hard. Zeke asked the audience why they had summoned him. The man explained that Gregor's plot had led to heavy losses among the Knights, and they urgently needed to find new ones. Normally, the guards would guard the capital, but now they would need to give some of their forces to the Knights to strengthen the defenses of the entire country. Eleanor assured them that if Zeke's party joined the Knights, the anxiety among the people would subside. But Spinosa didn't like the offer, saying they didn't get enough to deal with the extra hassle. Fam sighed at the girl's words, making sure that she was just trying to get out of work. Cyra tried to convince her companion that they needed to protect and help the people of the country, but Spinosa only scoffed at her words. She was unflattering about the girl's well-being, which confused the girl, but quickly explained that she meant something else. After hearing the adventurer's displeasure, Eleanor assured that she would arrange with the princess to have a special reward allocated to the party. After that, Spinosa softened in his words, and Fam was not impressed by this change of mood of the girl. But as Eleanor was about to announce an important thing to them, the squad's attention was on her. Knight Lieutenant Nalthos came in. Keeping his face serious, he stated that the monsters in the area were starting to behave strangely, several villages were affected, and it would be necessary to destroy the nests of the monsters. Once outside the city, the heroes came out of their carriage, holding various equipment. The lieutenant explained that the monsters are called Usai. They kidnap girls from villages and also destroy plantations. He chuckled, adding that the squad wouldn't need any help, but the team was busy eating a certain delicacy that looked strange but still tasted good. Realizing that no one was listening, he concluded that the squad should protect themselves, but suddenly a shout broke out. After the heroes ate an incomprehensible substance, Cyra and Spinosa changed into their male forms. Cyra was not thrilled, shedding tears, while Spinosa burst out laughing. Fam did not change in appearance, but only grew up. Zeke stood behind her as a woman, knowing that they shouldn't have eaten what Spinosa had brought with them. The lieutenant did not comment on the situation in any way, but only stood and was silent from what he saw. Suddenly, Spinosa was confused by something about Zeke. She noticed the changes in the guy's body and was very surprised by it. Her desire was to examine him, but he saw the approaching threat. Zeke didn't have the ability to defend against the approaching Spinosa. Nahhat tried to stop such an awkward scene by shouting at them to start working. He sent everyone to the carriage and sighed. Looking back at Zeke, Nahhat admitted to himself that he didn't really like the adventurer. He didn't see the adventurer on the same level as Captain Eleanor, despite the princess' own admiration. The lieutenant had feelings for the captain, but Zeke had managed to melt her frozen heart. He recalled the girl's words that expressed passion towards the adventurer. Nahhat was already tired of hearing it. When he was assigned a mission to destroy monsters, Nahhat was confident that this was his chance to accomplish the feat and win Eleanor's attention. The girl said that the 5th squad will help the lieutenant in carrying out the mission. He was upset that seeing the look on her face when talking about Zeke made him understand her feelings. Nahhat wanted the adventurer to disappear and not get in his way. At this time, Zeke was approached by Spinosa, still in his male form, who tried to touch the guy, but Zeke reminded her that this was a crime. Spinosa wanted to try out all the charms of what it's like to be a guy. Zeke didn't comment, and Cyra didn't understand what she meant, while Fam didn't have any hope. The lieutenant was angry that he had come across such a mediocre squad. He was annoyed and wanted to beat up the guy. After a while, they found a nest of Usai and muscular sentry rabbits. Nahhat had warned them that they couldn't get close enough in the open, and any movement they saw would give them away. Zeke assigned Fam to deal with them. Laughing, the girl launched her arrows at all the rabbits. One of the knights was surprised by the girl's skills, saying that even the best archer in the squad could not hit a single target from such a distance. Zeke informed the lieutenant that they had dealt with the sentries and was preparing to clear the nest. Despite the change in height, Fam did not lose her skills. At the nest, Nahhat announced a battle formation. Zeke volunteered to be a shield, which surprised the lieutenant because after changing the gender it would be ineffective, because there were a lot of enemies expected. But Zeke insisted and promised to do the job by relying on the strength of the knights. Nahhat turned away, adding that they didn't need the squad's help. Spinosa did not like the lieutenant's behavior and did not want to protect him, but Zeke convinced her, saying that they need to help everyone so that they do not get hurt. But then he noticed that the Usai had already surrounded the group. Their eyes sparkled amidst the dark space. Fam was sure that the tunnel was connected and that they had already been notified of the strangers. Individuals of different subspecies that specialized in attack, magic, and defense. There was also one monster that mutated. A mutated gorilla stood in front of the heroes, blocking their path. With a flick of his finger, he caused the other USI species to attack the squad. The squad was attacked surreptitiously, which the lieutenant immediately noticed and reported to Zeke. The adventurer advised Nahhat to think about attacks and not worry. The monsters closed in on the lieutenant, and as he covered himself with his arm, he saw Cyra save him by stabbing the enemy with her dagger. She was pleased with the abilities she gained after turning into a guy. Fam pointed her bow, grinning at the fact that they were chanting more slowly. Launching arrows, she defeated several more enemies. At this time, Spinosa dealt with the rest of the mutants with her own hands, feeling great thanks to her new powers. The knights were intimidated by the girl's dirty technique. Nahhat noticed that all the strong mutants were running at Zeke, assuming that the adventurer was provoking them himself, while not taking any damage. He was convinced by Eleanor's words when she was praising the boy's strength. But then he realized that Zeke's 5th squad was taking matters into their own hands, knocking out any chance Nahhat and his knights might have of completing the mission. He was afraid that Eleanor might be disappointed in him for relying on the strength of the squad, but he also knew that the girl might not have been thinking about him. By taking up a fighting stance with a sword, he couldn't offend the proud name of the Night Squad and needed to act to accomplish the feat. He shouted that he would personally deal with the Usai and ran towards the enemy. Unexpectedly, the mutated gorilla roared at the top of its voice, which removed the iron target effect from the squad. Many rabbits swooped down on the lieutenant, one of them holding a bat with nails and aiming his blow directly at the young man's head. But suddenly, he felt a punch in the face from the other side. Zeke helped him, pushing the lieutenant out of the way of incredible death. The girls, still in their male roles, looked back at the guys who were trying to get up from their seats. Nahhat didn't understand why Zeke had saved him. The adventurer reminded him that he wouldn't let death take his comrades and promised to protect everyone. Lieutenant Nalthos suddenly blushed at that. But their conversation was interrupted by a gorilla who jumped in the direction of the boys. The lieutenant asked Zeke to deal with this as soon as possible, and Zeke stabbed the mutant in the torso. They finally finished clearing out the Usai nest, hoping they wouldn't encounter it again. There was only one entrance to the cave, and the heroes decided to block it so that nothing would come out. The lieutenant was interested in how they could do this, and once again Zeke came to the rescue. He asked everyone to move back, as it might be dangerous. He used the pain return ability, which caused a pile of rocks to fall on the single passageway, creating a dense wall. This ability allows you to accumulate and release damage received earlier. It was the first time Zeke had used it unconsciously in the previous battle, but through training he had learned how to control it. The knights were surprised that the adventurer managed to deal with this in one blow. A smile appeared on the lieutenant's face. He admitted that the feat had been taken away from him, but that didn't bother him anymore, since he didn't consider Zeke and his squad as enemies. Nalthos saw him as a reliable companion. The man held out his hand and thanked him for saving his life, not forgetting to praise him for the work done. But deep down, he still wasn't going to give all of Eleanor's attention to Zeke and squeezed his hand, which the adventurer immediately noticed. On the way home, the fruit's effects ended, and the fifth squad returned the former bodies. Spinosa liked the effect, and Zeke admitted that he was glad that she was born a girl. He himself was only uncomfortable and knew that he would have to train more. As they were crossing the bridge, Cyra noticed something in the river and asked everyone to stop. She noticed the girl who was lying under the bridge. The heroes immediately went down to help the person and checked her breathing. The girl was breathing, but she had hypothermia, and it was necessary to take her to the capital as soon as possible. Cyra sat down next to her and tried to reassure her that she was safe. After examining it, she opened her eyes. The girl recognized the face. Alma lay before them. Back in the capital, Lieutenant Nalthos handed Zeke his new uniform from Her Majesty. Zeke thanked the guy and immediately changed into his new clothes. His companions complimented him on the fact that the gloves Fam had given him fitted the image well, and he now looked like a guard. Captain Eleanor had planned to hand over the uniform herself, but the lieutenant managed to persuade her to take over the task, as he didn't want to look at the girl's lovesick face. One of the guards came to tell them that Cyra was allowed to visit the girl she had found. Alma was already awake, and Bolton was sitting next to her. When Cyra saw Alma, she couldn't resist hugging her with tears and relief that her friend was still alive. However, Alma couldn't recognize Cyra, which made her uneasy. Their doubts were limited to whether the girl's condition was temporary. Amnesia was suspected. Alma confirmed this by admitting that she couldn't remember anything and that her mind was just blank. Bolton believed Cyra that if Alma knew her, then she wasn't a spy, but he decided to keep an eye on her. Alma asked for a job so she wouldn't be a burden. Bolton noted that the girl retained her good qualities and offered her a job in the 5th Squad, but Spinosa immediately ran up to her, trying to dissuade her from the offer. She also offered to lie to her that she had previously worked as a nobleman so that she could be knighted. Alma understood the girl's words at once and said with some concern that she had been a member of the Royal Society before she lost her memory. The lieutenant immediately noticed her uncertainty, but Spinosa noted that the girl does not know how to lie. Alma's cheeks were flushed from lying, her thoughts were muddled, and she couldn't think of an explanation. Zeke asked Cyra who she really was. She worriedly tried to back up the story, but it didn't seem convincing. The man decided to take the girl to the squad, promising better conditions. Alma was delighted, although Spinosa and Zeke did not support her. He assured her that even with her lost memory, she would be able to fit in. Cyra smiled at the girl and trusted her powers. Alma readily promised to rely on adventurers as well. The next day, the heroes were at the main gate. Zeke was concerned about Alma's memory loss, but the girl explained to him that she tried not to think about it too much. With a disappointed sigh, Spinosa reminded the girl that her snoring had disturbed her sleep. Alma's snoring so disturbed Spinosa that she tried to wake her up more than once during the night, but without success. Zeke understood that the girl might have been having a hard time all this time and decided not to blame her for sleeping so soundly, which Cyra agreed with. Alma loved her new surroundings, but she always had to thank the characters. Even today's breakfast Alma ate with pleasure, which surprised Spinosa. The girl was asked what she would do next, but she could not give an exact answer. Zeke was interested in Cyra and Alma's relationship. Cyra hadn't expected such a question and was about to answer, but the heroes were distracted by an incomprehensible sound. They were enemies who were heading towards the gate. Without wasting any time, Zeke called on everyone to defend the walls and asked Alma to go back inside. But Alma refused and volunteered to participate in the upcoming fight. Zeke glanced back at Cyra for advice, and the girl gave him a confident smile. Picking up a long dagger, she headed towards the enemies and landed on a branch. Alma ran up the tree branch to strike, something the monster itself didn't expect. As she leaped, she found herself face to face with the enemy, but she kept the determination in her eyes. She delivered a deafening blow, cutting the tree in half. She successfully defeated the first enemy. The squad was very impressed with her abilities. Fam noted her calmness and quick decisions. Zeke added that the movements seemed light and the style was similar to Cyra's. Alma was genuinely pleased by the praise. Zeke recalled how she had chosen a combat suit and decided on a maid outfit, which made him think about her past. After gaining strength, the squad prepared to finish off the remaining monsters. Alma asked to leave them to her, promising to protect her comrades. After a hard day, the heroes decided to relax at the hot springs. Alma didn't expect the monsters to attack them 4 times in a row. They had to go down into the sewers to exterminate the giant mice, and the girl did not expect that the guards' work would be so difficult. Spinosa, dissolving in the hot spring, said that it was still flowers, which surprised Alma. But she also admitted that the sewers were really a terrible place. They were greeted by a stranger and thanked for cleaning the sewers, as the monsters gnawed all the provisions in the warehouses. She noticed Alma and complimented her on her first day on the job. Crouching closer, she lightly patted her on the head, reminding her not to hesitate to ask for help. Spinosa wanted the stranger to thank her for something, but she immediately warned her that she would have to repay her debt. Alma was surprised by how easily the stranger approached her, despite her amnesia, adding that the girl would be avoided because of this. Still, she was grateful for the kindness of her companions. Spinosa explained that there are many fugitives here, just like the heroes themselves. Alma asked her about her past, but Cyra offered her own options, either beat up someone or lost debts in gambling. After telling her story, she thanked the girls. Alma noticed Cyra's uncharacteristic politeness and refinement. Spinosa immediately asked about their origins. Fam only thought that the conversation had touched on a difficult topic. Spinosa tried to get the girls to talk, hinting at illegal activities, teasing Alma. She asked me to leave her alone. Fam could see that there was no malice in their words. The girl encouraged Cyra, saying that she might not share. Cyra apologized for her silence and admitted that she wasn't ready to open up to them yet. Everyone has their own secrets, but they will always be welcome in the 5th Squad. Fam reminded them that despite the past situation, her comrades continued to support her. Spinosa smiled and hugged Cyra and Alma, touching them tightly. The girls screamed at the top of their voices, demanding that Spinosa stop and move away from them. On the other side was the men's section, and they were interested in the girls' conversation. They tried to get closer to the wall, but they were held down by an incomprehensible force that made it impossible to move. Zeke used his ability to keep the men from making too much noise and continued to sit in the spring. After the bath, Alma happily drank milk. Spinosa found this habit strange, but Fam explained that it was a cultural trait of the Far East. Alma sniffed the air, hoping she'd manage to clean up the sewer smell. She was able to get rid of the smell thanks to the help of Spinosa, who wiped her entire body. Alma was satisfied after taking a bath after work. The girl felt as if she had been reborn again and smiled with a sigh. Looking back at the girl, Cyra couldn't help but smile, but she immediately let go of the thoughts she couldn't shake. Zeke came up to them, seeing that the girls had come out of the springs. He suggested that we go out for dinner, while throwing Alma a welcome party. Spinosa held a glass and a mug of beer and greeted Alma in the ranks of the guards. Just as the mugs were about to hit, a man flew into their table, completely scattering the food to the sides. Spinosa glowered back at the men as the other man swooped down on him with his fists. A fight broke out. Those present began to place bets, and Spinosa joined the fight. Zeke and Alma were sitting off to one side, quietly eating. She noticed that things were getting too rough with her friends. Zeke was surprised she didn't mind the violence. Alma replied that it was good if they had a lot of energy. She liked the locals for their simplicity and felt at home among them. Spinosa subdued the bullies by inviting them to buy her drinks for the next month. The men accepted the terms. Alma said that everyone has their own past, which cannot be judged. They will try to use the rich, please the beautiful, and no one will hide their nature. Looking back at Spinosa, who was already clinking mugs with the bullies, Alma concluded that they were all equal. Zeke smiled at the girl's words and took a sip from his mug. Alma asked the guy's opinion about the work done, asking if she had helped. Zeke expressed his joy that the girl had joined them. Alma admitted that it is nice when a person is praised. That same evening, a battle broke out in Rodel Forest. The squad was led by Captain Eleanor, who dodged the blows until an arrow suddenly sank into one of her comrades. The girl clicked her tongue in exasperation. Despite the darkness, they were fired from several directions with surprising accuracy. She was trying to figure out who the shooter was and where he was hiding. At this time, the demon shooter was watching the squad and licked his lips predatorily. Even before the attack on the Order of Knights, there were lifeless bodies riddled with arrows in the village of Gabo. Eleanor regarded the situation as intimidating. Her partner agreed with the captain's words, adding that almost all the villagers were killed, but the village itself was not damaged. One of the surviving residents was unable to identify the enemy, which only caused complications in solving the crime. Lieutenant Naltos reported that a quick survey of the surrounding area showed no signs of the enemy. Eleanor thanked the guy for his help and was about to announce the next order. But the girl decided to temporarily retreat as they did not have any signs. Respectively, there is no further plan. At this time, they were being watched by a demon archer, who was disappointed that the knights quickly retreated. Sitting on a rock, he happily declared that they would not be able to get out of the forest and drew his arrow at the new prey. He wondered if the knights would realize that they were now in the same situation as the villagers and released the arrow. The arrow immediately flew at one of the knights and pierced through his armor, which immediately attracted the attention of the captain and lieutenant. The demon readied its next arrow, starting its hunt. He once again released arrows that hit the other knights. Eleanor noticed that red-feathered arrows were also on the corpses of the villagers and urged everyone to take cover. The demon burst out laughing, saying that it was useless to hide. His gaze penetrated through the eye of a needle, allowing him to easily track down knights and kill them. The knights continued to die from arrows that appeared from an unknown direction. The enemy could see them even in the forest, arrows flying from all directions. Nalthos assumed that there were several opponents. Eleanor knew that the squad was probably trapped and needed to get out of the field of fire right away. She ordered to strengthen the defense and retreat as soon as possible. The captain asked Cherio to lead the squad, and the girl immediately accepted the order. Eleanor decided to stay in the rear, which Nalthos did not like, and asked the girl to leave this duty to him. But the girl refused the lieutenant, saying that as the head of the order, this is her responsibility, and called on everyone to retreat to the capital. Nalthos tried to persuade the captain to take him on as an assistant. Eleanor smiled back at him, trusting him. After mounting their horses, the knights tried to return to the capital. The demon, still sitting on the tree branch, attacked the knights, laughing at the whole situation along the way. The knights defended themselves from the arrows with their shields. The demon noticed Eleanor among the knights, noting her professional qualities. Capitana took up her sword, trying to protect her colleagues. The demon saw her desire to protect her charges and assumed that she was the captain of the knights. He drew his arrow, aiming directly at the girl. If he could kill her, it would be a great catch. He fired an arrow, but the lieutenant managed to deflect it. New arrows rained down on the heroes, who were saved only by the dexterity of their blades. The demon was just playing around, waiting for Eleanor's strength to run out. She said, "Oops, missed." An arrow flew straight at her while the girl was riding. Checkmate. The arrow stuck in the middle of his chest. Nalthos was badly hurt. Let them definitely survive. Nalthos' head turned and his lifeless body was bleeding. Let Lady Eleanor not let his sacrifice be in vain. The girl just clicked her tongue in response. Ah, they escaped. You can't count on more, even for someone like her. If you could kill her, then it wouldn't be difficult to kill everyone else. But she was saved, and not bad. This person likes it, let them come again. She was badly injured. Her head and hands were bandaged, although they were able to return. But the girl completely failed as the head of the order and was unable to protect her subordinates. She was very upset about this fact. If he hadn't saved the girl, then she would be dead right now. Nalthos is a hero, she was obliged to protect them all. But she couldn't, moreover, it was her who was protected, and because of this, the guy. If the girl had enough strength, she would have done everything to prevent them from dying. She was very disappointed in herself, speaking with a serious face. That is why she is so suitable for this position. But there are lives that were saved only because of the girl. Just like that, Mrs. Eleanor was supported. They were able to return here only because she protected them. In order to save her life, Nalthos risked his own. He perfectly fulfilled his duty. And if you want to repay him, then you need to complete the mission. If Eleanor leaves now, then the guy's sacrifice will be in vain. He told the girl what she wanted to hear the most. Completing the mission would be enough to stifle her guilt and regret. Yes, you can't always be depressed, and in order to repay everyone for their hard work, the girl continued to talk. She will definitely find the enemy and destroy them, the guy proudly said. This is our Eleanor. Both of them smiled slightly as they spoke. And they will also help. You need to eliminate the risk factors as soon as possible, but it will be difficult to compete with an unknown opponent. The guy thought about it and put his hand to his chin. Fam doesn't have any proof, but she has a feeling that what she wants to say. The girl has heard that there is a shooter among the demons who can accurately shoot even at a distance of 10 kilometers. What? As much as 10? It seems that this demon is just enjoying the hunt. If this is true, then he probably acted alone. Then the girl said in a whisper, there were rumors that Ikuto wanted to recruit this archer, but he refused. And its distinctive feature is considered arrows with a black shaft and red plumage. And the truth is, the features coincide. In this case, they can think out a little strategy. The guy smiled and said, "It's all right, he will protect Eleanor, he won't let anyone else hurt her. How cute it is." The girl looked at him. But suddenly, Eleanor clutched her chest. Maybe her wounds hurt. Maybe she should call the doctor. It was because of the fact that she was mentally damaged. She was sitting curled up. She raised her head and said, "If the guy is with her, then she has nothing to fear. She will definitely destroy this demon." Eleanor spoke confidently. "It's time to take revenge? This is the same girl? She's back? This is the face? She came to destroy this person? Great, so I want to start. This is the whole point of hunting. What will be the expression of the face when there are corpses of comrades around? It is better to consider this forest as his hunting grounds. It is worth being vigilant." The girl who was riding on horseback mumbled something, then asked what that sound was. He clicked, "So heavy and you can't even think that they are arrows." Alma was thanked. "But what is it?" The girl heard that same sound again. The guy turned around and said that since she was with them, then Alma could find out his location now. Oh, they were moving, people were riding horses, it was completely useless to run. This time, they would all be killed for sure. This man took aim and fired. The arrow flew straight at the guys. The girl noticed it. He immediately put up a shield to repel the attack. Oh, even though the trajectory changed, but the arrow still flew at him, is that his ability? He's not so sure that he can handle his attacks alone. It's so annoying. The archer said that wasn't it. An excellent target. Let's see how much longer the guy can hold on. The shooter took aim again. How stubborn he is. But that doesn't change the fact that the best are in an absolutely superior position. No matter how skilled an archer was, and no matter what magic he used, he couldn't reach it at this distance, and the guy would die like a small fish without understanding the enemy's location. To win, the prerequisite is not to lose, and the archer will not lose until he dies. In order not to die, it is better not to be attacked by the enemy. Without exposing himself, he will continue to attack unilaterally. It's time to finish with them. Something happened. The archer was standing on a tree with a weapon and asked, "Eh?" Standing behind him, threatening the archer with a knife, holding it to the throat, "This is checkmate." The enemy suddenly appeared that the archer did not even notice his presence. They were riding a horse, and noticed that the shots were coming from the southeast. From the moment the sound spread to the arrival of the arrow takes 10 seconds. 2 shots came from the west. The arrival is 3 seconds faster than before. They are approximately near the target. It is necessary to turn to the west now and will drive further. There was a boy hanging from above, with a big smile, horns on his head, feathers falling out of his collar. The archer was approached from behind, but how did they find him? The guys have a person with good hearing, so they were able to determine the approximate location of the enemy by the sound of arrows, and since his exact position could not be determined, they brought him here. In order to drive him into a corner, it was necessary that the guy constantly shot. Thanks to the fact that their commander risked his life, the guys were able to do this. I see, so this stubborn man was actually a decoy. The archer was outsmarted. He hasn't introduced himself yet. The archer's name is Flavi, and he's a poor demon who enjoys hunting people. Flavi turned around and asked the opponent who was holding a knife at his throat, "By the way, does this person have demonic blood?" "That's right, of course. They are the same race. How else? This person is a half-breed." So after all, if so, then she probably went through a lot and people must have done a lot of bad things, and the number of times she was betrayed is beyond counting. The girl was hated and despised, and there was no place to go back to, but she said nothing as she came to this demon. This was something she had heard before, a little girl, the child of a demon and a human. For the sake of survival, she spied for the demons, lost among the people. The girl deceived them and betrayed them. So she's on the side of humans right now. Is she being used like this, or forced to? Humans and demons can't understand each other. Anyway, the girls haven't been betrayed yet, so it's better to betray them first. The archer smiled broadly at her and said, "If you do that, you can live without getting burned, right?" The guy walked away and turned to her. "So will the half-blood demon team up with him?" His sniper ability and its secret, if you combine the forces of these two, then no one will lose. The archer will protect the girl from any enemy, no matter how far he was. But will the girl betray her allies for him? "After all, she wants a peaceful life," the half-breed replied. That the archer says interesting things, of course. It's easy to deceive Flavi now and say yes, but even so, she refuses. The demon will never betray people again. The girl realized something. There is a person who showed her this, risking his life, showed how nice it is to trust people. She smiled. Flavi said, he was rejected. Apparently, this was a man who is good at attracting people to his side. Yes, it's true, he is just wonderful. The demon exhaled and said that he admits that he was beaten. Let him do whatever he wants. It's a joke. The girl looked at the archer with a menacing smile and said sorry, but she can read the hearts of the heartless best. Flavi was flying down and didn't understand anything. Then the demon began to bleed. It was pierced by something long. The girl was standing on the edge and held the guy on her weapon, which was completely on him. The demon was also bleeding from the mouth. Flobby turned around and gasped, "Damn, there was also her." The girl was serious. "Well, to die at the hands of a beautiful woman is also not bad," let the demon answer at last. "Why did he attack people?" "There's no particular reason. I guess he just likes to test his archery skills, just like when they hunt deer or birds. Although, no, unlike deer and birds, people beg for mercy." Flubby replied, very sorry, and started to fall, bleeding profusely, as the girl let go of the weapon. "The mission is completed. They are coming back." The guys understood and waited for them. Nalthos wasn't found. Only his earrings were left at the scene. This is exactly the same place. There were parts of armor and bloodstains. It's good, of course, if he managed to survive, but he was mortally wounded. Even if he survived, the guy wouldn't be able to get that far. The search team will take care of this and let them return, but the guys helped a lot with taming Flavi. "We can't stress them anymore. The guards also have a job to do." They were thanked for being worried. As expected, she's not in her usual state. She doesn't take on too much. And that's how the mission to subdue Flobby ended, after which Commander Bolton gave them a leave of absence. Cyra gets along so well with Zeke. The guys wave goodbye. The 5th squad has the weekend off. They all look cheerful, which is good, yes. And this is what Alma does in a place like this, the girl was called. What? Zeke and Cyra go out together on the weekend. Are they dating? And the guy asks her not to talk like those kids from the church. Yes, definitely, definitely. Let them say that first of all they are colleagues. The girl congratulates. You cannot say this, and the guys do not meet. More importantly, she's also having a lot of fun with the kids from the city. They seem to be interested in the recent battle in the woods. They've been told what it was like, and the 5th squad has been teased for being made up of problem people, so they're starting to appreciate it. They heard that the demon in the forest was defeated thanks to Alma's efforts. If it wasn't for her, everyone would be dead by now. That, after all, it is true that the guys without her would not be able to detect the location of the enemy. This is true, but something he does not remember that they became subordinates of the girl, only she thinks so. This is her subjective vision, how stubbornly she resists. Alma is asked when she became a subordinate of the girl. What the hell is she talking about there? Bragging about something all over the city. But if you don't say anything, then no one will notice. The girl is going to brag about her achievements as much as she can. She wants everyone to praise the girl, and she doesn't care what kind of shame she will have to go through. If Alma is carried in her arms in the end, is it normal to be so shameless? But isn't it bad that the people of the city will think better of Alma, even if she is very susceptible to flattery? And what about the memories? The girl did not remember that she had amnesia, until Zeke reminded her how carefree. Maybe if the girl is well applied, then her memory will return to her. In addition, she finally got used to life in the capital. It seems that she doesn't need to force herself to return her memories. If it doesn't work out, Cyra is the only one who at least knows something about Alma's past. Does her words have a different, deeper meaning? Simple-minded, easily deceived, likes to show off and wants to be praised. But she works with her sincerity and enjoys the trust of the townspeople. And also, most of all, likes to eat. The Alma who now spends time in the capital. Then the 5th Company, along with the Knights, guarded the great bridge over the river Mirion, which separates the inner territories from the outer ones, and Alma became a candidate for the captain of the company. It seems that the commander heard the positive opinion of her in the city and decided so. But why did Cyra also? The girl heard that she can find a common language with anyone, so it's not surprising. Of course, anyone who looks at her breasts will immediately become supportive. But that's not what was meant, probably. The reason is that there are no people in the capital who would treat Cyra badly. Everyone just adores her. Even when there were arguments within the squad, thanks to Cyra's soft aura, things were getting better. The girl was a vital function for the 5th squad, and in truth, it would be hard for Zeke to bring all these troublesome team members together. Is there a desire to move up the career ladder? Zeke thinks that she can lead people, and he forgot that the girl has problems with communication. The demon can't even look people in the eye. Is she proud of that? Besides, the girl is ready to live by dedicating her life to him. Even if Zeke leaves this job, a carefree life is more suitable for her. It's all hard. Well, isn't it too much responsibility for someone like her? The guard whistled, but he didn't know why. Because there were no signs of an army gathering in front of the gate. An army of soldiers were marching on the gate. Aren't they demons? This is the army of the kingdom of Sosara. One of them was riding on a horse with armor and a mask on his face, which had horns attached. The city is being attacked by Sozar's army. The guard realized with panic that a battle was about to begin. The horses were also dressed in armor. This man, who was mounted on a horse and wore an iron mask with horns attached to it, rode forward straight to the city gate. The Mage Kingdom attacks that. The Mage Kingdom is a state neighboring Astaroth from the east. It is ruled by a king who is reputed to be a great swordsman. Zeke has heard that they have a good relationship with them. This is now King Sylvester's territory. They won't be able to cross this post without permission. They're asking to leave it. Don't the attackers think that they should stop now? The guards have prepared their weapons and shouted, "Stop! They are breaking through by force. Are they really going to start a war?" If so, it will be terrible if they seize this bridge. To get to these lands from the east, you need to cross a large river, and there are no other options than crossing this bridge. In other words, if they stopped the attackers here, they would prevent a war. But they had a force of at least a few hundred men or more, and barely 50 guards. There are a lot of people living behind them. It's just like the gatekeeper's job. Zeke will just protect the place he was assigned. He's a real man. Zeke is with them. Now they can't disgrace the honor of the Night Order. They will strike back. Wow, the Night Order is also emboldened. Just Zeke's presence gives them confidence. It's okay. The guy will definitely protect them all. He's the king of the kingdom of magicians, the great swordsman, Sodom, for their great aspirations, and for the sake of peace and humanity, they must destroy Astaroth. Is this the king of Sodom? So even if they didn't dare interfere with their progress, the king was formidable and made serious speeches. He was determined. Then there was an explosion and smoke, and the king drew his sword and bellowed. This is the power of the best swordsman. It was something superhuman. The guards were hit because of the attack. The guy was holding a shield. The king asked, "He's Zeke, isn't he?" The king knows Zeke, and he has heard rumors that there is a man who specializes in defense and has taken revenge on demons many times. The king came closer and said that he wanted to see how long Zeke would last and attack the guy. As the battle continued, Zeke defended himself with his shield, watched the enemy closely, and then drew his weapon. They fought. The fighters took up weapons and shields. The battle was in full swing. The blast wave was just terrifying. One of the warriors said, "Let's continue on His Majesty's road. Push the knights behind." The archers let out arrows. What? All the arrows flew with that guy and His Majesty? The soldiers apologized to the king for such a mistake? He clicked. There was a command to stop the attack. For some reason, arrows and magic are rushing towards Zeke, and His Majesty, who is between them and the knights, is in danger, ordered the Night Orders to attack from the side. The attack continued. The enemy did not even think to retreat. Someone jumped right out on the battlefield and said, "So go ahead for Spinosa." The girl attacked the opponents and said, "Hey, small midges, let them not turn into minced meat." The warriors were thrown in different directions from her strength. Even if the fighters didn't pay attention and moved on, well, a berserk demon would cover her. She probably wouldn't have given up even in this position. Even if these guys are wounded, they hide it very well. They are not afraid to die. The warriors were attacked again. The girl attacked everyone. The girl's training is over. Let everyone get back on her back. The king ordered all the troops to retreat. Why? But they will most likely win. Why don't this army attack now? Damage return. Zeke focused on the fight, folded his arms and held out one with a sword, the other holding a shield, standing alone among his enemies. After swinging the sword, the ground beneath their feet began to crumble, and the warriors who had fallen into the deep pit began to cry out in fear. The destruction was getting bigger, more and more. The monster was being destroyed. They were very surprised at this outcome. The king turned around and told his men that they were all retreating. The order was given. The army would return later. What a coup from a terrifyingly disadvantageous position. The mages retreated with such a huge army. Even if they decided to go around, they probably wouldn't have enough resources. So today, they would probably calmly return to their own place. But, more importantly, what was it, right? How was the guy able to destroy the brain? He was very strong. Zeke's strength surpassed even that of the best swordsman. He just used up all the lessons he learned from the king of Sodom, in addition to the impregnable defense. The guy also has the power to attack. The guy is really very interesting. What a dangerous man he is. Zeke has withstood a bunch of attacks with enough power to destroy a bridge. The destruction of the bridge is a big loss. However, they still forced the enemy to retreat. It was enough. But what the hell did they want? Their country's resources are very scarce. What's the point of invading here at all? Maybe they have something that others don't. Maybe their sphere of light. Let's not talk nonsense. If they wanted something that would bring such a powerful country trouble, then the man would gladly give it. He really is very interested in their goals, because the kingdom of magicians has always been one of those that maintain peace and harmony with its neighbors. They were trying not just to win, but to destroy the enemy. Yes, they attacked with insane zeal. They'll probably find out if they ask directly. Zeke was standing behind the girl. This is Eleanor. She was recognized. She has the same beautiful, noble face today. How I want to see this face distorted by pain. "It's Zeke," the girl screamed. "Save me." What happened between them with the tiara? The guy said, "Well, different things." The girl does not behave as usual. It seems that she has an injury. She has never seen Tiara like this, so it will be impossible to talk. She asks to save her. Since it was because of him, shouldn't the guy take care of Tiara's mental state? Zeke approached her and told her that even if she didn't care, the guy didn't think anything bad of her. She asked if it was true. It was true. Even though Zeke hit her so hard, even though it was a false accusation, the guy said yes. Does that mean Zeke will stab her in the back later? He's not going to do that. Too much disbelief. The girl was struggling to do her job back then. You can't blame her for that. And besides, it didn't work out anyway, so there's no problem. Zeke is such a person, it seems that the girl has finally calmed down, so we can get down to business. And of course, there is no one who can withstand Tiara's torture. The guy cannot be considered. He is a special case. Even that Greor guy had almost given up. She was talking about that Greor guy. Yeah, he's enjoying reinventing himself right now. If you torment even a very proud man, it will bring positive results. Speaking of those captives, their original target was the Sphere of Light. Only Tiara didn't quite understand. He claimed that the Demon King would be reborn from the Sphere of Light. Maybe he was joking. The Demon King is the greatest threat to humans. No, it will all start when the Demon King is resurrected. Let them look at their non-local world. There are constant conflicts between people, and the strong oppress the weak. People continue to fight with other people, and if this continues, then peace will never come. Well, and what does the Demon King have to do with it? He is needed in order to take control of all people. The world will be ruled by the one who has the most power. Only then comes true peace. That's the case. It's not worth talking about. All the other prisoners of war are under the influence of the same ideology. Maybe they're under the control of demons. If they were controlled, they would become like puppets, and these clearly speak of their own free will. Although there is a possibility that there are demons behind the scenes and pulling the strings, if that's the case, then the situation is quite troublesome. If they were controlled, it would be enough to get rid of those who control them, but it won't work that way with them. The girl saw him and said, "There you are." Alma came back, and Zeke noticed, and so did Cyra. They heard that the guys were here and decided to come too. And what are they doing in the dungeon? Everyone is changing jobs. Zeke asked if she finished her mission. She wanted to show everyone how well she was doing her job. The guy recognized her as Captain of the Guard Alma, that Captain of the Guard. The girl has not yet become a unit commander. He heard that the girl ran out of prison. Did she ask for help from an enemy country? She doesn't have any honor at all? Escaped from prison, Alma. There was a lot of talk about the captain of the guard too. She didn't really understand, but he said some rude things. The girl wasn't in prison. Aaliyah was very startled by these words. What the hell is this girl here for? He saw Aaliyah and shouted, "You have betrayed the king, you despicable witch." So this girl has defected to the enemy. Oh, she's a traitor. He's the one who says that about Cyra. Why is this guy making such a noise? The prisoner called the girl Princess Arya. What does that mean? If it's hard to talk about it, then the guys can come out. Cyra thanked the girl for her concern, but don't. This situation requires an explanation. Cyra is a pseudonym of a girl. Her real name is Arya the Sorceress. She is the princess of the Kingdom of Magicians. A year and a half ago, she fled to this country, seeking asylum. The guys listened carefully. It turns out that King Sodom is Cyra's father, so why did the girl need shelter? There were many questions. Because her home country, the Mage Kingdom, was taken over by demons, the story might be a bit long. Can they listen? Originally, the Mage Kingdom was a state that disliked conflicts and preferred to find peaceful ways to resolve them through negotiations rather than military force. But even in such conditions, there were problems, such as a lack of resources or a gap between rich and poor. Everyone worked together to make this gap disappear. She liked the way things were in that country then. Her father was the strongest, bravest, and kindest. The people literally admired him. The girl was also taught the art of the sword by her father, and when the country was attacked by a wyvern, the man cut down the monster with just one blow of the sword. If you don't have the power, you will never be able to protect what you hold dear. Since you are the princess of this country, you should have the power to protect it, encouraged by Big Brother and everyone around you. Meeting Alma 9 years ago, she saw Alma flying around the city and hired her as a personal guard. She apologized to her uncle while riding him. Even though it was for the sake of survival, he asks for forgiveness. From the moment they started training together and improving their sword skills, the girl will become Arya's sword. She is so reliable. Alma understood, so that's why it was so warm then. The girl hugged her. Alma apologized for the fact that she forgot all this. It's okay, Cyra doesn't blame her. So Alma is also from the Kingdom of Magicians. She was also a captain of the guard. Before losing her memory, the girl was very gifted. That time, it was so peaceful and happy. However, not long after her brother left to study in another country, that peace suddenly ended. At that time, the country suffered from constant food shortages and unexpected attacks by monsters. People began to die of hunger and even set fire to the mansions of aristocrats in search of food. In general, the whole country fell into desolation, as if some curse had been imposed on it. My father tried to take control of this situation, began to travel all over the country, and soon the rioters reached the capital. To be honest, even her father would probably have run out of words and had to stop. However, he had suppressed the rebels by force, something that her father hadn't even thought about until then. And he said what this country needs right now is the rebirth of the Demon King. The country is falling apart, and this is due to miasma, which covers the whole country, kills crops, attracts monsters, poisons people's hearts, and calls the people to revolt. These were thoughtless words that seemed strange to everyone. At first, there were people who suspected that the father was not himself. However, these ideas received active support from a part of the population that had become extremely radicalized due to the prolonged famine. The influence of his father, a hero of the country, who continued to live in limited conditions, was quite strong. Despite the fact that there was a complete replacement of black and white in people's minds, it didn't take long. Everyone took the strange things that her father said as correct. It was so ridiculous that it became scary. These were the days when there was nothing to hold on to and nothing to ease her worries, and Cyra could only continue working on her sword skills while waiting for the day to come. Let Arya be humble, impossible. The kind face, which only looked stern, became demonic, and the image of her father completely disappeared, and the princess began to suspect that the other person was pretending to be her father. Finally, Cyra learned the truth about his transformation. She was so tired, it was time to go to bed. The girl decided to get ready to leave. Her father's voice, who was it that he was talking to at this time of night? Cyra had seen her father talking in the dead of night, listening to the person her father had assigned to a responsible position when he started acting weird. This servant clearly had a demon-like trait, the horns on his head, and he said that everything was going well. As well as the servant calling the girl's father by an unknown name, Cyra was very surprised by this turn of events. Then she thoroughly examined the Baron. The girl prayed that this creature pretended to be her father only in appearance. However, the princess recognized all his scars, even the smallest wounds matched. In addition, judging from her swordsmanship, it was definitely her father's, and the princess thought that this Baron probably controlled her father's body from the inside out. And then the girl finally realized that the country was being invaded by demons. After learning the truth, Cyra started trying here and there to help people get rid of this ideology, but she was the only one who knew the truth. The country was invaded by demons. The princess repeated to people that her father was replaced by a demon. All this is the fault of demons, said that these are not the words of the king. Cyra's father is not like that. But no matter how hard she tried, no one would listen to her, and how dare she call the king, her real father, a demon? Ungrateful. Arya was crazy. Just like that, she's just a little girl who can't do anything. Cyra was powerless. She couldn't even make sure of her brother's safety when he left for another country. So, before Cyra knew it, she was being considered a heretic. Arya is shouting everywhere that her father is a demon. Oh, how sad, poor girl. She couldn't accept the harsh reality and was completely confused, in which case he has no choice but to say his last word to her. The king ordered his servant to capture Arya the sorceress. He was too strict. Although this is his daughter, but the king cannot ignore the witch who destroys the country. Gee, they were completely surrounded with Alma. Let the girl run alone. If they catch the princess, then everything will be resolved peacefully and at least one will not fall into their hands. The girl told Arya that everything will be fine. She will definitely protect the princess. They will definitely survive together. If it comes to that, then definitely. Wow, the girl was so eager to try on something like this, and now it's time for the girls to go. The Baron must also know about the existence of this secret passage, so that he doesn't catch the two of them. Then we need to go around. It will be a little far. They will come out on the outskirts of the city. Hooray, the girls have found a great horse for the trip. They will just run away on it. Here she is, ordered to capture her. Did their disguise not work? How so? Alma immediately went to the attack. A flat blow. Let the princess leave everything to her, rather on the horse. The man grabbed her by the hair and said, "Gotcha, witch." The girl didn't have time to get on the horse. Alma was fighting and noticed it. Alma leapt at her opponent and drew her weapon, and the princess shouted the savior's name. The girl asked the princess to leave, and she did so, just cowardly ran away on a horse. Cyra cried in despair. She will definitely come back and save them. Her father and Alma. Just like that, Alma risked her own life and helped the girl escape the country. The demons used the girl's father and completely took over the country, so that's why she didn't want to tell. After that, the princess went to Astaroth to tell everything. Through Captain Bolton, the acting gatekeeper, Cyra applied for an audience with the king, however. The kingdom of mages has fallen into the hands of demons, and the demons are plotting to revive their king using the kingdom of mages. and if this continues, then this country will be in danger. Cyra asked to help her save the kingdom of mages. First, let her look at her dirty rags, and she wants to say that this is what the princess of another kingdom looks like. They got information that the princess of the magic kingdom died in an accident. She was told to disappear. She was refused an audience with the king, so Cyra left with nothing. The man apologized. Because the local nobility had bad manners, the princess could not even prove her own position. Her already insignificant funds were exhausted. Cyra's looking like she wants to die right now. Maybe she'll get some rest first. The man's only got a dirty barrack, but if he's okay with it, you can borrow it. The security situation in this city isn't very good. The princess has a friend who risked her life to save her, but she was powerless and just left her alone. Nowadays, there are so many monsters that such things happen, although the man does not know the details, but she also helped her escape. Then the princess cannot just die. The man put his hand on her head and stroked, let him take care of himself. In order to continue to live, you also need courage. After all, this is all that remains for Cyra. If there are difficulties, then let him speak. The man will help in any way he can. The girl said that she wanted to return to the place where everyone lived happily. Only she knows about the danger that lies in the kingdom of magicians. If the girl returns, she will not be able to do anything, and probably the princess will be executed. The Baron's goal is to revive the Demon King. The princess was writing something, hoping that her brother and Alma were safe. Cyra asked Bolton to hire a girl to be the guardian of this country, but the man is very strict, and that's okay, so she decided to stay here. The princess wanted to strike back at the Baron, and was looking forward to the day when she would be able to reclaim her kingdom. The girl was determined. Therefore, when the girl met Alma again, she felt a real relief. She is so glad that Alma is safe and sound. But apparently she could not escape, and she was still caught. So much had to endure because of the princess, and in general the savior risked her life. The girl does not think that she was ill-treated, because when checking at the entrance to the country, no signs of torture were found, nor any evidence that she was a criminal. Was Alma checked? The girl's memories are starting to come back. No, but Alma really feels like her head is foggy. She didn't want to say it, but maybe Alma had something to do with the lack of her own memories, something like brainwashing, like prisoners of war. Maybe the girl and Cyra have memories I want to remember. And it would be better for them to think it likely that she would become their enemy when her memories returned. I would like to believe otherwise. When the army of the Kingdom of Mages went to the Million Bridge, Cyra thought that the time had finally come. If it hadn't been for Zeke, a lot of people in Astaroth would probably have lost their lives. He just delayed the invasion. She didn't have to worry about that, but he must have been hurt. Zeke himself had explained to them that when you return the attacks accumulated with pain return, the damage still remains. Is it possible to transfer this pain to her, which the guy wouldn't have to take all this damage if the princess could stop everyone? Cyra doesn't think it's going to work out that way, but she wants to make up for it a little bit. Well, Zeke does have a skill called pain transfer that can transfer damage to another person, even though it was unconsciously, but he's already done it. But Zeke will refuse the girl's request, because she is going to return to the Kingdom of Magicians. He, as the captain of the 5th Squad, cannot let her go if the girl is going to risk her life so recklessly. In such circumstances, even if only one princess returns, she can't change anything. But what should the princess do next? Cyra can't continue to look at what is happening without doing anything. Let Zeke tell her what to do now for the princess, what to do to save the country. Everything turned out to be simple. All the guys started to smile. Zeke said that the girl can just rely on them and not worry about it. The princess is no longer alone. With them, it will probably be possible to change the situation, and continue to involve everyone in this. The guys don't mind if the princess draws them in. They are used to facing difficulties, and if it is left like this, the Magic Kingdom will definitely attack Astaroth, so this situation is not only the princess' problem. Even though Cyra doesn't have to take it all on her own, friends are supposed to help each other, right? Then she has no choice but to offer her candidacy as well. The princess also took care of Alma, so to serve, the least that she can, they will defeat the Baron together, whether it is a person of the royal family or someone else. Why are they all like this? The girl started crying and buried her face in it, because everyone loves the princess and wants to help. Everyone knows about the kindness of Cyra. If someone is in trouble, she is the fastest to rush to the rescue. Also in the church, she gave everything for the sake of the children. Their squad is so united thanks to the girl. And also, the princess said that she couldn't do anything, but she was able to make friends with Zeke, and this is a great success. The man said undoubtedly, after all, he alone is equal in strength to 100 people. They will all share the burden that the princess has taken on, and there is no need to be shy. Let them just trust them. Cyra thanked the guys for their support. If it became known that Astaroth had sent guards to the mages, it would lead to war, but in a world where demons flourish, It is not the time for countries to fight each other. Therefore, it is worth acting in his presence so that no one is discovered, very skillfully. If they do, then immediate suicide will be just right. Again, absurd. The girl giggled, and Zeke asked her to keep an eye on them. Has she really lived so long, a stubborn girl? I wish she would just obediently hide, but no, she is in a hurry to die. The man even feels sorry for her, and again brought a problem. Man with her, only this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Let them gather as many of Udogaf's demons as they can, the servant replied as he ordered. So the countdown to the Demon King's rebirth started, they exhaled, so here they are. The girl lifted her hood to get a better look, and said, "So this is the princess' home country." It's quieter than Zeke expected, and it doesn't look like it's being run by demons, because if brainwashing is involved, then it doesn't have to be run by demons themselves. So that Alma is not revealed, let her cover herself well with a hood. It hurts. The girl will not see anything ahead. In fact, the situation is not a joke. When Alma is around, she behaves strangely. The Baron is probably in the palace. She will show the way. The bell rang. The sad news is reported. Let the people of the Kingdom of Magicians listen. Their country has been invaded by security, threatening demons from Astaroth. The guys are at a loss. What? The witch who was supposed to be punished has returned. This voice belongs to my father. No, this is the voice of the Baron. This witch is going to burn these lands with the flames of revenge. But there is no need to be afraid. He is with them. Has the infiltration of the guys been discovered? It seems to be a device that spreads a voice in response to communication magic, with the help of which the Baron incites the population. These are 5 people in robes, a man at the head of the squad. Oh, the girl noticed that this already seems to be bad. All the people turned to the guys and stared at them intently. Zeke turned around and told them to run. People were shouting, "It's them, follow them, we can't let them escape." How do they know what the team looks like? If they're hiding out here, maybe the Baron is in a place where you can see the entire capital, or maybe he's using magic. It's the demons trying to prevent the Demon King's rebirth. The girl asks the people to wait. The Demon King's rebirth won't save this country. No one is going to die. Is that the witch, or what? The demon uses the image of Cyra's father and incites the people. He uses them as pawns to capture the sphere of light. This is the girl here trying to brainwash Aching. This time, she will definitely be punished, the girl clicked. If people don't understand this, then she'll get it into everyone's heads. Cyra is asked to leave here, she agreed.